Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is Erza's older brother in Fairy Tail The End. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Deedeesee and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 6. X 778, July. To think, of all people to try and teach him how to read, it had to be Erza. Natsu shuddered as he imagined what kind of tortures the polite and quiet but extremely strong girl would put him through. Instead of his big mouth getting him in trouble this time, it had been because he couldn't read. He'd already been a part of Fairy Tail for almost a year and never before had anyone said anything to him. It was only because he'd picked a high-paying job the day before and that nosy Marahin had made fun of him that anyone noticed he couldn't read so well. Most jobs were simple and the person who hired you would explain things anyways, so Natsu never really had a reason to read better. Only Erza had volunteered to teach him to read even though he didn't want to. Unfortunately for him, she had ignored his protests and dragged him off to start a 3-day cram session. Natsu luckily was able to escape from her and hide. That was the day before though, and now he'd finally worked up the nerve to study. Erza was scary and she'd definitely be mad he ran out on her yesterday, but he hoped that meeting her bride and early today would make up for it. So this is why Natsu moodily kicked a stone down the road as he headed to her home. Natsu was not a morning person, so as he walked along one of Magnolia's water canals, he was barely keeping himself awake. Stupid Erza and stupid books. I already know enough, but Lysana found me yesterday and talked me into studying. And why does she live so far away from Fairy Hills? Natsu grumbled as he got nearer and nearer to what he was certain would be extreme pain. He turned the corner and looked up at the street sign to see where he was. Windmill Way. This is the street Lysana said she lives on. Well, I might as well get this over with. Natsu squared his shoulders and mentally prepared himself for the day. As he got closer and closer to the numbered apartment he'd been told she lived at, his courage was slipping away. Every step he took echoed far too loudly in his mind. Every inch that brought him closer only seemed to taunt his already fraying nerves. It was far too quick for his tastes that he made it all the way to her front door. Hands trembling, he hesitantly raised his arm to knock on the door. Hoping that the gods of good fortune favored him, Natsu was ready to bolt if Erza showed even the slightest hints of anger. As he knocked on Erza's front door and began the waiting game, a sense of nervousness welled up inside him. How angry would she be? Should he beg for mercy as an apology? If not, would he live to see another day? Natsu knew he had screwed up yesterday by running away. Erza didn't take kindly to wasting her time, and Natsu running away after having she already decided to help him was a big waste of her time. Natsu was distracted from his thoughts by the soft thuds of footsteps making their way to the door, followed by a click of the lock as the door opened. Instead of Erza, who had crimson-colored hair, 2 different colored eyes and a permanent blank look on her face, there now stood a boy. Rubbing his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things and then double-checking the door number to see if he got the wrong place, Natsu just stared at the sleepy-looking boy at the door. The blonde teenager stood there, blinking to get the sleep out of his eyes as he stared at Natsu. He looked like he had just woken up, his hair looked naturally spiky, but bits and pieces were spikier and messier than others. His eyes were a bit droopy even if they were the same colors as Erza, just in reverse. The right eye was brown and the left blue, while Erza's right eye was blue and the left brown. Natsu just stood there nervously, wondering if Marahin had put Lysana up to pranking him. Perhaps if he explained things, this sleepy citizen would help him somehow. Yet even as Natsu sat there pondering his situation, the blonde boy seemed to wake up, his eyes gained focus, became sharp and slightly irritated. "Oi, you done staring? What do you want? It's still early in the morning, you know." Natsu swallowed, steeling his resolve and getting past his nervousness. "I'm sorry," he apologized, "I'm looking for Erza and Lysana told me she lived here. I must have gotten the wrong address though. Sorry." Just as he was ready to turn and leave, the blonde boy spoke up with a tone of resignation. "Erza, huh? Okay, come in then. We're having breakfast and you're welcome to join us." Ushering Natsu inside, the blonde boy then led the way to a kitchen where breakfast was being set by another identical copy of the teenager. Everything was the same. All the natural features and right down to the same clothes, which were green froggy pajamas and a walrus sleeping cap. At another chair sat the girl of his fears. Erza Scarlet. Well, she would be the girl of his nightmares if she wasn't sitting there looking far from scary. For a moment Natsu was sure he was indeed dreaming. Erza Scarlet normally wouldn't be seen as anything less than intimidating. When she came to the guild, she would wear a long-sleeve frock with a red cravat tied around the neck. She would also wear a cuirass, which was both an armored breastplate and backplate, spalder, which were armored shoulder guards, and black leggings with brown boots. Along with a sword at her waist, and all of it fit her magic type, the magic Kanso Zanaido. The sight that greeted Natsu's eyes, however, was far from intimidating. In front of his disbelieving eyes Erza sat wearing a pink version of froggy pajamas. She also had her hair down from its usual braided ponytail and let it hang down her back. The most astonishing difference however was the calm, content and slightly happy look she had as she let the other blonde set her food in front of her. Hearing someone come in she tucked into her food as she asked a question not bothering to look up who was at the door. Nai-san. Now it made sense to Natsu. This must be Naruto Scarlet, Erza's older brother. It's true they didn't look too similar, but the unique eyes should have been a dead giveaway. His magic was some sort of self-copy magic, so that explained the other Naruto serving food. If she lived with family it also explained why she didn't live at Fairy Hills like other girls he knew. It also meant that what Kana had said to him some time ago was true too. About how Erza was a much happier and different person when Naruto was around, the only problem being that Master Makarov usually had him running errands around the country for him. It had been after Natsu complained about how mean Erza was that Kana scolded him about his whining and told him how different she could be. "Some pink-haired kids here to see you," Naruto explained as he took a seat. "What are your plans for the day, Erza-chan?" Pink-haired Erza trailed off as she looked up to see who Naruto was talking about. She narrowed her eyes as she caught a glimpse of Natsu who was trying unsuccessfully to hide behind Naruto. Natsu? Even with that single word, Natsu trembled as it sounded foreboding and dangerous coming from her. Before he could do little more than shake in fear, Natsu heard amused laughter coming from the blonde. In an instant Naruto was at Erza's side ruffling her hair and pinching her cheeks. Erza-chan is funny when she tries to sound scary. She sputtered indignantly as she tried to recompose herself. In the end the only thing Erza did was huff and turn back to her food. "I am supposed to give vocabulary lessons to Natsu today, Nai-san. I didn't realize you would come back last night, but I can't break this commitment." Naruto just nodded. "That's fine, Erza-chan. You should always keep your word. How long's this supposed to take?" "Erza," Natsu whined, "are we really going to take 3 days with no sleep, food or rest?" "Natsu," Erza snapped, "you have to work hard to improve at anything." Naruto just laughed and motioned for Natsu to take a seat. Now Erza-chan, I don't want you skipping meals or going without sleep. Make sure to leave time for rest in between your study sessions or else you won't remember anything you teach." Erza reluctantly agreed to his demands, but not without some minor grumbling. Natsu just breathed out a sigh of relief before sitting down and taking a look at breakfast. He'd run out of his house so fast for fear of upsetting Erza even more that he'd forgotten to eat. In front of him was a standard breakfast though. Steamed rice, miso soup, tamagoyaki and broiled fish. Nothing too heavy, but it would give them a good start to the day. "Fine. It'll take 4 days then instead of 3. What are you going to do today, Nai-san?" Erza asked as she ignored Natsu who was trying his best to inhale his food without chewing. Naruto chided Natsu on his table manners and then sat back to eat a bit of his meal. "I'm just going to go talk to Master Makarov about his latest request and then maybe train a little." Naruto noticed the slight frown on her face, likely due to missing out on time hanging out together to tutor Natsu instead. "How about you guys meet up with me around lunchtime and we'll go out to eat somewhere? I should be done with Master by then," he offered. The warm smile slid its way across Erza's face and she nodded happily. The rest of the meal was surreal to Natsu. It was the first time he'd ever seen Erza so relaxed and content, sometimes she even cracked a joke while conversing with Naruto. Naruto himself was an enigma to the young dragon slayer. Often teasing Erza and trying to get her riled up. Most of what he did seemed to be for his amusement and not once did Erza ever hit him or retaliate in any physical way. He just couldn't wrap his head around it. "Naruto?" Natsu caught the older blonde's attention, hoping to get some answers. "Yeah? Why aren't you afraid of Erza? If anyone else in the guild did or said half the things you've done she'd flatten them. She's scary when she gets mad and you don't seem to care." Natsu blurted out. Erza just glared at Natsu for calling her scary in front of her Nai-san. That and she was slightly confused since in her opinion she was extremely polite, not scary. Naruto erupted into laughter that took him a while to calm down from. "I like you, Natsu. You don't beat around the bush. Erza gets mad at me plenty in case you haven't noticed. It just doesn't worry me much since it isn't that scary." Erza turned her glare from Natsu to Naruto, who was only reaffirming Natsu's belief that she was indeed scary. Naruto laughed some more and tousled her hair, causing her to turn back to her meal. Natsu only grew more confused. "Why aren't you scared of her? She's super strong. I'll beat her soon, but right now she could flatten just about anyone in the guild. Even Murahin. Though Erza doesn't use any magic when she and Murahin fight, which makes her even scarier." "Is that so?" Naruto gave Erza a proud look at hearing from Natsu that she was plenty strong. "Well, believe it or not, Natsu, I'm way stronger than Erza." "What?" Natsu shouted out, completely shocked at hearing Naruto was so much stronger than Erza that he could confidently tease her without a care in the world. Looking to Erza to hear what she had to say at that, he was even more surprised to see her nod, seriously accepting it as fact. It's true, Natsu. Nai-san is much stronger than me, but that's why I trained so hard, so that I'll be strong just like him. 1. In fact, Naruto continued, puffing out his chest and striking what he considered a heroic pose as he stood atop his chair, I'm so strong that in lands far and wide people bow to my name and worship my heroic feats. My presence alone is cause for celebration. That's right, lands everywhere consider me a hero. Me, the great and powerful Naruto-sama. Isn't that right, Erza-chan? So cool. Natsu exclaimed, stars in his eyes and about to start bowing as well. Erza couldn't believe that even now Naruto could act so childish. She turned her blank stare on him, you're so weird sometimes, Nai-san. She said without emotion, before turning back to her meal. Naruto's face faltered. It was a huge blow to his ego hearing Erza say that. After some more idle chit-chat and following breakfast cleanup, Erza took Natsu away to start beating vocabulary into his head, and Naruto headed to Fairy Tail to meet with Makarov. Makarov's office. As Naruto settled into the chair in Makarov's office, he looked around to see if anything had changed. Apart from a few new books and the booster seat Makarov seemed to have bought, everything stayed the same. Amused at the sight of Makarov wiggling his way onto the booster seat, Naruto let out a few snickers. Need some help over there, master? Makarov chuckled and waved off the taunt. No, and I've told you before, Naruto. You don't need to be so formal with me. Naruto shrugged. It's a sign of respect, master. If you're eager to have a nickname, I could always call you Shrimpy. He offered. Like you're one to talk, with your great and towering height. Kurama snorted in his head. Naruto just ignored him as he kept the true reason he wasn't on more familiar terms with Makarov hidden. Truth was that Naruto only assigned family figures any kind of endearing nickname. The Sandaime Hokage was his Jiji, and after his death, he didn't want to look at anyone else as a grandfather figure, as he didn't want to make it seem like he'd replaced the first person who was nice to him in his life. Tsunade still called Bachan and Shizune was his Ni-chan. Jiraiya was Iro-senin simply because it both fit him, and he was the first to treat Naruto as a regular person. Not a Jinchuriki weapon, not a moronic student like Kakashi and Iruka, nor a hero or demon like everyone else. For that alone Naruto held him in high regard and missed him dearly. They were constant figures in his life, and to call other people the same nicknames would only degrade how he saw them. After having the villagers flip-flop between hating him and loving him so quickly and often, he began to truly appreciate those that had been honest and true to their feelings towards him from the beginning. Most people were shallow and pretended they never did anything wrong. Konoha was the best example for this line of thinking. Not once had anyone from the village even attempted to show remorse or apologize for how they treated him as a child. He didn't hate people, far from it, but he couldn't stand the fact that the very same people who were cruel to him as a child pretended like they'd always believed in him as a grown-up. This was a big reason on why he appreciated those people who believed in him growing up. So yes, if someone proved trustworthy enough, he'd warm up to them and be his real self, but otherwise he liked to give them the proper respect that any decent human being deserved that he was denied for so long as a child. Makarov was getting close, but unfortunately for both of them, they didn't spend enough time together to grow comfortable with each other. Not with what he was assigned to do at Raven Tail. And that was a big factor in Naruto even considering being more familiar with people anymore. Having been dumped in Fiori and joining Fairy Tail was a blessing in disguise for Naruto. He no longer hid from people like in Konoha. Granted, they didn't know exactly what he did like his old home, but he got the feeling that even if they did, they wouldn't care. Gildarts was arguably just as powerful and as big a hero here as Naruto was in Konoha. Yet he was never swarmed, nor had people act like long-lost friends to him. Yes, Fairy Tail was doing wonders to improve his outlook on life and his social skills. Erza was a huge factor as well. No thanks, my boy. Calling me master will do. Now then, Makarov turned serious, what have you found out on your most recent attempt in Raven Tail? Naruto straightened in his seat and pulled out a small scroll from his pocket. From the scroll he unsealed several folders and handed them to Makarov. Each folder was labeled differently, one was members, another finances, another missions, and the last was the smallest labeled information network. Makarov accepted them all without a word and went through each folder individually. Even though the folders were thin, they were incredibly detailed and easy to read. He was impressed at what Naruto had uncovered. The information contained within these files would go a long way towards keeping Ivan in check. Makarov took a moment to look up from the files and eye the child in front of him. No, not a child but a teenager now, and a powerful one at that. Even though he didn't know for sure, he suspected that Naruto was stronger than even Laxus now. He'd seen the blonde a fair amount of times over the last year since the initial infiltration, but he'd changed in that amount of time. Right now he wore a black long-sleeve shirt with only the front colored gold and red spirals on the shoulders. He also wore creamy-colored pants with the ends wrapped in black plain Fiyu shoes. His golden-colored hair and lively eyes were enhanced by his clothes. Naruto, thinking that Makarov wanted some more information, decided to explain his files. The members and missions folders should be self-explanatory, master. The real goldmine of information was obtaining a list of the businesses they launder money through, which is in the finances folder, and positively identifying some of their spies in other guilds and locations, including the Magic Council. Makarov, having only looked through the members folder, was shocked at all the information Naruto had uncovered. They now had a firm grasp on Raven Tail's finances and how they gathered information. If need be, they could even turn this information over to the Magic Council in hopes that it would be enough to warrant an investigation. As soon as he thought that, though, he grimaced. Ivan may have fallen and walked down a dark path, but even now Makarov couldn't bring himself to sentence his child to prison. Very good, Naruto. This is far more information than I thought we'd get at this point. What do you believe we should do now? Makarov inquired, deferring to Naruto's expertise in this situation. Naruto took a minute to consider that. Before I suggest pulling out, master. Raising his hand to stop Makarov's protests, Naruto continued, hear me out. This was my sixth try at infiltrating Raven Tail to get valuable information. The first time was as a drunk, where I got beat up and thrown out. Makarov chuckled, remembering that occasion. Another time I tried going in as a pervert and just got beat up by the girls, although I kind of deserved that one. Naruto admitted sheepishly. The third time I was an arrogant, moody and self-absorbed asshole that the girls loved, but resulted in the guys setting me up for failure. Naruto wondered what Sasuke would think if he ever found out he'd used him as inspiration for that attempt. Twice when I infiltrated after that, I was too strong and suspicion fell on me, so I was forced to leave before anyone uncovered anything. Winding down after his long explanation, Naruto continued with the final attempt. This last time I was kicked out after refusing to kill people that our job requested. I've already gathered a great deal of information from my past attempts, and the best piece of information I've gathered is that we won't get anywhere doing things as we are now. Confusion marred the Sandaime Guildmaster's features. What do you mean, my boy? Naruto let out a deep sigh. Master, you've said it yourself. Ivan is a very paranoid and very secretive person. At the rate we're going, I'll never be able to infiltrate deep enough to find his true goals unless I dedicate myself full-time. Something which I'm not willing to do for various reasons. Mainly Erza, but also because of the job requests the guild receives. Makarov nodded sagely at his words. It seems this is as far as we can go using fake temporary identities. He leaned back into his chair and rubbed his temple. The only way to go any further would be to have Ivan recruit you personally. Open recruitment that he's allowed so far carries the risk of having spies in your guild, which is likely why you couldn't go any deeper than what you have now. The blonde teenager just nodded. If it helps any, master, I believe that his true objective won't be revealed for several years yet. It seems to me like for now he's content with getting steady funding, building the guild's reputation, recruiting powerful wizards, and gathering info on other guilds and organizations. Naruto speculated. The guild master lowered his chin onto his intertwined fingers resting on his desk. Well, it does seem like he has his hands full at the moment. Alright then, Naruto, thank you for all the hard work you've put in over this past year. I know it was hard for you to spend so little time with Erza, but I appreciate everything you did. Naruto waved off Makarov's concerns for him and how he'd been overworked. Don't worry about it, master. Erza's been doing fine on her own. This helped her open up a bit to others here at the guild. I hear she even has a rival now. Makarov chuckled. Yes, it seemed that Erza's heated rivalry with Marahin Strauss had reached even the elusive Naruto's ears. Too bad it was a bit of a one-sided rivalry. Marahin had potential to be strong, that much was true, but Erza had a distinct advantage. She had Naruto helping her train. Naruto was very powerful in his own right, so for the moment Erza simply outclassed Marahin because of how Naruto trained her. Just as he was about to comment on their recent bouts, Naruto interrupted him once more. There is one other thing that I forgot to mention, he started. My information network has come up with a lot of talk of dragon slayers. What can you tell me about them? A lot of guilds seem to be asking about them. Makarov was surprised at this line of questioning. Before he could answer, he was interrupted by a knock at his door. Mikao Convolt stuck his head in after hearing Makarov call him in. Master, there's a person here from the Magic Council with a message for you. Mikao said before walking out the door. Makarov furrowed his brows in concentration, wondering what the council had sent him. Apart from the standard damage his guild caused, he couldn't think of anything that warranted a messenger that didn't simply drop off the message and leave. Naruto tilted his head in question, silently asking what the Sandaime would do. Makarov simply waved to follow him out the door and go greet the mysterious messenger. As the two of them exited Makarov's office and headed to the first floor, they both expected one of the Toad aides or a Rune Knight to be the messenger. Instead, the closer Naruto got to the person sitting at the bar, the bigger the feeling that he knew this person got. When the messenger turned to face Makarov and Naruto, she looked slightly surprised at seeing the blonde before her. Likewise, Naruto was surprised at who the Magic Council had sent to Fairy Tail. It had been a while since he and Ultear had seen each other, even if they occasionally kept in touch through letters. Turning on the stool offered Naruto a better look at the teenage girl he'd first met in Crocus soon after arriving in Fiori. She was dressed in casual clothes, wearing dark blue capri pants, sandals and a red blouse. She had let her raven-colored hair grow a bit longer, allowing for 2 straight locks to hang down her front and the rest to reach the middle of her back. Her dark eyes that twinkled with intelligence and cunning offset her pale skin. She wore little to no makeup, and if not for her holding a missive from the Magic Council, she could easily be mistaken for a normal civilian girl. "Ultear-chan? What are you doing here, Ultear-chan?" Naruto asked. The slight smile that had been on Ultear's face was quickly replaced with a frown and slightly narrowed eyes. "Naruto. I wasn't expecting to see you here today. What have I said about adding chan to my name?" She growled out the last bit. A sly smile made its way to Naruto's face. "Oh, I don't remember, Ultear-chan. Why don't you remind me, Ultear-chan, what it was you wanted me to do with the chan in your name, Ultear-chan?" Realizing that he was trying to get her riled up with all the teasing, Ultear merely glared at Naruto some more before turning to Makarov. "Master Makarov, I am here with an important message from the council concerning the 10 wizard saints. Here is the information you need to review, and there is paperwork you will need to complete, which I will then take back personally to the council." Makarov grabbed the paperwork from Ultear concerning his council-granted title. Thumbing through the pages, he realized that he would need to fill out the papers immediately, so Ultear could take them back that same day. "Are you going to wait here while I finish this?" Makarov asked while waving to indicate the Rowdy Guild Hall. Ultear smiled at him while glancing at Naruto. "Actually, if you wouldn't mind, Master Makarov, I'd like to request to have Naruto show me around. It would give me an opportunity to catch up with him without having to breathe down your neck waiting for the papers to be filled out." The shouts of 2 young mages approaching the guild interrupted whatever reply Makarov was going to give. "No means no, Natsu." Everyone currently in the guild turned towards the guild doors at the sound of Erza yelling at Natsu. "Come on please, Erza. It's just one tiny break, and as soon as I beat up Naruto, I promise I won't ask for any more," Natsu yelled. Makarov and Ultear both raised an eyebrow in question at hearing Naruto's name. For his part, the blonde teenager merely shrugged, sending the clear message, "I know about as much here as you do." "Natsu sure is persistent. Always picking fights with everyone." Mikao commented from over at his table with his friend Wakaba. "True," Wakaba scoffed, "but he should know by now not to disobey Erza." "What are they arguing about, Naruto?" Makarov asked. "Beats me. If anything, Natsu should be thanking me for feeding him this morning, not trying to pick a fight," Naruto replied in a dry tone. The group waited in anticipation as the guild doors slowly opened. In walked Natsu, nursing a fresh lump on his head and a dejected expression. Erza quickly followed in after him, but not before looking around the guild for something. Once she spotted Naruto, her eyes lit up and both of the younger wizards walked towards him. "Hey Naruto. Fight me," Natsu cried out in excitement. Excitement that Erza quickly snuffed out after smashing his head to the ground. "Shut up already about that, Natsu. We're only here to eat something because Nai-san said we have to take a break from studying. If you'd rather go the full 3 days without rest, I'm sure we can manage that instead," Erza scolded the pink-haired dragon slayer. Ultear looked amused at their behavior and Makarov slightly embarrassed that his guild members acted this way in front of a messenger from the council. Naruto chose to laugh and make his amusement clear. "It's good to see you guys took my advice about rest seriously," he said to the 2 of them. "Ultear-chan, how about you go out to lunch with me and these 2 hooligans here?" Erza was about to protest at being called a hooligan, but instead turned to the intern she'd met in Ira on her first mission with Naruto. "Hello, Ultear-san." Erza greeted the older girl. Ultear acknowledged the redeed with a small nod. "Where are we gonna eat, Nai-san?" she asked Naruto. "We'll find someplace, don't worry." "What's this about you wanting to fight me, Natsu?" Naruto asked as he picked Natsu up off the ground. Natsu jumped up and pointed a finger at Naruto. "Naruto. Fight me. Erza told me all about how strong you are. If I want to get stronger, I need to fight stronger wizards besides that sensitive snowflake gray." Naruto almost laughed at the similarities between Natsu and himself when he was younger. Okay, Natsu. I'll spar with you a little later, but not till after we eat. How does that sound?" "Aw," Natsu pouted, "why can't we just fight now?" Erza promptly smashed his head to the ground again before dragging him out the guild. "Let's go, Nai-san, I'm hungry and Natsu can wait until after we're done eating," Erza called out. Most of the guild laughed at how Erza handled the excitable dragon slayer. Naruto palmed his face at how curt and blunt Erza still seemed to be with people. He shifted to face Ultear. "We can catch up over lunch, can't we, Ultear-chan?" Ultear leveled him with another frosty stare, which Naruto easily dismissed and followed Erza out the door. "Well, at least she's not as violent as the first time we met," Naruto thought to himself. Of course, when doing so, more often than not his tenant would answer. Even if he wished the Kurama would stay quiet most of the time. "You sound oddly disappointed at that, masochist." Naruto wished that Kurama was indeed free so that he could pay him back for all the taunts he'd received over the years. Makarov remembered there was one other thing he wanted to talk to Naruto about later on. "Stop by my office later on, my boy. I'd like to talk to you about taking the S-class promotion exam." Naruto waved a hand over his shoulder before exiting the guild to show he'd heard Makarov. "So you're no longer an intern at the council." Naruto paused in eating his food, "but instead you are now the personal aide to council member Belno." Ultear daintily wiped away any excess food on her lips before answering. "That is correct, Naruto. As prestigious as it sounds though, I will admit that the job is very monotonous and rather dull." At the moment the group of four was sitting at an outdoor patio eating their food from one of the many restaurants in Magnolia Town. Erza and Naruto had elected to let Ultear choose where to eat despite Natsu's loud protests. Erza of course scolded Natsu into behaving while the group ordered food and waited for its arrival. Ultear seemed content to watch the interaction between the fairy tale members and only occasionally asked questions of her own. "What about you, Naruto and Erza? What have the two of you been doing since last we met?" Erza went on to explain the few exciting jobs she'd taken in the last year or so. Sometimes she elected to take a job with another one of the kids at Fairy Tail helping her. Most notable was when Natsu or Levi helped her, often making the job that much more interesting. When Ultear tried to ask Naruto about his errands for Master Makarov, she found his answers evasive at worst and half-truths at best. Something which quickly piqued her interest, although she was careful not to let them pick up on that. "So I was right about you, Naruto Scarlet. There is much more to you than meets the eye if Makarov has you doing personal missions for him already." Even as she sat there and interacted with the mages of Fairy Tail, she couldn't help but feel a slight pang of envy at how Naruto acted towards Erza. While it wasn't overbearing or heavy-handed, one would have to be blind to miss how much he cared for his sister. Once more cursing her mother for abandoning her, she used the feelings welling up inside as further motivation to complete her ultimate goal. Naruto had been relentlessly teasing everyone in their little group and trying to get a rise out of Erza and Ultear. Ultear decided that a little payback was in order. Sending a sly glance Naruto's way, she looked between Erza and Natsu, making sure to catch their attention. "So tell me, Erza, why were you alone with Natsu here so early in the morning?" "And you were so eager to drag him out of the guild before Naruto and I could get a chance to talk to him. Is he your boyfriend?" The raven-haired beauty teased, just waiting for Naruto's reaction. She prided herself in being able to read people and predicting their reactions. It made manipulating them effortless for her. Naruto was an enigma to her, but she was sure that his reaction to this would be gold. Erza looked annoyed and slightly panicked that Ultear would even joke about Natsu and her like that. Natsu looked up from his food and almost cried out in alarm at the looks he was getting from both Erza and Naruto. He stood firm in his belief that Erza was scary, but he never thought that the cheerful blonde brother of hers could be just as scary if not even scarier. Naruto's bangs covered his eyes, casting an ominous shadow over them, and he seemed to radiate promises of pain. "Natsu," he intoned sinisterly, "you're not trying to date my precious Amato, are you?" Ultear chuckled. She was right, Naruto's reaction was gold and Erza's follow-up would probably be just as funny. Natsu frantically shook his head no and started babbling something about scary and mentioned Erza's name a few times. "Ow. Erza-chan, did you just kick me?" Naruto accused her. Erza only glared at him for daring to cause a scene in a public place. "That's not funny, Nai-san." Giggling, Ultear placed a delicate hand on Naruto's arm before he could raise a ruckus. "I was only teasing, Naruto. Now it seems to me that we're done here and I don't believe Master Makarov is done with the paperwork yet, so would you mind if I accompany you to your spar with Natsu?" At the reminder of the spar, Natsu jumped up in joy and was ready to bolt for the exit. Ultear smiled when Naruto agreed to let her come along. "Hopefully this will give me a good evaluation of your skills, Naruto. I doubt Makarov would entrust anything to a weak wizard." Leaving enough money to cover their meal, Naruto ushered everyone outside so they could get started. Ultear had barely stepped outside after following Naruto when her eyes widened in surprise. He had been just a few feet in front of her when he had suddenly placed a hand on Erza's and Natsu's shoulders and then disappeared. It was even more shocking when he reappeared only a few seconds later. He grinned at her shocked features and grabbed a hold of her hand, only for the scenery to instantly change around her and shift into that of a mountain setting. "But how? Where are we and how did we get here so fast? Is this Shunshin no Meiho?" Ultear asked in disbelief at what she'd just seen. Naruto laughed while Erza seemed completely unaffected by what had happened and Natsu was running around in awe of what he'd experienced. It's sort of like that Ultear-chan. We're at Mount Ivor. Ultear's eyes widened in admiration after hearing how far they'd traveled. He must have some impressive magical reserves to get us so far and so quickly. Would you like me to mediate the match, Nai-san? Erza asked. The group had managed to find a relatively clear area where they could start the spar with only a few minor rocks scattered around the clearing. The flat ledge they were on overlooked a decently sized rocky area full of craters and even bigger boulders, with little room to maneuver. Naruto waved his hand dismissively. Sure Erza-chan. So how do you want to do this, Natsu? Alright. I finally get to fight someone strong. Bring it on, Naruto. Natsu cried out, hopping from one foot to the other in excitement. Natsu uses Ka no Mitsuryu Meiho Nai-san. So go easy on him and use some fire yourself. Erza suggested from her spot off on the sidelines. Ultear was pleased that she'd get to see another form of lost magic in action today on top of whatever skills Naruto had. You use fire magic too? At Naruto's nod, Natsu became, if possible, even more excited. This will be a breeze then. I eat and breathe fire. Check it out. Natsu turned away from Naruto and faced a boulder off to the side. This boulder was easily 5 meters tall and twice as wide. Natsu inhaled a deep breath of air and raised his fists to his mouth, one in front of the other. A deep fiery red magic circle formed in front of his fists with a dragon's head in the center. Peryu no Hoko. As Natsu exhaled, a torrent of orange and yellow-colored flames erupted from his mouth at a blistering pace, headed straight for the boulder. When the flames made contact, the boulder exploded from the force of the attack. After the smoke cleared, all that was left of the boulder were a few scattered rocks and the scorched ground on which it sat. Impressive, Naruto commented, but you've got nothing on the great Naruto-sama. Natsu was annoyed that his skills were being laughed at while Erza sighed, since she knew Naruto was about to show off. Behind her, Ultear placed a hand on her hip and waved her hand impatiently. Well, do show us your power then, oh great and powerful Naruto-sama. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Oh, alright then, you guys should probably move back a little. He said to them. I forgot Ultear-chan was here for a minute there. He mumbled to himself. Boy Kurama. Can you lend me some chakra? Naruto pleaded. Why, it seemed Kurama was not in a giving mood. I've always wanted to beat a fire user at their own game, ever since Sasuke team started shooting fireballs at me when we were kids. Since he's not around, Natsu is the next best thing. Really? You sure it's not because you want to impress the closet pervert girl over there? Kurama commented lightly. Shut up, Baka Fox. It's not like that. Naruto protested indignantly. I don't want to hear excuses while I'm trying to nap. I can only give you a small amount anyways. Grumbling at the lack of respect he was getting, Naruto started on his hand seals before inhaling a deep breath of air. Similar to Natsu, he raised his hand to his mouth before breathing out his flames. Pain. Goku Misitsu, a massive stream of intense white-hot flames erupted from his mouth. Unlike his other fire techniques, this one was meant for a wide area attack, meaning that it engulfed the rocky flatland below him in a veritable sea of flames. The intensity of the attack was further increased by using the much denser and potent chakra of a tailed beast. I might have overdone it a little. Erza's going to be mad at me for showing off again. Naruto thought to himself before speaking out loud. Well, as soon as I put that fire out we can get started, alright Natsu. He looked back to see if he could hold off on fighting the excitable pink-haired boy long enough to control the fire. What greeted him was the absolutely gobsmacked looks on the faces of all three of his companions. Even Erza-chan surprised. Wow, I'm good. Ultear's jaw threatened to unhinge at seeing the massive inferno Naruto had produced. Her initial evaluations of Naruto were severely underestimating him. She thought that he was interesting and might help her, if only in a small way, to reach her goals. Now she was more determined than ever to sway him to her side. He just produced more fire than Zancro's ever managed to do with only a single attack. God Slayer or not, even Zancro's flames would have a hard time matching Naruto's, judging by the intensity and heat that I can feel from here. And he's not even winded in the slightest. When she saw how Naruto was smiling and enjoying the expressions of everyone there, she couldn't help but return the grin, even if hers was a bit more predatory in nature. Ultear stepped forward and patted Natsu on the back. You're on, Natsu. Show Naruto what you're made of. She teased as she then took a step back to her original position. Hearing no response, Ultear laughed at the young mage, with Naruto quickly joining in on Ultear's teasing. At any rate, I think it's time we head back to Fairy Tail so I can pick up the paperwork Master Makarov had to fill out. She explained with a pointed look towards the blonde fire breather. Naruto quickly created a few clones with instructions to smother the flames before they got out of control, before stepping forward to take everyone back to the guild. It wasn't until they'd arrived that Natsu had erupted into cheers for Naruto and demanded a fight the next day to make up for missing out on the last one. Well, today was certainly much more interesting than what I'd originally planned. It was great catching up, Naruto. If you're ever in Era again, don't be a stranger. See you later, and you as well, Erza. Ultear winked coquettishly at Naruto before leaving for Magnolia Station, paperwork for the council in hand. Naruto grinned mischievously. No problem, Ultear-chan. I'll be sure to stop by and ask about you sometime soon. Musical laughter met his ears after she had turned around and half-heartedly glared at him for using Chan again. It seems like she'd already almost gotten used to his familiarity with her. Erza quirked an eyebrow before expertly smoothing it over before Naruto noticed it. It was rare to see Naruto so carefree and open when around anyone besides Erza. He was friendly to everyone he met, but the way he acted today was not his typical attitude. As much as Naruto teased Erza and made everyone around him feel at ease, he rarely was so calm like he had been all day with Ultear around. It brought a small smile to her face. Maybe Naruto would act like that more often. After all, if he asked for Erza to be more open, then it was only fair for him to be more open around people as well. In a small side alley before arriving at Magnolia Station, Ultear pulled out her communication lacrima and contacted her superior. Have there been any new developments or any changes to the council that put our ambitions at risk, Ultear? The guildmaster of the Dark Guild Grimmer Heart asked. None whatsoever, Master Hades. The message to the Wizard Saints appears to have been the standard information updates and any possible nominations for a new member. The raven-haired girl answered. Good. Do any of the guilds have any mages we might possibly recruit to our side? Hades questioned. Ultear quirked an eyebrow. Well, there is one, but I think I'll keep him as my ace in the hole for now. You are a bit impatient when recruiting, Master Hades, and I wouldn't want to lose such a valuable player just because you couldn't wait for him to change his mind. She smoothed her features and then answered the guildmaster. None worth mentioning, Master Hades. Though I will of course keep an eye out for anyone that might be able to help. See that you do, Ultear. With that, Hades then cut the link to the lacrima and his image faded from the crystal orb. You are more interesting than I initially thought, Naruto Scarlet. So young as well, it shall be interesting to see what you do in the next few years. With her inner musings over the young council worker then walked into the station and boarded the train for her next stop, head already swarming with plans on how to best use the information she'd gotten that day. Chapter 7. December X 778. Nice and I did it. I can walk up trees now. Which means you owe me a new jutsu. Erza exclaimed excitedly as she ran up to Naruto. When she reached him, she shoved a finger in his face and glared, just daring him to defy her. While normally she wore her armor and the sword strapped to her waist, when alone and training with Naruto, Erza wore simple gray sweatpants and a lightweight gold shirt. She had obviously been training hard to master her latest assigned chakra exercise and was standing there huffing and puffing to catch her breath. Naruto smiled over at her, amused at her posture. As tired as she was, she still tried to look intimidating and was giving him the best glare she could. Too bad her exhaustion pretty much made any posturing from her useless. It was hard to take an exhausted 13-year-old girl seriously. Now it was time to placate her though and pay up the reward for her hard work. The system worked well for the both of them. She would learn and master chakra control exercises and he would teach her a new jutsu. They had only been training for a short time, so they hadn't gotten far past the basics and simplest, but that was alright. Naruto took special care when training her to make sure her chakra wouldn't mess with her magic control. The best way to do this, he found, was to have her control increase without overly increasing her reserves. Luckily, Sakura was much like Erza in the academy. Great control and small reserves. The reason she had that back then was because she practiced her control exercises without exhausting herself. So Naruto had Erza do the same. Tsunade had pounded the importance of mastering basics into him, so he made sure Erza mastered all her exercises before starting a new one. Both magic and chakra control exercises. Fine Erza-chan, you did earn it. Leaping off the stone slab he was sitting on, which was balanced on top of an earthen pike, he walked over to the tired redhead. Sage training would have to wait for the moment. Besides, he liked teaching Erza new things. It's not like he neglected his own training either. He was 15 again, even younger than the first time he learned to gather nature chakra. The only thing that bothered him was how slow going it was. It probably had something to do with his Shiki Fujin seal and magic, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He didn't want to risk experimenting with the seal though, not yet. So he ambled over to try and calm down his wonderful and excited Amato. After showing her the hand seal and demonstrating the correct method to mold chakra for the Shunshin no Jutsu, they called it a day and headed home. She was exhausted and there really was no need to rush learning a new jutsu. She was patient and knew that she would master it in due time, just like the other two she knew. As had become custom for the two, they made extra food for any stragglers that had made a habit of joining their meals. Mostly it was Natsu and his cat Happy, but sometimes Kana, Levi, even Gray would stop by. Warahin claimed she would never be able to share a meal with that clanky bastard and her siblings weren't looking to irritate her by joining the Scarlet siblings for a meal. Erza had, much to Naruto's amusement, shown a completely different personality when her rival ever challenged her. He didn't know how or why she pulled a 180 with her mood swings, but Naruto was glad Erza did it at all. Natsu and everyone else claimed it had only gotten worse after Naruto showed up. Once they had started on eating Natsu, their guest for the night started the first round of questions. Are you excited for tomorrow, Naruto? It's so awesome you get to take the S-class exams already. When I beat you after that, I bet they'll make me S-class too. Naruto looked mildly amused and chided him lightly on his table manners while thinking of how to answer his question. After a lively discussion on what the exam could possibly be, Natsu left for home, but not without wishing Naruto good luck. The next morning Erza went and saw him off at Magnolia Station as she had a job to do on her own. Good luck, Nai-san. I can't wait till you get back and tell me how it went. Naruto gave her a tight hug before he stepped back. Thanks, Erza-chan. I'll definitely try my hardest in the exam. Becoming S-class is only another step in becoming stronger to protect anyone close to me. He flicked her nose playfully, just you right now, so I don't want to hear about how you got hurt on this job, okay? Erza scowled at him in mock anger before smiling at his last words. A final goodbye and good luck, and then both boarded different trains each to their destination. Makarov had told Naruto to go to Harjan Town and Erza was headed to Kanugi. Everyone gather round. So let's begin. This exam is a test for S-class promotion. That entails testing your courage, strength, decision-making and planning skills. All of them are necessary for one to be an S-class mage. Makarov explained to the gathered test takers. They were all standing at the docks in Harjan Town, patiently waiting for Makarov to explain the rules. Of all the guild members in Fairy Tail, Makarov had claimed only 4 were ready to take the exam. All 4 were present at the moment and included Laxus Dreyer, Naruto Scarlet, Mikao Konbold, and the sole female mage Mikichi Kentager. Eyeing each of his potential opponents, Naruto deemed that the toughest one he would possibly face to be Laxus. He was the only one Naruto noticed that actually pushed himself hard and trained his magic. Mikao had a good mission record and was smart enough to merit promotion, but he had also just had a kid. Rising to S rank wasn't a priority of his and would likely take a backseat to raising his son. As for Miki, the reputed Onohim, Naruto could tell she was strong but also uninterested in becoming S rank. She wasn't greedy, but she completed missions solely for the pay. If she rose in rank it would mean better paying missions, yes, but lately she'd been talking about forming a team to do missions together. A team would mean missions being completed faster and more money without the risk higher class missions brought. Although the details of the exam aren't told to anyone before it starts, Naruto had enough experience in other promotion exams to expect a fight at some point. He was confident he knew enough about his opponents that he wouldn't underestimate them. Makarov went around and passed a map and compass to each of the examinees. The first part of your test begins now. You have been handed a compass that has a permanent lock on Tenrujima. Your job is to make it to that island before sundown or be disqualified. I don't care how you do it, by boat, flying or any other way. This tests your resourcefulness. Gildarts, who had also accompanied Makarov to Harjan Town, chuckled at the appalled look Naruto sported. Hopefully all those stories Erza tells us about your horrible sense of direction anywhere outside of battle are wrong. Eh, Naruto? Naruto only sulked further upon hearing Erza went around and told people of his one weakness. Makarov continued his explanation before anyone could take off running. The map of Tenrujima you have been given has 4 paths marked off. Now there are 4 of you in 4 paths, of those 4 paths 2 will lead to dead ends, of the remaining 2 1 will have Gildarts who will test your strength, and the last has an easy way out where you will face the next part of the exam. Any questions? No one said anything, but all fervently hoped they wouldn't have to face Gildarts. His reputation was legendary and none wanted the chance to face him in a test of strength. The dead ends must be for us to waste time. Seems like this part of the exam is a race. First to get to the island and first to get to the end through one of 2 possible paths, even though one of them has Gildarts in the way. Naruto started to come up with other possible reasons for the test being laid out as it was. Naruto raised his hand like when in a classroom asking for permission. Master, how will you and Gildarts be getting there? Gildarts laughed and clapped Naruto on the shoulder. Don't worry about that. Worry about yourselves. We'll be there in time for you guys. Naruto nodded weakly and patted Gildarts on the shoulder. Thanks, I was a little worried there for a second. No more questions. Okay, good. Off you go then, you noisy brats. Makarov waved them away so they could start the test. Naruto went over and wished every one of his competitors luck. He slapped Mikao on the back as he'd grown friendly with the man, patted Laxus on the shoulder, and gave Miki a hug. Everyone immediately took off after Makarov left. Some headed to boats and one even tried renting a magical jet ski. Oh, how Mickey reasoned that was a good idea was beyond Naruto. Those things ran on magic and she'd be bone tired before setting foot on Tenryujima. Naruto just went and found a place to eat. By his calculations, the soonest someone would get to the island would be a few hours. Since he'd covertly placed a Hurricane seal on everyone he touched, he just had to wait till one of them made it to the island before activating his seal and being summoned there instantly. He'd also placed one on Gildarts, but resolved to use that as a last resort. He had no wish to make fighting the man a certainty in the exam. After a few hours had gone by and Naruto ran out of things to do in town, he concentrated on his chakra and molded a few seals. Raiden. Kayako. Satisfied that his improved concealment jutsu had been performed capably, he instantly transported himself to each of the seals of his competitors. As expected, Mikao and Mickey were the furthest back but almost at the island. Laxus, however, was already there. Naruto arrived just when Laxus was about to pick what path he'd take. Luckily for him, Laxus didn't notice Naruto was there as well, or else he was sure a fight would break out. Once Laxus picked a path to go on, Naruto dropped his jutsu. There were now 3 possible choices to pick from unless he wanted to follow and possibly fight Laxus. Which he didn't. Okay, here goes. Eeny meeny miny mo, he picked the middle path of the remaining 3. As he walked down the waist-high water-filled tunnel, Naruto idly wondered who designed the place. The ceilings were high but not overly so, only reaching about 20 feet above him, the roof held up by pillars and arches carved out of stone and decorated with wolf heads or something, and all of it seemed to be slightly tilted to the left. At least it was the appearance he got when walking atop the water and seeing that the tunnel looked crooked. If he had to fight anyone in here, he'd be limited in his ninjutsu. Wind was his natural affinity, and having Kurama sealed in him allowed him to use fire elements as well. But because he wasn't earth-natured, he couldn't produce it without already existing earth around. He hadn't mastered any but the most powerful and damaging attacks in the fire and water elements. Using those in an enclosed space though was asking for trouble. The earth element would be all but useless here because of the water level being several meters above the earth below. He didn't think it was a good idea to use the earth of the ceiling and walls. There was a good chance that would cause a cave-in if used carelessly. Since he only knew the powerful and chakra-intensive fire attacks, that element was also out. There was only so much time to train while in Anbu, so he only learned the powerful fire ones. He didn't think he wanted to risk destroying the ruins on this island. Makarov would chew him out for it. He knew a few defensive water jutsu, but without a steady source of water, he never really used them or the water element at all. Unlike Tobirama Senju, he hadn't mastered it past the necessary amounts to use the high-powered water jutsu. Luckily there was plenty of water around right now, but he'd still have to be careful with his aim. The lightning and wind elements were pretty much mastered for him, but he didn't want to blow the place sky high, so decided that if possible, he would only use the lower-ranked jutsu in his arsenal that didn't cause widespread damage. Of course, all these rules and restrictions only applied when within an enclosed space. If he could somehow make it out of here before having to battle anyone, then he had much more freedom in battle. If anyone dared to challenge him in the open, he would simply overpower and overwhelm them with all his jutsu. There were few who could match Naruto in raw power even without Kurama, and even fewer who could handle such a wide range of elemental attacks from him. Random thoughts ended. He wandered in the only direction available for several minutes. It was only about 10 minutes into it that he began to get bored and wished something would happen. As soon as he rounded the next corner though, he instantly regretted that wish. For there, standing in front of him and the next part of the exam, stood the famed ace of fairy tale. Gildarts Clive. The last opponent Naruto faced that had so effortlessly torn him apart. "Yo Naruto. I've been waiting for you," Gildarts remarked, standing on one of the broken rocks that littered the area and kept him atop the water. Chunks of stone were dotted here and there, providing a solid foundation for people to stand on. They were like miniature islands for most people to use while navigating the tunnel. Gildarts stood on top of one rock while Naruto stood atop the water. It had been 2 years since their little spar. Gildarts hadn't changed much in that time. He still wore his dark boots, long cloak and armored shoulder guards. His face still sported that stubble, and his hair was still slicked back. The only difference was Gildarts had his forearms wrapped in bandages now. Naruto, on the other hand, had changed more noticeably than the S-class mage. He still wore his few black plain shoes and black pants, with the ankles wrapped up, but because of the S-class exam, had strapped his shuriken and kunai pouch to his right leg. He wore a tight long-sleeved black shirt turtleneck and had commissioned a tailor to make him a standard shinobi armored vest. It wasn't chakra-resistant like back in the elemental nations, but the tailor had added runes to help wear and tear, as well as minor durability against magic. It seemed that mages were a few of his frequent customers. He would have loved to wear his red sage jacket too, but it only looked good with orange. Erza had laughed hysterically at him when he wore orange and his long jacket together, and so he resolved not to do so again in front of her. It just wasn't good for his self-esteem. Instead he wore a different design of the white short-sleeved long haori his father wore. While Minato's haori had a flame-like motif adorning the edges and the kanji for fourth Hokage, Naruto's was a light intimation of his strongest elemental affinity and long-sleeved. He had no kanji on the back, but along the bottom of the haori and adorning the edges of his sleeves were light blue representations of wind. Along his collar and forming a V down to his chest when closed the blue wind designs were also drawn. A light blue rope attached to the waist closed it off. 1. You know, I was really hoping to avoid fighting you so I could beat Laxus to the next part of the test. I'm guessing that trying to bribe you to move aside won't work, will it? Naruto's voice was laced with hope as he asked the S-class wizard. Gildarts looked perplexed before he started laughing. Haha, no way, kid. Even though someone could get through this part easy, they'd still have to face either me or Master Makarov before they got promoted. Naruto sighed but couldn't help and ask one last question. What are the chances you let me walk back out of here and choose a different path? The red-haired mage grinned at the blonde. None. I would just go after you. You might as well get this over with now, Naruto. Resigned to his fate, Naruto took a defensive stance and planned out his first move. He took in his surroundings without taking his eyes off Gildarts. Noticed the water level, the rocks, the distance between the two. Everything that might come in handy. Somewhere he could hear steady drops of water falling. The sound of the drops falling in the water echoed throughout the chamber the two were in. Drip. 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 Each drop that fell and touched the water caused ripples to appear and move outwards. Before the last ripple slowed and faded into nothingness, Naruto sprung forward and attacked. Gildarts kept a steady gaze on him, never losing track the closer he got. Naruto kept his path steady and threw the first punch with as much force as he could muster. Gildarts blocked it with his palm, the force dispersed in a shockwave around him. The blonde immediately followed up with a right leg kick that forced Gildarts to use his other arm. And so Naruto began a flurry of punches, jabs, kicks, knees and various other attempts at defeating Gildarts. Only minor blows made it through. None with enough power to cause any serious damage. As Naruto attempted an uppercut, Gildarts tilted his head to the side avoiding the fist but slammed his own fist into Naruto's head. He expected the blonde to crumble and sink into the water but forgot that Naruto could stand on the liquid surface. Naruto did a handstand on the surface and attempted a split kick to finally hit Gildarts. Gildarts simply ducked under the kick and then punched Naruto in the stomach hard enough to throw him away from the wizard's personal space. Absent-mindedly rubbing his sore abs, Naruto looked at his opponent debating on the best mode of attack. He glanced away from the cloaked wizard for a split second before dashing at the walls. Running up the walls until he reached the ceiling, he launched himself at the red-haired behemoth of a man. Mid-air, Naruto flipped into position for an axe kick. He was going through the air with such force and speed that it would be nigh impossible to dodge. Gildarts raised both his arms and crossed them to block the kick, grunting an effort. Around him the rock he was standing on cracked from the tremendous force the kick exerted. It didn't break his guard though. Naruto didn't hesitate despite his blocked attack and quickly executed a full roundhouse kick as he was falling to the ground. The kick caught Gildarts off guard and in the chest with enough force that he was thrown backwards and into the water. He was down in the water only long enough to kick a loose piece of stone half his size towards Naruto. The blonde jumped over the rock, allowing the rusty-haired mage time to get out of the water. I'm no good at wearing kid gloves, Naruto. You've gotten stronger and faster but so far you've only seen me dodge or block. I'm going to start the attacking this time. Gildarts blandly stated as he rotated his shoulders to loosen them up a bit. Faster than he expected the older man to move, Gildarts was at his side throwing punches with tremendous force. It was all Naruto could do to deflect or dodge the blows, knowing that if he blocked them, they would either break his guard or unbalance him enough for more powerful attacks. Ducking one of his swings, Naruto tried a counter kick to gain some space. It only served to slightly push Gildarts back and he returned the kick in kind. His kick though, knocked Naruto several feet back from the tremendous amount of force. Gildarts didn't want to leave him any breathing room and stepped forward. This time Naruto gave up on trying to punch the older man back since he was at a severe disadvantage punch range-wise. So Naruto used his arms as his defense and launched kicks at Gildarts, who either evaded them, blocked them with his own knees and arms, or disregarded them and let them hit as he kept up his attack on Naruto. No matter what Naruto did though, Gildarts just kept pushing him back. After another particularly powerful punch was thrown by the auburn-haired wizard, the blonde bent back as far as possible to avoid it. It narrowly missed his face by centimeters, but Naruto was able to plant his hands firmly on the water behind him and kick forward with both his feet. The S-class wizard didn't gain his rank solely on his looks however and caught the shinobi's legs. He yanked the young man forward and kicked him so that he rose into the air. Once in the air, the older wizard unleashed a devastating combination of punches, one at his face, another at his stomach, making him double over, and the last at his chest, rocketing Naruto away once more. Naruto flew through the air at speeds impossible to adjust for. With a resounding boom, he crashed into one of the rocks that jutted out from the tunnel floor. Dust from his impact clouded the air and ripples of water from the pressure of hitting the rock spread outwards from his position. The wool-colored eyes opened slowly as Naruto tried to extract himself from the huge boulder that Gildarts had embedded him into with his punch. Slowly pulling himself together, he spit out a mouthful of blood before re-evaluating his opponent. Gildarts was impressed at the blonde's tenacity and skill level. While nowhere near enough to beat him, at least the kid had shown vast improvement. Where before he could hold the spiky-haired boy off with a single hand, now he was forced to use both and even dodge some of the blows. He halted his musings as Naruto made another attempt to attack. Another punch aimed at Gildarts' face was encased in the wizard's palm, and he didn't let go. This time, Gildarts used his magic to blow him away. "Karasu. In Pakudo," he intoned. Naruto's eyes widened. This was the first time Gildarts had actually attacked him with magic. He knew that the imposing wizard was extremely strong. He must be taking this test seriously. From Gildarts' palm, wide energy seemed to gather for a split second before it erupted outwards with explosive force. If the ceiling wasn't so high, it would surely have caved in. Even so, the force from the attack shook the walls and caused the entire tunnel to rumble. The young shinobi was thrown backwards with so much force that he barely had time to land on his feet and avoid crashing into another wall. That was a very strong attack, but Naruto could tell Gildarts was holding back. If Gildarts wanted to start adding magic into the mix, then it was time to repay the favor. He quickly took stock of his physical condition before starting the counter-attack. The only noticeable damage Naruto had taken was his slightly scuffed vest. Not waiting for a follow-up attack, he pointed behind Gildarts and yelled, "Hey, look." A distraction. The older fairy tale wizard turned around in interest. "What? Where?" Naruto quickly molded a few seals and launched an attack to test a theory he had. "Suiton. Daibakufu no Jutsu." The water in front of Naruto churned and twisted into a swirling vortex, spinning at a high velocity as it rose into the air before launching itself at the impassive fairy tale wizard. By now, Gildarts had turned back and looked a little embarrassed at being tricked so easily. The cloaked man tilted his head in curiosity at the coming attack before he retaliated in kind. Punkai. Dizaperu, his disassembly magic was launched from one hand and completely broke down the swirling waters. Naruto hadn't been idle, nor had he expected that first attack to hit. So after launching it, he had sent another attack following the first. Suiton. Mizu Kamakiri, a slicing wave of water tore its way through the tunnel and towards Gildarts. Only for said man to immediately dispel the slicing wave of water with another Punkai. Dizaperu. That was alright with Naruto though. He had gathered the information he needed from those two attempts. One of his attacks was based on power and another on speed. He had wanted to see if Gildarts' magic dispersed attacks based on power alone and if there was a time limit before he could do it again. It seemed that this man was a lot like fighting Nagato's diva path. No amounts of ninjutsu would work on him, at least none from a distance. Naruto had tried to attack Gildarts in what he suspected was the time interval needed between using his magic, but had failed. The Mizu Kamakiri was his fastest water attack and the Daibakufu one of his strongest defensive techniques available in the current situation. To think that Gildarts had so effortlessly stopped both. This was not a man to be trifled with. Unlike the diva path though, Gildarts didn't seem to have a time limit between using his techniques. Since the two didn't share that weakness, Naruto wouldn't be able to beat him the same way he'd beaten Nagato. Naruto also didn't want to use increasingly stronger techniques against the man. He was sure there was a limit to what Gildarts could disperse, but he didn't want to take the risk of killing him either. Man, this sucks. What are the chances I'd fight someone like Nagato again? All the work I put into learning ninjutsu means nothing against a guy like him. This guy needs a good old-fashioned beatdown. I'm still not as fast as I used to be though or as strong, but I'll figure something out. Kurama snorted deep within the recesses of the seal. I told you before, brat. You can't rely on ninjutsu forever. This is the best opponent to test yourself against if you truly want to be strong without relying on my power. Now focus and plan. I don't think you want a repeat of what happened fighting Nagato, do you? Naruto admitted, even if only grudgingly, that Kurama had played a vital role in beating the diva path back during their first fight. Without the raw power Kurama had used to bat the diva path around, he wouldn't have been worn down enough to actually beat. Since ninjutsu was out, that left only taijutsu. Luckily, he had a trump card to help after he saw how little his physical attacks had worked on the man already. His Senenmoto didn't last as long as when he used it before, since it put a lot of strain on his still developing body, but it would have too for what he had planned. Ninjutsu's out, at least ranged ninjutsu. You think I can catch him off guard with some up-close Kurama? Probably not. You'd only be able to use ones without seals or low amounts of seals. I doubt that the wizard over there would give you any time for more than that up close. You're faster and stronger, Naruto. But you aren't fast or strong enough to beat me. Your magic attacks are useless against me, and you can't use the bigger ones I'm sure you have without destroying the place we're in. Just give up now. Gildarts recommended sympathetically. He knew that at this level, Naruto couldn't do much against him. The hurdle was just too high to jump for the young blonde. Circumstances were not in his favor. Perhaps in another few years. Naruto only smirked before rising and forming a cross-shaped seal. Tajuwu Cage Bunch and instantly 5 copies of the grinning blonde popped into existence. Gildarts prepared himself for what he assumed would be a coordinated group attack. Instead, the original Naruto's smirk turned mischievous as he formed another hand seal. Suiton. Kurigakur no Jutsu. The tall S-class wizard whose fame was already known throughout the land and had seen many things that other mages would only dreamed of could not make heads or tails of his situation. A thick and heavy mist began to flood the tunnel that they were in. It clouded his vision and put him on edge instantly. Whether it was the effect of the mist or not, everything grew silent. He could barely see his hand in front of him. Wanting to see where this was going, he waited patiently for Naruto to make his first move. Only a few moments passed before a fist appeared immediately to his right, aimed at his temple. Gildarts would have ducked the blow had it not been for another Naruto sliding in and attempting to kick his legs out from under him. Just like that, in less time than it took to snap his fingers, all 5 Narutos were launching a coordinated assault on the auburn-haired wizard. A fist to duck under one moment only to immediately block a kick and twist away from another fist and kick, these were the repeated movements the ace of Fairy Tail had to go through. While he couldn't say that they were particularly fast, they were certainly making him work hard to avoid any hits. After a few moments, Gildarts grew tired of waiting for the original to pop up. He dodged, blocked and avoided the copies long enough to detect a pattern in their attack. Timing his own just right, he swept in and dispelled 3 of the clones before they knew what happened. The remaining 2 clones increased their attacks but could find no holes in their opponent's defenses. As the clones tried to simultaneously attack him from opposite sides, Gildarts caught each of their wrists and spun 360 degrees, throwing them into the mist. No longer having the patience for Naruto to make his move, he immediately unleashed a flare of wild magic power from his body. The mist started to thin considerably, whether that was a result of his magic or Naruto giving up on hiding, he would find out soon enough. Waiting with bated breath, Gildarts peered into the thinning mist and searched for Naruto. A vaguely humanoid shape caught his attention a ways down the tunnel in a meditative position. As the mist cleared completely, Naruto stood fully. There was something inherently different with him this time though. He had an orange pigmentation around his eyes and radiated an aura of power, soothing and warm but extreme power nonetheless. As Naruto's eyes snapped open, they were no longer the blue and brown eyes of before. Now they had changed to a golden color and his pupils had elongated to horizontal bars, no longer the round shapes of before. Cocking an eyebrow in wonder, Gildarts readied himself for the inevitable clash between the two. He was not to be disappointed as a split second later Naruto disappeared from his position, swirling waters the only thing marking his absence. Gildarts' head was forced to the side from a powerful punch that connected with his cheek. An even more powerful kick to the stomach forced him to double over, only for his face to receive a brutal high knee. Blood spurting from his mouth, Gildarts didn't have the clarity of mind to prevent Naruto taking a hold of him and executing an over-the-shoulder throw into the stone wall of their fighting area. Once more a deafening boom echoed all throughout the now extensively damaged tunnel. The ceiling shook and the walls cracked from the impact. Now it was Gildarts' turn to slowly pull himself together and get to his feet. He spit the blood out of his mouth and smirked in excitement at the blonde. So that's what you were doing in the mist. Buying yourself some time to perform a magic amplification technique. Those are rare and incredibly hard to cast unless you're very skilled. I'm already looking forward to what's to come, Naruto. The blonde only scratched the back of his head in sheepishness before answering. Yeah, I'm not as good as I used to be with this. Hard to believe you already figured out what this form really does. Not many can work out that it amplifies my strengths from a few hits alone. Boisterous laughter echoed all throughout the tunnel. Well, come on then, Naruto. Let's get back to it. Both of the fighters grinned at each other. Both were looking forward to their clash. Try not to play around, Naruto. You do have a time limit with Sage Mode, you know. Even if you did make a few extra and ordered them to hide while in the mist. Kurama warned his tenant. Grinning like a madman, Naruto and Gildarts both sped forward to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Blows that would have glanced off Gildarts' body now crashed upon him with punishing force. Speed at throwing jabs, hooks, straight punches, kicks, knees and everything else had dramatically increased for the blonde. Not to mention the strength of every single attack had been increased by an astonishing margin. Yet Gildarts couldn't be happier. Even when he had gone on the offensive before, he had still held back a great deal to avoid harming the teenager. Now he could really cut loose. It took a lot of his considerable speed and strength for Gildarts to fight toe-to-toe with Naruto now. There was more dodging, deflecting and blocking involved whenever blows came his way, as opposed to using a single arm or ignoring the weak hits only moments prior. Likewise, Naruto increased the number of blows he would receive by blocking and evading while dishing out his own. They were not idle with simply standing in one place and trading blows. Naruto used his surroundings to great effect, forcing Gildarts to try and step into the water, where Naruto took full advantage of being able to water walk. On one such clash, he tried to catch the wizard by surprise and used a quick Mizu Kamakiri, only to be disappointed when it was promptly dispelled, despite being powered by nature chakra now. Similarly, Gildarts tried to corner the speedy and fleet-footed youngster in order to take advantage of his bigger size and frame. In an occasion where he believed Naruto was cornered and with nowhere to run, he also used his magic to try and end the fight. Unfortunately, his Karasu Gyuburu did nothing but leave a huge crater in the wall where seconds earlier Naruto had his back to it. Intermingled with his normal albeit vastly powerful punches, Gildarts also mixed minor amounts of magic into his fists. Not enough magic to actively warrant spell usage, but enough to break Naruto's balance and guard, as well as fling him back a few feet on occasion and stop his momentum of attacks. To counter this, Naruto used his own powerful taijutsu that was explicitly designed to work with Senmoto and had the same effects Gildarts' punches were doing. Gildarts was wide-eyed with surprise at what he assumed was a perfect mimicry of his own fighting style. An additional force behind his blows to throw an enemy off balance. Except that Naruto was using Kawazu Kumite to do what the auburn-haired wizard was doing with his crash magic. The two broke apart after another whirlwind of blows came to an impasse. They were both breathing heavily now, having lost track of time and amount of hits traded. Naruto was only faring so well because of his increased durability and healing capacities that being in Senmoto granted him. Gildarts was truly a wizard who had earned his rank. Even though Naruto was getting in a great amount of hits, the older man just powered through them and returned fire with vigor. A drop of blood from a cut above his eye rolled down Naruto's brow. It managed to work his way into his eye and forced him to blink a few times to relieve the sting it brought. Gildarts took advantage of the brief lapse of concentration and charged with his fist-gathering magic. Karasu Gyuburu, he murmured under his breath. He concentrated his powerful concussive magic into his fist and swung as he got close to Naruto. Panicking and with no time left to dodge either the fist or the inevitable magic concentrated into it, Naruto molded his chakra into a seal-less jutsu gathered around his own fist. He poured massive amounts of chakra into his jutsu, hoping it would be enough to counter the powerful fist coming his way. Fuetin. Senpuken. Potent whirlwind of air met the explosive and damaging force of crash magic. The two fists collided and an explosion the likes of a miniature bomb took place between the two. Two bodies were immediately rocketed away from each other and out of the aftereffects of the fist's collision. Gildarts was sent hurtling through the air, crashing through one of the stone platforms littering the area and bouncing along the walls until he settled down a fair distance away. Naruto was sent skipping like a stone across the water, flooding the tunnel until he likewise was embedded into one of the walls. Once more the entire structure they were fighting in creaked and groaned in protest at the forces putting pressure on its frame. Chunks of stone fell from the ceiling and cracks spider-webbed all around the walls. The gong sounded out from somewhere and could be heard all throughout the island. Birds took to the skies and everyone present all looked towards the giant tree where it seemed to originate. This clearly signaled something important. Laughter flooded the once majestic-looking tunnel. Gildarts rose to his feet, hair disheveled, cloak askew and clothing looking all roughed up. What a great warm-up, kid. I was told to test the strength of whoever made it here and decide if they are worthy of S-class, so I could let them pass or not. Seems we took too long and had too much fun though. Nature chakra slowly leaving his body and slowly exiting Senmoto, since he'd already dispelled his remaining clones earlier in the fight to get their nature chakra. Naruto also got to his feet. A sleeve rose to wipe away the small trail of blood at his mouth. What do you mean, Gildarts? How are we too late? A smirk from the older man was his answer. The gong. It means someone just completed the exam. My money's on Laxus. The exam is over now, whether I allow you passage from here or not is irrelevant. As soon as the gong sounds we end the trials. What? Naruto exclaimed in surprise, jaw dropping to the floor. Haha, what a riot. I told you not to mess around and you had a time limit. Kurama roared. Naruto could already picture him rolling around his cage in laughter. The hell you did, fuzz face. What you were talking about is my time limit with Senmoto, not the exam. Naruto accused indignantly. Kurama didn't even bother to apologize as he kept on laughing. Does it matter? A time limit's a time limit. Fact of the matter is you took too long to end this. Even if we now have a time limit of our own, you should have used my chakra to win from the beginning." Eyebrow twitching in irritation, Naruto took a deep breath to steady himself before answering his tenant. "You've been telling me to stop relying on your power from the beginning, asshole. How is using your chakra at the start not reliant on your powers?" Ignorant of the inner dialogue Naruto was having with his tailed beast, Gildarts elaborated on his previous explanations. "Even though we have multiple test takers, these exams are meant only to produce one S-class mage at a time. Don't worry though, there's always next year. And next time," here Gildarts' grin grew wider, "I won't have to hold back so much now that I know you can handle at least some of it." He was holding back. What kind of monster is he? Naruto asked himself. Laughter now over Kurama voiced his next words seriously. "He is exactly the kind of monster you should be glad is on your side. Do not think for even a second that rising to S-rank status whether shinobi or mage is easy. You will have to work hard to gain strength to protect people and uphold your promise, Naruto." Nodding numbly, Naruto just followed Gildarts out of their battle arena. After about an hour of wandering through the dense forests of Tenrou, Naruto and Gildarts finally made it to the rest point of the island. They tended to the few injuries they had, and Naruto was ever thankful for his astounding healing ability granted to him by Kurama and Sage Mode. After Master Makarov gave his congratulations speech, all the participants of the island left on the boat that Gildarts and Makarov had arrived on. Naruto sought out his fellow test takers and had a few conversations while on the way back to Harjan town to pass the time. Macau confessed a minor disappointment at not making it past the paths in the exam before it was over. Miki talked to Naruto about forming her own team and they worked on a few possible team names, finally settling on Team Megadeth. After he finished his talk with Miki, Naruto sought out the final member of the S-class exams and the newest S-class mage of Fairy Tail, Laxus. He found him standing apart from the rest of the guild members and looking out to sea while listening to his headphones. "Hey Laxus. Congrats on passing," Naruto cheerfully called out as he was approaching. "Huh? Oh, thanks." Laxus awkwardly responded. Though they had seen each other at the guild over the last few months, neither really interacted with one another. Naruto chose to spend his time either training or out on jobs, with Laxus doing the same. Though both were polite when engaged, neither actively sought out the other and only gave the customary greetings if ever running into each other. "So what are you going to do now that you're S-class? Bet you're looking forward to the mission pair, right?" Naruto asked. Even if they didn't really know each other, it would be rude to ignore the new S-class mage, Naruto decided. "Not really. I just want to make a name for myself." Shifting uncomfortably at Naruto's curious gaze, Laxus elaborated a bit more. "It's a pain being known only as Makarov's grandson or the master of Fairy Tail's grandson. I want to be known for my own exploits, not those of my grandfather." Nodding slowly and understanding, Naruto realized that Laxus trained so hard and wanted to become S-class for similar reasons that he himself had wanted to be Hokage and Konohamaru too. He wanted recognition as a person. Not to be treated as only the family member of someone important and no one remembering your name. Konohamaru had wanted to escape the title of honorable grandson, while Naruto wanted to escape the title of demon brat or monster. Laxus was the same. Being related to one of the 10 wizard saints had to have set a huge bar for him to hurdle. That opening salvo cracked the door for Naruto and Laxus to start their own friendship, even if a tentative one for now. They had plenty of time to improve it, though, so Naruto wasn't worried. The rest of the trip back to Harjan and Magnolia passed by in comfort for the two teenagers. Makarov watched approvingly as his grandson and Naruto talked. He knew what Laxus was going through, but there was nothing he could do about it. Hopefully the younger blonde could help. Already, even if only slightly, Laxus was opening up. He usually was so closed off and ignored the guild at large, never saying more than a few words. Makarov was sure that Laxus had already spoken more to Naruto than any other member in the guild in the last year combined. Maybe if they became friends, Naruto could pull Laxus out of his shell. Laxus would hopefully focus on something besides gaining strength and power on his own, so that he'd step out of the shadow of one of the 10 wizard saints. More than ever, Makarov was glad that Naruto was pulled from spying on Raventail. What good was keeping a loose watch on his son if his grandson grew up miserable? Yes, Naruto sticking around Fairy Tail was turning out to be a good thing indeed. Chapter 8. X 779, late September. "So what's today's question, Erza-chan?" Naruto, with a big grin plastered on his face, asked Erza as they made their way to Fairy Tail for a late lunch after sleeping in that day. They didn't have rest days often, but when they did they took full advantage. Naruto pushed himself and Erza hard during training, but knew when to pause for rest. On their off days he usually slept in as much as he could, and Erza followed suit. Erza frowned and pursed her lips in thought. "I want to know what you got me for my birthday, Nai-san," she asked as she twirled and stared into his eyes, willing him to answer. Her eyes grew wide and she had an earnest expression on her face. Quickly Naruto looked away so that he wouldn't cave to her demands. Naruto pouted and looked slightly dejected. Now that's unfair, Erza-chan. You know I can't tell you that. Just because I said I wouldn't lie when you ask your question for the day doesn't mean you can cheat about your present. So how about I take a pass on this question and answer another one? Erza glared lightly before sighing and thinking up another question. She should have expected he would avoid the question. He always made a big event out of celebrating her birthday. He seemed to like planning and making sure she had a good time. To find out his present to her in this form would have ruined the surprise he always insisted on. It was nice, having someone fuss over something as trivial as her birthday, Erza felt. It certainly didn't happen at the Tower of Heaven. Even before that she didn't remember anyone making too big a deal about her birthday. Fine. She mumbled. How's Ultear-san doing? She asked, a little too casually for it to be innocent. Most would have picked up on what she was doing, but Naruto was oblivious to her intentions. He folded his arms behind his head and looked to the sky. She's alright, I guess. Last I heard from her she. Erza only half listened to him as he went on to tell her some mundane things he had talked about with Ultear. She had initially asked in order to set him up for some light teasing like he was prone to do to her, but he hadn't reacted the way she would have if asked a similar question. It was so frustrating to see her brother so oblivious to Ultear's continuous personal appearances at the guild. It's not like it was common to send an aide of the council to visit the guilds personally. It was even rarer for said aide to stay for the day and catch up with a certain pair of siblings. Especially a certain blonde. As they walked through the doors of the guild with Naruto still talking about his friend at the magic council, he noticed Erza equip her armor out of the corner of his eye. He had only recently noticed that she only wore armor when around more people than just him. She would look like any typical girl when alone with her brother, but as soon as anyone else showed up she instantly re-equipped her armor on. A part of him was touched that she felt comfortable and safe enough in his presence not to wear her armor. While another part of him wished she was just as comfortable around everyone else, not just him. As they walked into the guild, intent on getting some food to eat, they heard the tail end of a conversation between Laxus and Makarov. Well, to be more precise, the tail end of an argument between the two. I can handle it, Gigi. Why don't you want me to take this mission? I'm S-class already, which should be more than enough proof that I can take any S-class job I want. Laxus demanded angrily from his grandfather. Sitting atop of the bar calmly and sipping his drink, Makarov answered with an almost uncaring tone of voice. I know you're strong, Laxus. But this job, it doesn't sit right with me. There is something fishy going on here. No job that requires recovering stolen objects from a group of thieves should be S-rank. Cocking an eyebrow, Erza turned to Naruto. What do you think that's about, Nai-san? He was about to sit down at their table and he shrugged before he responded, who knows? Knowing Master Makarov though, he's prob. He didn't get a chance to finish as he was yanked out of his chair. An infuriated Laxus was stomping out of the guild, dragging Naruto along by the scruff of his shirt. I'll take Naruto with me then. Maybe if I have backup you won't think I can't handle it anymore. Laxus shouted over his shoulder to his grandfather who still sat atop the bar, unmoving. Erza frowned slightly in annoyance as this meant that Naruto might not be around for her birthday because of a job. Then she smirked as the sight of her strong older brother being dragged along like a misbehaving child was highly amusing. As Laxus stormed out of the guild dragging Naruto behind him, the young shinobi also grabbed Erza as he was pulled along. If I'm going anywhere you're coming too, Erza-chan. Can't let you laugh too much at my expense. He muttered. Erza grinned but followed along sedately. Laxus didn't even bat an eye at Erza tagging along as he took them to Magnolia Station, knowing after having trained a few times with the siblings that she was already pretty strong. While not as strong as either of the two blondes, Laxus attributed that to her young age more than any lack of talent or effort. Besides, he truly felt that with he and Naruto along, she wouldn't be in much danger anyway. On the positive side, she was far less annoying whenever her and Murahin were apart. In fact, she was a completely different person without Murahin challenging her daily. You know, Laxus, a little warning next time might be nice. Naruto grumbled while he massaged his neck. We didn't even get a chance to pack or anything. Laxus snorted as he handed the two siblings their tickets for the train. The job request originated in Luminous Town, so they would have to take a train to Ashibana first. After getting off at Ashibana, they would take a carriage to Luminous Town to meet their client. Don't give me that, Naruto. I know for a fact that you and Erza carry enough supplies on you and that magic scroll of yours to last at least a week camping out. We'll be in Luminous Town by tonight if we hurry, so we won't even need what you have on you. Laxus replied. Erza followed the two older boys onto the train, where they managed to snag a private compartment for themselves away from the main sitting area. What type of job are we doing, Laxus-san? Laxus eyed her a little strangely before replying. Don't call me San. It feels weird being addressed so properly from a Scarlet. He'd learned over time that Naruto, while seemingly polite, wasn't averse to poking fun at people no matter who they were, and I don't want to hear honorable grandson from you either, he quickly added, noting the slight smirk on Naruto's face. The smile didn't fall from his lips as Naruto snatched the job poster out of Laxus's hands as he was pulling it out. A low whistle escaped his lips. 5,500,000 jewels, huh? That's quite a reward for tracking down and retrieving stolen valuables. He muttered as he read over the job details. Doesn't matter, Laxus said, snatching the poster back before smoothing it over and handing it to Erza. I'm an S-class mage, I can handle it, and even if Gigi is paranoid, at least now I have the proper backup to make sure nothing goes wrong on this job. Erza too scanned the contents of the job request that the client had filled out. Although she agreed with her brother that the money for the job was a bit high, she wasn't foolish enough to think the job would be easy. Even if they hadn't taken S-class jobs because they weren't allowed, Erza and Naruto had taken part in several dangerous jobs of their own. Something as simple as a treasure hunter subduing monsters often paid little, but had high risks. So if this job was paying out a lot, there must be a reason behind that. Your faith in our strength is very touching. Naruto commented dryly. Well, wake me up when we get to Ashibana so I can stop and get a bite to eat before we leave again. But that said, the younger of the two blondes leaned back into his seat, crossed his arms behind his head, and was out like a light. Laxus watched him from across the compartment they were sitting in before lifting his headphones to his ears and tuning out as he listened to some music. Erza decided to use her time to catch up on some reading. She pulled out the latest book from a series that was fast becoming popular all over Fiori. Soon she was lost in the pages and adventures of Kenshin and his team as they embarked on their latest adventure in the Kingdom of the Crescent Moon. 1. Later that night, Lupinous Town. The three members of Fairy Tail had arrived at Lupinous Town early in the evening. They asked for directions to their client's home and soon enough were at the address given. Right this way, gentleman and lady. Toribashi-sama will see you now. One of the maids at a mansion this size was almost required to have offered to escort them to her boss. Following the woman through the mansion, Naruto let out an impressed whistle. Very nice. I can see why they can afford to pay so much to get back their stuff back. Laxus grunted in agreement as he too was impressed by the decor of the home. Arranged along the walls they were walking by were priceless works of art, paintings, sculptures, vases and the like. The very carpet they were walking on was obviously of high quality and screamed wealth. The ceilings were high, and Naruto could swear that gold leaf decorated the halls abundantly. The maid they followed led them to what must have been the private study of the client. Shelves filled with books lined the walls, and the man himself sat behind a beautiful mahogany desk sifting through some papers. A window overlooked the impressive property sat behind him. He looked up as his guests entered. Your guests have arrived at Toribashi-sama. The maid informed. The man looked up from work to see the members of Fairy Tail and smiled. He was a rather friendly-looking man, with an open air about him. Black hair with slight streaks of grey and dressed in a business suit. All in all, he wasn't flashing his wealth around as much as he could have. Thank you, my dear. Now if you could please bring our guests some refreshments, I would appreciate that. The client informed her politely. Of course, sir. She said, bowing before turning to the three teenagers. Will tea be alright? She asked. We're fine as we are. Thank you though. Laxus responded for all of them. Naruto looked a little put out at missing a chance to eat some more but didn't argue. So I was informed that Fairy Tail accepted the job. Please have a seat. He gestured towards the chairs on the other side of his desk. All three members of the guild knew how job requests were carried out. For the lower ranked jobs they were sent out to multiple guilds near the job location. Often as many as 9 to 10 guilds received the same job flyer. The first to accept it would mark it down in their ledger and be transmitted to all other guilds that it was no longer available. Unless a specific guild was requested for the job, of course. S-ranked jobs were only slightly different. Only a maximum of 3 copies of the job were sent out to the guilds, and only guilds with S-rank mages. If multiple guilds sent out mages to the same job, then it was a first-come first-served basis. Of course, if a guild accepted a job, it wasn't immediately put down as completed. S-rank jobs were harder, so often they were only noted down as taken and wouldn't be scratched out until the client themselves confirmed completion. Naruto took a moment to look at their client. He knew appearances could be deceiving, so he didn't want to judge him based on looks alone. Yet his sharp, experienced eyes could pick up telltale signs of stress and weariness, no matter how much the client tried to hide it. He had bags under his eyes, his clothes were slightly ruffled and looked thrown on in a hurry, and he had slight stubble on his face, like he had neglected to shave. He shrugged it off. Maybe the man was a workaholic. Naruto took a seat alongside Erza and Laxus. Forgive me for sounding rude, but you three are awfully young, aren't you? I classified the job as S-rank myself and paid the appropriate reward. It's too dangerous for anything less. The client asked as he looked the three young fairy tale members over. "Let me introduce myself and my team at Toribashi-sama," Laxus said as he turned to his two companions. "I am Laxus Dreyer, an S-rank mage who is qualified for S-rank jobs. This is my friend Naruto Scarlet, who is just as strong as me and will probably become S-rank this year. We also brought his sister Erza Scarlet, another strong wizard of fairy tale. We are young, but I was tested and passed on the S-rank exams by one of the 10 wizard saints himself." It was a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, knowing he was still under his grandfather's shadow, and his reputation is what often dispelled disbelief of Laxus's own rank. "My name is Kazuo Toribashi, you may call me Kazuo. I'm sorry for underestimating you. But as you will soon find out, I didn't want to risk endangering children by sending them on such a high-rank job. Even if you are wizards." Kazuo tried placating them. "Don't worry," Naruto said cheerfully. "We're strong. So it's okay." Kazuo merely nodded, slightly amused at the chipper tone of the younger blonde. "Now then. There is more to this job than I was able to put on the request paper. There are certain complications that wouldn't let me do so, and they might put your guild in a bad light. Do you wish to continue knowing this?" All three teenagers held their silence and waited for him to continue. "Very well. As the job poster claimed, you were hired to help recover stolen merchandise from a group of bandits and thieves that have been terrorizing not only this town, but my caravans for the last few weeks." Kazuo paused to pull out a small file. "The reason this may make your guild look bad is in this folder." He pointed at the file. "I wish for you to locate the bandits, their headquarters or whatever, and destroy it. Now we both know that this is frowned upon by the Rune Knights, as they would rather you incapacitate them and they be arrested. Unfortunately, these particular bandits are also suspected of kidnapping people from this town." Laxus frowned at the new information. Nodded that it would make the guild look bad because unless they used excessive force there really was no risk of that. No, it was because he was confused over why the Rune Knights weren't more heavily involved if these bandits were kidnapping people. Kazuo continued as he saw the confused look on Laxus's face. "We don't have proof of the bandits being involved or being the ones responsible for that. The Rune Knights don't want to get involved, they say, and want to keep their suspects open in case it's someone else." Kazuo muttered some insults under his breath at the Rune Knights. "I also have a personal stake in this, I admit." Now Naruto understood why Kazuo looked so tired and worn out. After revealing that certain people were kidnapped as well as the stuff they had stolen, Naruto could only assume Kazuo had someone he knew personally kidnapped as well. "My daughter has been missing for the last 2 weeks. The Rune Knights have given up hope as we received no ransom offers or anything of the sort, but I can't just give up. So that's why I hired you wizards. Please, find the bandit camp and destroy it, but also keep a lookout for any clues to my daughter's whereabouts." He paused as his voice cracked and recomposed himself. "At the very least, if you can't find her, then please allow me some closure. I need to know her fate as it's getting harder every day to keep my hopes up about her well-being." Erza was stoic but sympathetic to the man and only nodded her head. Laxus gave a resigned nod at accepting the job under new and different conditions. Naruto though, he was sad and understood exactly what Kazuo wanted. If not his daughter back alive and well, then he hoped to confirm her death. Kazuo was realistic enough to know the worst might have happened and only wanted closure. "We'll complete this job in spite of your worries, Toribashi-san." Laxus stood and offered his hand. "We'll take all the information you have about these bandits and use whatever methods we can to find them. You have our word on that." "Thank you. I have arranged for rooms to be available for you at an inn in town. Please, inform me of any new information or anything you might need to help you get this done." Kazuo shook the blonde's hand gratefully. "Just one question though, Kazuo-san," Naruto interjected before they left. Kazuo sat back down and looked at the younger blonde. "Of course. I'll answer any question you have. Why haven't the Rune Knights located their headquarters themselves? I mean, even without the kidnapping they should at least be able to go out and stop a group of robbers and thieves," Naruto questioned curiously. Kazuo nodded in agreement before explaining. "It seems that this particular group of bandits has wizards of their own. They have some sort of magic that both allows them to conceal their location as well as disguise themselves. Also they have the sense to set up various safeguards to make sure none of them are ever followed." Nodding in thanks, Naruto now understood the situation a little better. "I see now. Thank you. I can understand why they have been so successful then. If they are organized enough and have wizards helping them out." As they left the mansion and headed to the inn, all had varying thoughts running through their heads. None doubted or questioned why Kazuo Toribashi in particular was targeted. His wealth was obvious, so it left little doubt why anyone would rob him. No, Naruto was curious why his daughter wasn't being ransomed or something of the sort. The possibility that they didn't know it was her daughter was slim but existed. It did worry him though, that there might be another reason she wasn't being held for ransom. A very bad reason. While making their way to town, Naruto asked Laxus to leaf through the folder of information. The folder contained the locations and names of all the people robbed, with Kazuo Toribashi being the most common but not looking to be specifically targeted. He was a rich shipping magnate. His company one of the most popular in Fiori, so it stood to reason they targeted him for his cargo, nothing truly personal. His company often shipped and transported valuable jewels, art, or money itself between locations. Deciding to think more on the matter after a good night's sleep, the members of Fairy Tail agreed to meet bright and early before departing for their rooms. Each one had their own and agreed to start looking for the bandits immediately after breakfast. Honeybone Inn. 3 days. It had taken them 3 days to root out the thieves and locate their headquarters. Due to the information provided and judicious use of shadow clones, Naruto, Erza and Laxus had split up to stake out the most likely places the thieves would show up. As soon as they found one, they tried various methods to follow the thief back to their base. Unsurprisingly, Naruto was the one to successfully tail and follow the thieves to their lair. Laxus was immediately found out when he followed his target, as he had all the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. The person he was following quickly caught sight of him and did everything to lose him. Erza did a little better, but in the end she actually grew impatient and beat up the thief she followed and put him in the hospital. From there, anytime Erza entered his line of sight, the bandit clammed up and fainted on the spot. Naruto alone was able to hide and blend in well enough whenever the thief grew suspicious of being followed. Coupled with an extensive use of the hinge technique, and Naruto was able to make sure no one noticed it was him following the target. Now they all had gathered in Naruto's room to discuss their next step in completing the job. So I took these pictures. Naruto pulled out a few photographs and threw them on the table. As you can see, they've actually set up a pretty good location for their base. They have solid rock at the back and sides with a river at the front. So that means we can only enter from above or the front. As Naruto talked, he pointed to the various natural defenses the base had that made it a virtual fortress. They had built the base into the mountainside, it seemed, so there was nothing behind it but solid rock. It would be virtually impossible to climb the mountain and descend onto the fortress. It was too steep and the rocks would be too slippery for them not to be noticed, on top of being very dangerous. The valley walls provided the base with solid and impenetrable defenses as well. There was no need to build walls if the mountain itself could provide them. Laxus nodded and motioned for Naruto to keep going. The compound itself has several interconnected buildings. One looks like the place where they sleep, another a storage place for food and such, and the last the storage for their stolen loot. There's a river that cuts through the mountain and in front of the fortress, which provides another natural defense for it. The only way to cross that thing is if they lower the drawbridge when they bring things in. If you try and swim, the current would probably sweep you away, and taking a boat is just stupid. Naruto explained as he pointed out the various landmarks and building on his photographs. Erza spoke up as she came to the same conclusion Naruto had obviously had earlier. So what you're saying is that you and I have to sneak in and then let Laxus in, isn't that right, Nai-san? The young Dreyer frowned and wondered how they expected to do that. Naruto had just told them how unlikely it was to climb down from above the base and foolish to try and swim across with a boat from in front. Naruto nodded grimly. Yeah. Only you and I can walk on walls, Erza-chan. It might be a little rough at first since we need to drop fast, but we should be able to climb the mountain and then run down the sides without falling to our death or getting caught. I know you can walk on water now too, but unless we plan on attacking at night, I'd rather not risk taking the front door to get inside. Surprised at what they were talking about, Laxus then remembered exactly what the two Scarlet siblings could do. He'd once seen both Naruto and Erza spar on top of the water, but thought nothing of it. It wasn't until now that the practical applications for such a skill came into play. That sounds like the best way to go, but what'll I do in the meantime? Laxus asked. We were hired to locate the stuff that was stolen from Toribashi-san and perhaps locate or dig up any info on his missing daughter. After that we were to destroy the bandits' base and break up their operation. Erza-chan and I can handle the first two, but we need you to help us with the last. How far along are you with mastering that new move of yours? Kaminari-den, Thunder Palace. The younger blonde asked. Laxus furrowed his brow in thought, trying to assess and give an honest answer. Not as far as I want. I can only store and remote activate about 4 to 5 lacrima. Anything more and it either doesn't go off or goes off without my say-so. Erza looked between her brother and Laxus. She knew that they sometimes trained together and would spar, but didn't realize that they would share techniques. As far as she knew, Laxus was rather prideful, wanting to get strong on his own. The fact that he was willing to share and perhaps train his magic with Naruto was surprising. It went against how he acted most of the time, wanting to make a name for himself without anyone aiding him. The young shinobi scratched his head in thought and tried to come up with a suitable plan. That'll be alright, I guess. We can always plant some explosive tags too. We might just use them for a distraction though, so we can lower the gate and let you in. Once all three of us are inside we can destroy their base, retrieve the valuables and knock out the thieves for the Rune Knights." Laxus looked over all the pictures again, glad that he had brought Naruto and Erza along now. Well, it was true he was S-class and starting to make a name for himself, there were just certain things he couldn't do. That's where Naruto and Erza proved invaluable. They had skills he either wished no part in gaining or would take too long to master to a useful level. After they hashed out a few more details and worked out a plan of attack, Laxus leaned back into his chair and sighed deeply. "Man, this stuff is boring. I wish we could just go in and blow everyone to Kingdom Come." Erza too was a little tired of all the plans and everything else they had to think of. While she wasn't as excitable as Naruto or a pyromaniac like Natsu, she too wished they could just keep things simple and destroy the base without additional planning. "Naruto," Laxus called the younger blonde's attention to him, "I've been wondering." Kazuo later apologized for not recognizing my name immediately the other day. "I'm not world famous like Gildarts, but I have a small reputation now." Yet he didn't react to your name or Erza's at all. "I know you're strong, so what gives? I find it hard to believe no one recognizes either of you by now." Naruto snorted and just stayed silent. "Well? Answer me." Laxus badgered him, but Naruto continued to keep his mouth shut. Exasperated at Naruto's childishness, Erza answered for him. "That's because most people think he's a good luck charm instead of strong." Confused, Laxus asked, What's that supposed to mean?" Erza shrugged and explained. "On the jobs he's taken that would usually attract criminal or dark wizards' attention, he's managed to make it so the client is never harmed by any crook or thief. Jobs where he is a courier or a bodyguard almost always end with little to no confrontations at all." The older blonde merely tilted his head in confusion. "Wouldn't that prove that he's strong though? If he takes them out before they get to the client?" Scarlet hair twirled around her as Erza shook her head. "No. Like I said, they just think Naruto and Nikki is good luck for avoiding trouble. Really, it's because Nai-sen sends shadow clones ahead and around him to keep a lookout all the time and they take care of any trouble." Laxus let out a bark of laughter. "Ha. That's hilarious. You're doing your job so well and proving you're so strong that no one even believes it's you really doing something. You're seen about as useful as a rabbit's foot." Naruto jumped to his feet and shoved a finger in Laxus's face. "You shut up, team. You're just jealous that I'm so awesome no one believes how awesome I am. In fact, I'm so awesome that I have to lower my awesomeness in order for people to catch a glimpse of my sheer awesome." More laughter filled the room. "Whatever you say, Naruto. You're just in denial." Erza felt a small tug on her lips as she watched Naruto try and convince Laxus how awesome he was. He was getting more and more excited and making less sense as time went on. The word awesome must have been said several dozen times already as far as Erza knew, and Naruto looked like he was ready to keep going. Yet she knew that this was really just an act. Naruto didn't care about his reputation or his fame as one of Fairy Tail's members. He had once confessed to Erza that he did his jobs as quietly as possible so that he could avoid bringing attention to himself. He hated having so much attention in Konoha after the war. That it got to the point where he hid himself and avoided the people. Naruto didn't want a repeat of that in Fiori. Continued teasing from Laxus broke Erza out of her thoughts as Naruto grew indignant. "You know it's hard to take you seriously while you're wearing froggy pajamas," Laxus pointed out. Naruto puffed out his chest proudly. "You're jealous. That's alright, not everyone can pull off a look this good. It takes a certain kind of person to look as good as me while wearing these pajamas. Only Erza-chan and I can pull this off successfully." Only now did Laxus notice that Erza too wore froggy pajamas. Hers were pink though, and the frogs were playing leapfrog with one another. Erza showed no shame in wearing them and actually gave a rather proud nod to show she agreed. Laxus shrugged it off and assumed it was a family thing. Naruto then slammed his hand onto the table. "Besides, you have no room to talk, Laxus. You're the one that dragged Erza-chan in my room this late at night and insisted on a meeting instead of letting me sleep after a hard day of work." Erza glared at Laxus for that reminder but eventually just sighed and rose to go back to her room. Laxus looked at Naruto and commented dryly. "My apologies. I let you get back to your beauty sleep then." Naruto waved off and quipped, "No need to apologize, Laxus. I was more worried about Erza-chan's beauty sleep. She definitely needs the rest more than me." "Oh? Is that right, Nai-san?" Erza gave him a dark and murderous glare as she cracked her knuckles and walked towards him. Unaware of the impending danger, Naruto had his eyes closed and nodded sagely. "Yep. You know me, Erza-chan. Always looking out for what's best for you." Laxus smirked and walked out of the room right as the cries of pain and sounds of broken furniture started. He whistled a jaunty tune and prepared himself for bed, once more glad that he had brought the two siblings along. They provided just as much entertainment as Natsu was annoying. Bandit Camp West Mountains. Sharp blue and brown eyes assessed the surroundings, experience gained in his time before arriving in Fiore now proving priceless. He scanned the guards doing their rounds down below him and the light surveying the ground randomly. The Scarlet siblings peered into the compound from their position atop the high walls of the mountain. Naruto frowned behind his owl-stylized mask. This group of bandits and thieves was too well organized and structured for them to be involved in simple robbery. There absolutely had to be something else going on here. There was no other explanation for armed guards patrolling the perimeter, guards in the towers overlooking the grounds, and wizards that specialized in hiding things, as well as being censors. Their headquarters location was already impressive and difficult to assault, what did they need the guards for? There was too much manpower to simply guard the stolen loot. It would easily be pawned off in the black market anyways, so it's not like they were collecting it for themselves. Laxus would never have been able to infiltrate this base alone. He'd sooner blow it up from the outside. Naruto was tempted to do so too, but they had a job to do on top of destroying the base, and that was hopefully finding information on the kidnapped daughter of Kazuo Toribashi. He turned to look at Erza and was glad that he'd drilled her as hard as he had for her to join him. For this particular infiltration, taking place late at night, Erza had donned clothing similar to Naruto's description of Anbu garb. She wore a long-sleeved black turtleneck. The sleeves went to her wrists but extended a bit at the top to allow a finger to slip through a loop in the cloth, so it covered the back of the hand. On the back was stitched the Uzumaki clan symbol which she'd copied off Naruto's own clothes, where he had it on his vest and shoulders usually. She wore black tights and chose boots over Naruto's few plain black shoes. A red skirt was worn over her tights, and a tan armored vest made from ballistic fibers completed her ensemble. She had wanted to wear plated armor originally, but Naruto told her the vest would allow for better maneuverability, which was crucial for his line of work. Erza only relented after he explained how many different fibers made up the vest to provide near-perfect protection from stabbing and explosions. 2. She also had a sword strapped to her side and wore a female white face mask stylized to look like a masquerade queen mask. It was colored in golds and black with a crown going around the forehead. Naruto was confused at first over why she wanted a mask, as she made fun of his owl one, so he bought her a queen one for being a royal pain, which only earned him a slap on the head. Naruto himself wore his standard shinobi clothing that he donned when out on jobs. The regular flak jacket over long-sleeved black shirt and loose-fitting black pants tied off at the ankles. He still wore his plain black Fiu shoes that he much preferred over shinobi sandals, if only because they provided the same amount of comfort and durability while keeping his feet warm. He wore his clan symbol proudly on his vest, as well as on the shoulders of his shirt. The masked blonde performed a few hand signs to indicate they move forward and scout out the camp. They would look for any information they could in valuables. Since they could both make sealing scrolls from scratch if need be, they would each store and steal back all valuables they found. Erza quickly signed back in the affirmative but did take the Hiraishin kunai Naruto handed her. With their small plan agreed upon, they split up after they signed to meet up again in 2 hours. If nothing could be found about the kidnapped daughter in that time frame, they would just set the charges, the lacrima, and signal Laxus to detonate them. One way or another this camp would be razed to the ground come sunrise. It took a long while for Naruto to thoroughly check the compound for any escape exits the bandits would have. He checked the perimeters and took out the guards in the 2 towers overlooking the gate. He performed a single seal, and a few cage bunchen popped up. They nodded silently at their creator and transformed into the knocked-out guards with the help of Hinge. From there they signaled Laxus that they were in since he'd last seen them running across the water in the dark. If Laxus had not been signaled by the allotted time, then he would immediately attack the base and raise a racket to allow his teammates an opportunity to escape if they were captured. 15 minutes before they were to meet up, Naruto felt the telltale tingle near his chakra core that signaled a Hiraishin kunai had been thrown. He immediately transported himself to the kunai that he knew only Erza could have possibly thrown. Only a slight whoosh of air signified his appearance as Naruto arrived, ready for battle. Instead he found himself hugging an angry and overwhelmed Erza as she buried her face in his chest. She tried to mumble something, but he couldn't understand her. Taking the time to look around, he was surprised and slightly horrified at what he saw. He had seen many things before in his life, blood, gore and guts splattered on the battlefield. Experiments gone wrong and monstrosities created by scum like Orochimaru. Eventually you lose the shock and horror at seeing that. You grow indifferent to such things in the shinobi world. Yet no matter what, he would never be able to get used to things like he saw now. In front of him, in what he suspected was the basement to one of the buildings he saw from the outside, were scores of women, old men and children. They were dirty and beaten, obviously mistreated and wore only minimal clothing. They were all in cages like animals, tied down in chains. He didn't count exactly, but there must have been well over 80 people here. He looked around and took note of the knocked-out guards that were supposed to be watching the people. It was obvious now why Erza was acting this way. This was a slave camp, a place where they brought women and children before they were sold into slavery elsewhere. With Erza's history at the Tower of Heaven, it was little surprise that she reacted violently. The guards were beaten pretty badly, and more than a few had vicious bruises and teeth missing. Naruto idly noted that only the first few at the door had paralysis seals attached, and after that they were all unconscious. Likely because Erza hadn't taken notice of what the room contained at first and then decided to beat up the guards after she had. He consoled Erza for a little bit and waited patiently for her to gather herself. She didn't cry, but she did hold him tightly, refusing to break down in front of her brother. After reining in her temper and sure her hands wouldn't shake or show weakness, she looked up into his eyes. "We have to help them, Nai-san. Please," she pleaded. Naruto looked around and tried to think of a way to do so. They weren't hired, nor were they prepared to take down a large slave camp of this scale. They hadn't taken into account all the people held prisoner here and so didn't find out the patrol routes, the number of enemies, or a means to transport them out of here. In short, it didn't look good for them. Though now he did understand why they were patrols and why they were so organized. An organization like this, providing slaves on the black market, brought in large amounts of money. There was only one way to do this that he could think of, but if they did that then he'd need Erza to help. Fine. We'll get them out of here. Unlock their cages and try to earn their trust so that they all gather in the middle of the room. After that tell them to hold hands and then you need to sneak out of here and head towards Laxus. Erza nodded gratefully and immediately set out to do what she was told. She removed her mask in order to get the prisoners to trust her, and their eyes widened in surprise that a simple teenage girl had done what none of them could do. Overpower and knock out their captors. Meanwhile Naruto took out 4 of his tri-pronged kunai and marked off a square where the prisoners would stand in. He stuck them into the ground and then took out a brush and ink. Carefully, with speedy precision he drew scripts, characters, hairlines, and serifs into the ground connecting all 4 kunai. His goal was to make a modified Jikiken Kekai, space-time barrier. He would love to just use the Hiraishin to get everyone out of there, but he could only take a few people at a time with that technique, mainly only those he could touch. It would take too long, and they ran the risk of discovery if any new guards showed up before he was done. Once she completed her task and got everyone to trust her and stand in the square marked by scripts of advanced sealing formula, Erza headed to Naruto. "They're all in there, Nai-san. Though it would help if you took off your mask for them to trust you too." Naruto nodded and took off his mask. One that he felt a bit of pride wearing considering Kakashi once told him his father was assigned that mask in the past. He handed Erza the kunai back that she'd originally used to call him. "Now head out and meet up with Laxus. Once you're with him and explain the situation, throw this kunai down and I'll transport all the people to you." Erza pocketed the kunai and hugged him tightly before putting the mask back on. She quickly took off through the door and disappeared into the shadows. Naruto walked over to the prisoners and unsealed what few spare clothes he had for the ones that needed them. From there he explained what they would need to do and what it was he hoped to accomplish to get them out of here. "You must be a powerful mage, young man, if you can use a single spell to transport us all out of here. I've never heard of Shunshin no Meiho, teleportation magic, being used in this way before." One of the older men spoke up after everything was explained. The young blonde scratched his head sheepishly and gave him a nervous half smile. "I'm pretty good, I guess. Just everyone hold on tight now, as soon as I get the signal you'll be on your way." All the women and children huddled together. Some gave him a grateful smile, while others were anxious to finally leave the place. After another few minutes, some of the people grew a little restless. Suddenly Naruto, who had been sitting in a meditative position outside of the seal array, snapped his eyes open and sprung to his feet. "Hold on tight everybody. It's a little disorienting at first, so close your eyes if you want to." That said, Naruto's hands blurred through a multitude of hand seals before slamming his palm on the ground. Taking this many people out of here, no matter the distance, required a large amount of chakra. Even if they weren't shinobi, the sensors at the camp would notice the sudden flare of energy and investigate. Not only that, but he was sure there was some sort of monitoring system in place to keep track of all the people here. If a few of them started disappearing randomly, someone would be sent to check the place out. Naruto had a blue glow surround him for a split second before his chakra dispersed into the seal array. The seals glowed brightly and then pulsed. The ground seemed to sink for a brief second, space twisted, and the image of the people was distorted, as if looking through a heat haze before they all quickly disappeared. Naruto dropped to his knees to gulp several deep breaths. True to his word, he'd refrained from using any of Kurama's chakra in the past few years. His oath was to free his friend and no longer rely on his power, yet using a large-scale Jikiken jutsu like this had tired even Naruto out. It would be near impossible for anyone else. After catching his breath and collecting the 4 kunai, Naruto erased the seals on the floor. Not that anyone could understand them, but it was better safe than sorry. He then quickly flashed over to the kunai he could sense just outside of the base and appeared before an irate Laxus and Erza. He landed with barely a whisper in the wind and looked around to where he sent everyone. It was a good location, hidden behind some boulders and rocks, so they weren't inside of the towers in the compound. It wasn't too far away either, which is why Laxus had chosen to wait there, but still gave him enough distance to escape if necessary. From their location to the front gates it was a little under half a mile, plenty of space to react to whatever would come out of the front gates and over the river. Erza was quietly handing out some of her own spare clothes and making sure to keep everyone together. She reassured them that they would all leave soon, but it wasn't a good idea to take off on your own. Why did you have to come back and send Erza back to Naruto? Wouldn't it have been easier to destroy the place like we planned even after you got all these people out? Laxus quietly demanded. No. Those plans of before all demanded the element of surprise. We would have all needed to stay in there and taken those bandits out. Because of my technique to get them out of there though, I had to use a lot of power and I'm sure at least one of the wizards in there took notice. Just as he finished saying that, alarms blared in the compound. Fresh memories from his clones confirmed what he just said. Apparently someone had noticed they were imposters and taken them out before raising the alarm. Laxus grunted, annoyed at the new developments. So what now? We can't just let that camp stand, we still have to take it down if they are in the slave trade, and the Rune Knights won't be here for hours if we tell them about it. Naruto sighed and rubbed his temple tiredly. How fast can you run, Laxus? The scarred blonde quirked an eyebrow. Really fast, why? Erza waved at the people around them that though happy, were too tired to rejoice at having their freedom again. These people need help, Laxus. We need someone to get back to town and bring help for them. Nai-san could transport them there, but we would still need someone to put a kunai in town to set the destination. We need someone fast, so that rules me out. What will we do about the camp though? We still need to destroy it. Plus I know Naruto is fast, so why can't he go? Laxus pressed. You mean apart from the fact that I'm the one that has to be here to send them there? Activate your Kaminari Den, Thunder Palace, Laxus. I have a few extra surprises in store for the bandits once they come out. I can hold them off until you come back. I'm the only one here with enough raw stamina and power to do so. Naruto's eyes were hard as he told them this. Erza looked on in wonder at her older brother. This was the side of Naruto that she called his mission mode. When not on jobs, Naruto was much calmer, often cracking jokes and very open about what he was thinking. When on jobs though, serious ones, his character shifted radically. He didn't brag or exaggerate on things as he said it resulted in accidents or injury. Often he kept his thoughts to himself and didn't bother with small talk. If he said only he could hold the enemy off long enough, well, Erza was inclined to believe him. The sounds back at the compound grew louder. As the drawbridge was starting to lower, Laxus finally nodded his head in Naruto's direction to take off. He activated his spell in the lacrima and watched as it blew the bridge to smithereens, knowing that Erza and Naruto had set it there originally to allow him entry. Lighting surrounded his body and Laxus settled into a runner's stance before he took off towards Lupinus town. Once he was but a small speck in the distance, Naruto turned to Erza. I'm going to ask that you stay out of this, Erza-chan. It's a shame we couldn't recover the stolen stuff, but I can't risk those guys getting away, so I'm going to blow that place sky high. Erza frowned in confusion, but understood once Naruto's form flickered before a bright yellow glow like the sun erupted around him. He was enshrouded in a cloak of power, a cloak of chakra belonging to Kurama, his tenant. You know, brat, you could do this on your own no problem, but I've been caged long enough myself to know that it's unpleasant. Take my power, take it and show them why it's a bad idea to lock anything up, Kurama growled out as he provided Naruto with his chakra cloak. Erza was wide-eyed at the sheer aura of power Naruto was giving off. It was incredible and suffocating, while providing an aura of warmth. Why didn't you just send a clone back to Lupinus town, Nai-san? Laxus could have helped us here. Erza asked, wondering what was going on. Naruto flexed his fingers, trying to get a feel back for the power he hadn't had a reason to use in years, even while in Konoha. This is one of those family secret things, Erza-chan. I don't want it to get out that I can do things like this. Okay. I promise. She somewhat understood what he was saying. It tied back to his avoidance of being in the spotlight. He didn't feel like showing off his full power or trying to gain fame. What about all the people we rescued though, don't you care if they see? I released a couple pellets of sleeping gas around when Laxus took off. Naruto jerked a thumb backwards. They should all be out cold by now and won't wake up till tomorrow. When she turned to look, Erza found that all the people were indeed knocked out. It must have been odorless or something since I didn't hear anyone cry out about it. She mused quietly. Without a word or hand seal, Naruto created 2 clones. One walked over to guard the sleeping escapees while the original took out the compound. The other wordlessly took off in the compound's direction, instructions already given by the original. Quickly Erza took a hold of Naruto's arm before he went off somewhere too. She looked into his eyes as he had removed his mask and pleaded. "Let me help Nai-san. This," she waved at the scrambling bandits, "this isn't right. Let me help to make sure no one else can suffer in this place again." Naruto looked her in the eyes searching for something. Searching for why she wanted to really do this. As long as it wasn't out of revenge or hatred he would let her help. He didn't want to encourage or fan the hatred that seeking revenge would bring out. Finding nothing but slight anger, fear and what looked like disgust he slowly nodded. "Fine. Hold my hand." She grasped his hand and gasped as she was engulfed in raw power. It was a power she'd felt only once before when he had shared Kurama's power with her to let her perform a high-rank jutsu. He had done it so she could learn that control, not just power, were needed for it to work, as she was frustrated at not having the chakra capacity Naruto had. It was one of the only times Naruto had seen Erza lose her temper. She was angry at not making progress on the jutsu, even though Naruto had specifically told her she didn't have the power to use it. He only gave it to her to increase her hand seal speed and to make her improve her control. Without the raw chakra necessary to power the jutsu in its intended purpose, all Erza would be able to do is shape it and learn how to control its direction. It was a different form of chakra shape manipulation than the Rasengan, and one that focused on keeping the shape up, while the jutsu wasn't attached to the body like the Rasengan was. Naruto had shared Kurama's power that day in order to get her to see that she was improving, but it meant little if she didn't master the basics first. She tried to use it on Naruto, and he easily dispersed it by disrupting the chakra flowing into shaping the jutsu. No matter how much power and chakra Erza poured into it, Naruto would force it to disperse by disrupting the chakra flow, something that wouldn't happen if she had better control. Now Erza too glowed a bright golden yellow. Chakra flickered around her like flames kissing the kindling in a fire. She had experienced it once before but felt too angry to be grateful or appreciative of what she received. Now though, she had a purpose and a good one to use the chakra for. She took a few deep breaths to try and steady her nerves before she turned to Naruto, who had been watching her all the while. "Thank you, Nai-san. I won't let you down. Now what do we do? And why did you send a clone into the compound?" "We wait." Exactly what for was answered as a bright bolt of lightning flashed through the sky and struck inside the fortress. "I sent my clone in there to tell the thieves to get out. We're not here to kill them, just to break them up and turn them over to the Rune Knights." The clone also started in on the destruction by giving us a signal. Erza nodded grimly. She may have felt disgusted at what the thieves and kidnappers had done, but she didn't want them to die for it. She didn't want their blood on her hands, not like when she lost control at the Tower of Heaven. "Okay, then Nai-san. I'm going to get into position then. I won't let you down." A quick one-handed seal later, and Erza disappeared with a water shunshin. She reappeared a few seconds later atop the river already going through her hand seals. The blonde chuckled as he too started flying those hand seals. His chakra cloak pulsed and swirled around him the farther along he got, it flickered in sync with Erza's own cloak. Whether on purpose or not, Erza and Naruto both formed their last seal at the exact same time. While neither of them could hear the other, both also called out their jutsu at the same time. Stopping on the horse seal and gathering all the chakra currently surrounding her, Erza called out the strongest jutsu she knew of her only affinity. Suiton. Seryu no Anami, water style. Eastern Dragon Surge. Below her, the water surged, it buckled and folded in upon itself as it rose with Erza up top. She held the horse seal and maintained control over the chakra. The wave rose higher and higher until it finally shaped itself into a dragon's head, mouth open intent on devouring everything in its path. With a bestial roar that she wasn't sure if she actually heard, the massive tidal wave took off and headed straight at the kidnappers' fortress, easily surpassing the height of the walls. The jutsu had all the raw power of a monstrous tsunami, with the control provided by a person, so it was concentrated. The waters churned and swirled, raging power just begging to be unleashed. Behind her and standing firmly on the shore, Naruto finished his own hand seals, ending on the dog seal for wind. His chakra twisted and surged around him, transforming into wind nature chakra and creating a tornado wall around Naruto. Futon. Byako no Kiba, wind style. Western Tiger Fang. The tornado wall of wind, already finely honed and ready to slice everything to pieces, twisted into the form of a white tiger. It stood menacingly above Naruto before it seemed to let out a roar of its own and pounced. Quickly it made its way towards the thieves' fortress, fully intent on tearing it apart. Together, tiger and dragon rushed towards the compound. They ran side by side, not touching nor getting in the other's way. They were completely separate until they breached the walls, once their lightning came down once more from the skies, and both the dragon and tiger leapt into its path. The attacks collided, blowing everything around them apart. A booming shockwave of wind cut through everything it reached, the water of the dragon crashed into all the buildings and tore into them like they were made of paper. The lightning followed all available paths of destruction, bouncing everywhere. Damaging was too light a word to describe its effects. Destruction was more accurate. In short, a literal and concentrated hurricane had descended and exploded upon the fortress. As he looked upon the damage in awe, Naruto let loose a few words that he had not thought of till seeing the destruction. With an almost reverent whisper he choked out, Combo Jutsu. Hoedo Tenpasudo, Collaboration Jutsu. White Tempest. Since his clone had been in the middle of all the fallout and popped, Naruto got back all the information he needed. His clone had warned the thieves and bandits of their impending doom, advising them to escape through the front as the goal was to destroy the base, not kill them. Some listened and some didn't. His clone had then started on the destruction and used the jutsu Kurosasand, Cross Thunder, to surround itself with positive streamers and call down lightning to strike. One of those bolts of lightning had luckily struck just as both Erza's and Naruto's jutsu had reached the compound to destroy it. Instead of exploding the jutsu prematurely or lowering it in power as often happens, all three had synced together and formed an even stronger jutsu. One that was by all means a miniature but incredibly powerful tempest. Wind sliced into buildings, moving at incredible velocity, and the water and lightning combined to cause even more damage. The fortress and buildings in the compound were soon reduced to nothing but rubble. Buildings had entire chunks carved out of them, and the roads and walls had huge gashes, and gauges like a large beast had scratched them. The power of the storm was terrifying for any that saw it. After he had gathered Erza up, since she was so tired after such a massive expenditure of chakra, Naruto created a few dozen clones to round up any straggler thieves before they made their getaway. Many of them hid in the emergency tunnels that Naruto had searched for earlier in the night. Just as the sunlight was peaking above the horizon and Naruto had redrawn the seal array around the recently rescued people, he felt a familiar tug near his chakra core. Once more he flew through the hand seals and instantly transported everyone to what appeared to be a lobby of a large hospital. It seems like Laxus had really come through for them after all. The next day, after the Rune Knights had arrested the remaining thieves that Naruto's clones had kept watch over, the fairy tale members were all called to meet Kazuo at Toribashi. He had found his daughter amongst the kidnapped women and proceeded to thank the impromptu three-man team over and over again. Tears in his eyes he swore to always go to Fairy Tail for any jobs he would need in the future, especially after he heard from his daughter how it had been Naruto and Erza who rescued them from their cages and Laxus who immediately rushed off to get help. Without any one of the three, things wouldn't have gone nearly as smoothly. He also dismissed their apologies at not reclaiming the stolen loot from the thieves. All the money in the world would mean nothing without my daughter. I can't thank you enough, was his response to such apologies. Erza grinned proudly at being able to help and Laxus wore a smug expression as they all boarded the train back to Magnolia. It had been a job well done for the three of them and Naruto had completed it without any serious complications or harm befalling Erza. Once they arrived in Magnolia they all got up and started to make their way back to the guild. Naruto as he stepped off the train commented offhandedly, "Yo Laxus. Since this was your mission and it's your fault we didn't pack appropriately, I'm holding you responsible for replenishing my supplies and clothes we used." Erza looked over at the shocked blonde and said in a stoic manner, "Thank you for your generosity Laxus-san." She then bowed slightly and followed her bored-looking brother out of the train station. Sputtering indignantly Laxus finally recovered his higher motor functions before he roared, "Like hell I will. You guys got paid too. I'm not spending my money on you guys just cause you were nice to those people. Hey. Are you even listening to me Naruto? Erza. Don't just walk away from me." As Naruto walked away with Erza and Laxus chasing after them, his carefully crafted anonymity was being shattered. Already the first whispers were starting to spread around Fiori of the incredibly strong and mysterious member of Fairy Tail. Soon these whispers would turn into rumors and then create fame for the young blonde with one prominent nickname already attached thanks to his attack. One man had woken up from his forced slumber in time to hear Naruto whisper out the name of the Kanbujutsu. One man would hand him the moniker that Naruto would from then on be known. The fame of the feared tempest of Fairy Tail would spread. He would become known far and wide as the man who could control storms and manipulate the heavens themselves. A man so skilled, he toppled a fortress by himself. Eventually his fame would include Erza as well, before she broke off and formed her own reputation. Together they would become known far and wide as the most destructive when necessary but highly effective duo in Fairy Tail. The Storm siblings were born. Chapter 9. X780, December Tenrujima. Crashes. Explosions. The sound of heavy footsteps in the air. Branches snapped and the earth trembled every few seconds. Erza Scarlet was borderline panting to make it to the checkpoint and complete the next stage of the S-class promotional exams. Her closest rival was Marahin, and Erza was sure that she had been sidetracked by Gildarts. Ana Alberona had already encountered Laxus on one of the rocky outcroppings on the island. Erza could still see the lightning magic at work even from this distance. Naruto had refused to give her full details on this year's S-class exam. He was one of the proctors of the exam, so it would be unfair. He had also refused to fully tell her what was in his own exam. Both of them. The one where Laxus passed and then the one a year later where he passed. After each exam he had only told her how he either passed or failed and who he had to fight. Gildarts the first time and Makarov himself the second. Of course his refusal might have been because of the fact that Erza constantly teased him. She always called Naruto by his nickname Tempest and tried to embarrass him by waving Sorcerer magazine around. The magazine had run an article on him and declared him one of Fiori's most handsome and eligible wizards. In the short year that Naruto had been made S-class he'd built up a fearsome reputation. He was both a heavy hitter when needed and could be discreet and quiet for other jobs. There were times he was specifically requested to complete a job. That he always completed the job and with minimal fuss only served to further his reputation. Erza often accompanied him on jobs so she saw everything firsthand. It also worked to give her extra ammo to use against him. As of right now though she was in a dead sprint to make it to the checkpoint and pass on to the next stage of the S-class promotional exam. All 4 candidates taken to Tenrou had been given a map of the island. They were told to find a specific item on the island but had to solve puzzles and overcome obstacles while doing so. Those who crossed the checkpoint with their item would be allowed into the next stage. The puzzles given would, if solved correctly, also give them a trail and path to the checkpoint while avoiding any of the S-class wizards stationed on the island to test them. Erza was pretty confident she'd solved hers correctly but wanted to avoid being followed by that lazy and arrogant Marahin. So Erza ran as fast as she could to avoid anyone following her. The thicket of trees she was running through started to thin and showed a clearing ahead. Erza was beyond happy, she was sure that the checkpoint was directly ahead of her. She sped up a bit, throwing caution to the wind and no longer moving as stealthily as before. Yes. If I can get to the next part I've got this exam in the bag. Then when I get promoted I can rub it in Nai-san's face that I was promoted a whole 2 years younger than him. With an uncharacteristic whoop of joy Erza jumped out of the forest and into the clearing. As she straightened herself up and dusted herself off, she looked around for the checkpoint. It was supposed to be something that she could set off. The only problem was that it too was part of the puzzles as part of their exam. So it would be hidden or disguised as something. Like a stump or rock, with its only identifying feature being it was inscribed with runes. If she found it she was to run her magic through it briefly and that would signal her arrival. It would also signal her completion of this portion of the exam. Erza started to walk around and lift up random rocks and overturn logs. She was so focused on her work that she completely overlooked the person in the clearing with her. Maybe you should try that rock to your left. No. It's too small, I already checked it. Erza replied distractedly. Well, how about that log over on the right? It seems big enough. Kind of rotted and stuff too. Sounds like something Master Makarov would hide the signal under. Amusement clear in the person's voice now. Even so, Erza was too focused on finding the checkpoint marker. No. That's too obvious. It has to be a rock or else it would be too easy to find. Since there are so many rocks here. Nodding sagely, the second and older person suggested one other possibility. After a few more minutes of searching turned up nothing. Well, maybe it isn't here. Erza grunted as she dropped a small boulder she'd been lifting. It has to be. The checkpoint is supposed to be in a clearing full of rocks, by a small stream, and surrounded by elm trees. Ah, I see. Well, it's definitely not here then. A casual wave around. These are oak trees, and the elm portion of the forest is about 2 kilometers that way. A hand pointed north. An exasperated sigh left her lips. There are way too many trees on this island for anyone to know the difference. Thanks, Nai-san. She chirped before she started to walk away north. Naruto chuckled and counted down in his head as she started walking. 3, 2, 1 on now she gets it. Nai-san. Erza whirled sword already in hand. How'd you get here? On a boat. Same as you. Naruto answered in deadpan. The red-headed girl scowled. I meant how did you get here in this clearing? Not how'd you get on the island. Well, you should have just said so, then Erza-chan. Naruto replied in a faux snobbish tone. Naruto immediately jumped back to avoid a slash and had to duck afterwards to avoid a kick. Whoa. Looks like you don't want to waste time playing around, Erza-chan. He grinned as he blocked another kick. She growled but bit her tongue and didn't answer him. She knew that he liked to mock and rile up his opponents during fights so that he could exploit their weaknesses while distracted. Naruto jumped on top of a stump to avoid a slash aimed at his torso. From the stump he immediately flipped backwards so that Erza's slash at his legs missed. After a few minutes of running around and getting only a small cut on his Haori, Naruto took things up a notch. He grabbed a kunai from his pouch and held it in a reverse grip. At the next downward slash from Erza, he stopped the sword with his own blade. Erza didn't have any time to react as he immediately grabbed her sword arm and twisted so that he could throw her over his shoulder. She avoided hitting the ground face first as she stuck her hand out and performed a one-handed handspring to get back to her feet. Naruto quickly attacked her. "It's time to get serious, Erza-chan. As the proctor for this exam, I can't allow anyone that isn't strong enough or worthy of promotion get past me. You have to show that you have both the skills and the determination to be S rank if you want to pass." Scarlet hair whirled around her face as Erza began an intricate dance to avoid Naruto's blows. Making sure to play his role of exam proctor well, Naruto attacked in increasing levels of skill. His speed increased in trying to injure her, as well as the strength behind each of his blows. The blonde shinobi chased the armor-wearing girl all around the clearing, trying to hit her. She was nimble though, and managed to avoid most of his blows. It helped that he wasn't going all out though. Tired of playing around, he closed the distance between them and feinted a slow low sweep of her feet. Predictably, she jumped over the incoming sweep, but Naruto had been counting on that and delivered a devastating combo of punches and elbows before she could move away. As he was twisting because of the sweep, he used the momentum to deliver a heavy elbow to Erza's side. He followed up with 2 jabs to her torso and a roundhouse kick to send her flying. Erza struggled to get up, more thankful than ever she wore armor all the time. "I'm not like Gildarts, Erza-chan. I won't just sit here and wait for you to come to me. You have to be able to fend for yourself as an S-class mage. How can you do that if I don't force you to defend?" Naruto asked even as he sprinted after her. Over the course of the next few minutes, Naruto pushed Erza's limits as far as he could. He forced her to display all of her considerable skills in swordsmanship. He pushed her to show him how good she was in hand-to-hand fighting, and as the fight wore on, she felt obligated to pull out what little jutsu and magic she had mastered. "Panso? Panis no Yoroi, requip. Punisher armor, 1, she cried out as she donned her newest set of armor. It was one of the few sets she had been able to master requipping in the middle of a fight. From what Naruto knew, the Panis no Yoroi was an armor that gave Erza an increase in her offensive capabilities. Meaning she was both faster and stronger with it on. "Crap. I'm going to have to step things up a bit," Naruto mumbled. He locked blades with a much broader and heavier sword that accompanied the armor and thought up the best way to continue. He didn't want to go beyond the very basic jutsu when fighting her. This was her test after all and not his. Already she had displayed quick thinking, a high level of strength and speed, as well as keen intellect if she was able to make it this far in the exam. She didn't have many jutsu available as Erza from almost the beginning told him that she was more of a melee or close-range fighter. The jutsu she did know were for when she had to attack from a distance or cause big damage. Plus she had recently decided to keep them as an ace in the hole, so there was no need to use them all the time. They would be beyond useless against Naruto anyways. She had a water affinity but like Naruto, needed water to be around to use it effectively. Plus he was much better at ninjutsu than her, so it really wouldn't be worth it. The blonde teenager once more kicked Erza away from him to break their stalemate. They stood, eyeing each other up, silently debating whether to start the fight anew. In the distance the flashes of light from Laxus's lightning had died down. Explosions and slight tremors that had been common earlier were no longer felt or heard. That meant that Gildarts was probably finishing up with whoever it was he tested. A slight buzzing noise sounded out from Naruto's pocket. Sheepishly he waved a hand to ask for Erza to hold on a second. Sorry. Have to take this call. Hello. Who's this?" From his pocket Naruto had pulled a small crystal orb, it was a communication lacrima. Laxus's face showed up in the crystal, clearly irritated. "It's me, idiot. Who else could it be? These things are the short-range versions Gigi gave the proctors, so it could only be me or Gildarts." Visibly cheering up, Naruto waved at Laxus. "Hey Sparky. What's up? You need something? I'm kind of busy at the moment." A noticeable twitch developed over Laxus's eye. "Just calling to inform you that I didn't get Erza to test out like you wanted to know. I got Kana. She wasn't quite cut out for the exam though." "Oh, I see." Naruto ignored the questioning look Erza had at hearing that. "Well, that means Gildarts has either N or Marahin. I wonder what he's going to do." As if in answer to his question, the entire island of Tenrou started to shake. It wasn't as violent as an earthquake, but the sudden pressure and spike in magical energy was no less worrying. Birds everywhere took to the skies. Animals that were minding their own business took off to hide in the forest. In the distance near the beaches of the island, a pillar of magical energy shot into the sky. "Show off." Naruto snorted. He knew exactly what that was. Gildarts had just released a whole lot of magical energy. Probably to scare whoever he was testing, as it was extremely doubtful there would be any need to get serious with the examinees. Erza looked to the source of the spike in magic and was visibly shocked at the turn of events. No way. So much magic. Who could possibly be that strong? Let's get back to business then, Erza-chan. I know you don't have all day. But now that Gildarts has gotten serious and Laxus has finished up, it's pretty much expected for me to buckle down too. Naruto explained after he put away the lacrima into his pouch. She nodded and lowered herself into a two-handed stance, gripping her sword. You're right, Nai-san. I have to pass this exam. I'm not sure how much you're holding back, but I'll make you regret it. I'll show you my strongest armor. Well, my strongest completed armor, she mumbled at the end. Naruto tilted his head to the side in confusion. This was the first he'd heard of a new and strongest armor. Hanso? Benahem, Requip. Crimson Princess. I've been working on getting stronger, Nai-san. I'll prove that I deserve this promotion. 2. Gone was the all-black and bulky armor of before. Replacing it was sleeker but no less protective flame red armor. Her broadsword that she'd been wielding was replaced too. Now she held a long sword wreathed in fire. The element of this armor was obvious for Naruto. She had obviously at some point taken to practicing and mastering a fire-based armor. Fire, the element that was superior in elemental advantage to his wind jutsu. Erza was now more confident she'd be able to show how prepared she was to move up in rank. He smiled and rose from his low defensive horse stance. Looks like you're serious about passing then. Good. This isn't one of our spars. If you didn't come at me with everything you had and determined to win, you wouldn't land a finger on me. Erza tensed as he shook his head sadly though and closed his eyes. Unfortunately, it won't be enough, Erza-chan. Not nearly enough. The bright familiar glow started to emanate from Naruto. Slowly at first, but then quickly he was engulfed in a bright yellow shroud of chakra. Black lines spread out from his shoulders down his arms, across his chest and down his legs. His haori had turned yellow as well and had nagatama around the collar. His shirt and vest turned pure black and the seal on his stomach was evident over his clothes. A bright yellow spiral enclosed on all sides by more seal script. On the back of his haori, the Uzumaki spiral was displayed proudly. When Naruto opened his eyes again, they were no longer the brown and blue eyes of the last few years, but now were golden in color to match his cloak of power. The armor-clad girl gulped, visibly nervous at the prospect of fighting Naruto now. Surely he wasn't going to go all out to fight her, right? But even if all he did was dodge, she knew she wasn't nearly fast enough to hit him. His speed was amazing while in his recently remastered Bijuu cloak. Naruto smiled grimly at Erza's shocked expression. Sorry, Erza-chan, but I'm not quite done yet. Did you know, Erza-chan, that as a proctor of this exam I have full rights and can decide whether or not to pass someone? Whether or not to disqualify them based on my observations? In a daze, Erza shook her head no. Are you sure about this, Naruto? This could all blow up in your face, brat. Can you live with yourself if that happens? Kurama asked his container. He already knew what Naruto was planning on doing. Normally he wouldn't care, but this plan of Naruto's had too many risks for his taste. Especially since he risked hurting Erza, the one person besides Naruto he could tolerate. Sort of. I'm sure. Really he wasn't, but the pros outweighed the cons in this instance. If barely. Erza-chan, as proctors we were told that it is up to us to determine when a participant can pass. But since you're my wonderful Amado, a warm smile spread across his lips, I have a higher responsibility to you. I have to make sure you are strong and that no harm comes to you. Frowning slightly at his explanation, Erza waited patiently for him to get to the point. She doubted that he was giving this speech out only because he wanted to see how strong she was. That could easily be discovered by continuing their fight. So it's time then, brat. I want you to know that I do this under protest. Kurama rumbled deep within the seal. Naruto's form hadn't changed as he talked to Erza. His chakra cloak only grew a little darker, glowing a dark golden color instead of bright yellow. His posture was still the same, but when he closed his eyes again everything was different. The colossal pressure descended on everything in the clearing. The rocks around them started to shake. The trees were groaning under the pressure, the air was stifling. Nothing was left untouched or unaffected by the invisible force pressing down. Erza reeled back in shock. This was magic. It wasn't the normal chakra field that she had grown to be familiar with whenever Naruto trained, no, this was actual magic. Similar but yet very different to chakra. How in the world could Naruto, who himself admitted not being a mage, use magic? And why was it so strong and potent that it was starting to scare her? When he opened his eyes again, they remained golden in color, but his pupils were no longer round. Instead they were slitted and his features grew feral. Lines like whiskers appeared on his cheeks. I'm in control of your body now, Naruto, but I let you do the talking, Kurama explained. He had no wish to really test out his magical prowess, it was only recently that he had even been able to try out what he could accomplish with magic. Naruto would never be able to use magic for himself anyways, this was all Kurama. The Biju himself didn't really know where to start but was glad most of it seemed instinctual. The only downside seemed that his magic was only accessible and usable when Naruto used the Biju cloak. For that reason and that reason alone, I cannot allow you to pass the S-class exams. Naruto continued his monologue. What? Erza choked out, dread seeping through her stomach like an acid pill. Her confidence from earlier starting to falter in the face of all the magic washing over her. Erza-chan. I'll say it one more time. I have a higher responsibility towards you. I have to make sure no harm comes to you. Ever if possible. Harm that S-class missions would put you at risk for. As he talked, the magic he was putting out rose higher and higher, reaching phenomenal levels. Erza was breathing hard now, the pressure and density of the magic around her making it difficult to take in air. She broke out in a cold sweat and didn't really register what Naruto was saying. All around the island, those who were able to sense even a modicum of magic looked in Naruto's direction. Everyone else just wondered what could possibly be up with Gildarts showing off again. For his part, Gildarts just smirked after having sent Marahin off towards the recovery tent. She hadn't been quite able to meet the benchmark Gildarts set for her. So, this is your power, Naruto. I can tell you can't fully control it. The magic is wild and erratic right now, but I can't wait to spar with you again. It should be fun. Makarov, who was tending to both Kana and Marahin in the recovery tent, just deflected the questions they were asking. Tenrou is a place sacred to fairy tale girls. Not even I know everything that happens here. It's possible Gildarts just feels like stretching his legs. Or if it's something else like Marahin thinks, then I can assure you nothing bad will happen to you. Inwardly though, he was a little worried. If Marahin was here and Kana failed too, that left only Naruto. You've been holding out on us, Naruto. I'm sure you have your reasons. We all have our secrets. Just don't take it too hard on little Erza. Laxus, who was on his way back to the boat to return to Magnolia, only smirked as he walked away. He didn't even look back to see what the commotion he felt was. Looks like it's you who ended up finding Erza, Naruto. Don't know how or why you're magnifying your magic so much, but this just means when we spar it'll be more interesting. I hope it's not fake power like from a lacrima or other magical item though. That'd be boring. You won't get past me, Erza-chan. You won't pass this exam. The road to your promotion ends with me. Naruto continued monotonously. By this point, tears were beginning to run down Erza's cheeks. All her hopes, all her dreams, to prove herself strong, to prove that she didn't need Naruto to always hold her hand, were in danger of being shattered. She had hoped to pass this exam and prove she had grown stronger, prove that not only did Naruto raise her well, but now he no longer needed to protect her as much. That perhaps she could protect him if he needed it. Give up now, Erza-chan. Give up so that I can keep you safe from harm by failing you. He requested. You aren't cut out for this exam. Not as you are. The silent perhaps not ever went unsaid. You're playing a dangerous game, brat. Kurama warned. It has to be this way. I have to be certain she'll be safe. Naruto replied. Once more a wave of power surged out from Naruto. It washed over everything in the area but focused on Erza. The sword edged in flames fell from her limp hands. She dropped to her knees and looked at Naruto despairingly. Hoping beyond hope that she misunderstood him. I'll pass. I have to pass, Nai-san. Even if you don't want me to, I'll just pass next year. I don't care. You can't keep me from passing. She whispered fervently. Naruto sighed sadly. That's where you're wrong, Erza-chan. Even if you take the test every year from now until I have gray hair, I will make sure to face you each and every time. And fail you each and every time. Erza, who had been silently letting her tears fall to the ground, her hands gripping the earth and holding herself up, snapped her head up at that. I don't care. I will pass. I don't care what you say, Nai-san. I'm going to pass this exam. Scarlet hair whirled around her as Erza called her own magic forth. While not at the same level as any of the current S-class wizards, it was still impressive. I'll show you I'm cut out for this. I'll show you that you can't intimidate me into backing down. I'm strong. Even if I'm not strong enough right now, all I'll do is train and grow stronger. Until I can beat you and show you that I can protect you just as much as you can protect me. Her body glowed a bright white before her armor disappeared and was replaced. I don't have a name for this armor yet, it's not completed. But I'll show you how strong I am. You said I can't even put a scratch on you. Well, I'll prove that I can do that and more. Gone was the predominantly red armor from before. Her new armor, her apparently unfinished armor, was mainly blues and whites. Some red trim existed on the gauntlets and yellow around the cuffs, but it was nevertheless an impressive looking armor. Naruto smirked as the ground beneath him cracked and splintered as he once more raised the output of magic around him. He had to be absolutely sure she could stand up to him. She got to her feet and glared defiantly at him. Ah. I won't let you keep me down, Naruto and Nikki. I'll show you exactly what I'm made of. I don't care how many times I do this, I will beat you. In her hand an electrified spear appeared. The older boy's eyes widened in surprise as he sensed both magic and chakra being used. Normally this would be cause for alarm because of what that meant for Erza, but since they were in the middle of the promotional exams he let it go. She had tried using both magic and chakra at the same time once before. The results were surprising. Just like Naruto knew that Kurama's chakra was thrown out of control because of the Eternano in the air, he guessed that something similar would happen to Erza. He was right. If she tried using both magic and chakra, it wreaked havoc with her control. Not so much her chakra control but her control over her magic. Somehow and for some reason it acted like an accelerant. It forced her to output as much magic as possible all at once as soon as she used the barest of chakra. Like a flame following a trail of gas, if she used chakra while using magic, she opened the floodgates to her magic reserves and poured out too much. It resulted in her fainting from exhaustion. It wasn't lethal though, which is the only thing Naruto cared about, as he repeatedly asked Yusuke when she treated Erza. The attack she'd been prepping when she started using both sources of energy though was incredible. While it had actually flickered out and dissolved since she passed out, the power it contained was astonishing. So while using both chakra and magic obviously had its large drawbacks, its advantages were extremely high as well. It made any of her previous attacks pale in comparison. That's just how powerful it was. She was far from mastering it though. Naruto didn't know if she really could master it since she was the first person able to use both. That didn't mean she wouldn't try, but she was a long ways off. With a wild dash and something that looked a lot like Shunshin yet different, Erza charged straight at him. Naruto met her head on, determined to see how this would unfold. A deafening boom exploded from their clearing. A cloud of dust erupted into the air from their clash, and a crater was formed. Most noticeable though was the absence of magic from earlier. The absence of that absolute colossal source of power that had everything in the area scared. Erza didn't realize she had fallen unconscious after her charge. She didn't know that she had exhausted herself and fainted from all the magic she released. Her only thoughts at the moment had been to prove beyond a doubt that no matter what she faced, she would keep trying to get stronger and beat Naruto. To show that even if she wasn't strong enough at the moment and Naruto had vowed to fail her, she would just keep coming back over and over again. So when she woke up and noticed she was moving along through the forest, she didn't quite understand what was happening. It was only when she noticed that she was being carried that she remembered and realized what must have happened. She was so focused on landing at least one hit on Naruto and then training for the next year to do it all over again at the next exams that she blocked everything else out. Normally she would have stopped or tried to do something to keep from passing out, but it just didn't happen. Slowly she blinked in order to get her eyes to focus. What's going on? Quiet down, Erza-chan. Go ahead and get some rest. You've certainly earned it. Naruto answered, even as he kept on walking forward. He didn't even bother to turn his head and look at the girl he was carrying piggyback to the other side of the island where the rest tent was. She yawned and nodded her head tiredly. Okay. I'll get you next time, Nai-san. Just wait and see. She mumbled, almost missing but too tired to do anything about what she heard next. There's no need, Erza-chan. You passed. I'm proud of you. You're the newest S-rank mage of Fairy Tail. He told her. A small happy smile appeared on her face for the briefest of moments before she once more fell asleep. There would be plenty of time to celebrate later. For now she just enjoyed the fact that she could rest again. Looks like things worked out for you, brat. Lucky bastard. It was a risk playing with her head like that. I thought you said you didn't like it when it happened to you at your own exams back in Konoha. Kurama growled out. I didn't. But that doesn't mean it wasn't necessary and effective. Those Chunin exams really sucked, but they taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes you need more than just brute strength or skill to measure your worth. Your mental fortitude is just as important. The blonde Jinchuriki answered his grouchy tenant. As he walked forward, moving closer to the tent where the rest of the guild was, he looked over his shoulder to the red-haired girl on his back. He smiled proudly at how far she'd come. His plan had been risky, but he still felt that the end results were justified. She had proven how strong she was, how determined she had grown. It was good that his fears hadn't come to fruition, and he was fully prepared to apologize for messing with her head when she woke. For now though, he'd just let her rest and recover after such a tiring day. Erza once again woke up slowly and had to blink rapidly to focus her vision. The last words she remembered from Naruto played in her head. She smiled as she sat up and looked around. Finally up, sleepyhead. The tent flap was open to allow Naruto and a couple of his clones entry as he walked in. Nai-san. Did you mean it? Did I really pass? Erza rushed to ask him. Naruto smiled and pointed at the sleeve of his haori, showing her the small tear in the fabric. Well, you didn't pass out from seeing how awesome I am, that's for sure. I didn't know you've been training so hard lately, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. Even if you only barely managed to scratch me, but to answer your question, yes. You did pass. Whoops of joy were heard by all those outside the tent and no one was quite sure who it came from. Most didn't believe Erza capable of being so excited and others hoped Naruto wasn't still that childish. Naruto took a seat next her bedroll and grinned. You surpassed all my expectations, Erza-chan. I'm sorry for saying all those things earlier, but they were only to test you and you did great. One of the proctors had something different they wanted to test. Laxus tested strength, Gildarts maturity and decision-making, and me I wanted to see your mental fortitude. Erza beamed with pride and wrapped him in a tight hug. I'm glad you got to see how strong I am, Nai-san. Even if you had to be sneaky about it. Naruto shrugged. I think that since you've proved how strong you are it's time I answer your question. Now I don't have to worry about anyone possibly finding out the truth about me and going after you. Erza paid rapt attention to Naruto, knowing exactly what he was talking about. From almost the very beginning of their relationship, Naruto had let her ask him one question a day that he promised to never lie about in order to trust and get to know each other. At first she had kept her questions to his skills and missions as a shinobi. Eventually they had moved on to his past and accomplishments. Finally she had asked the one question that she both wanted most to know and dreaded the answer. She asked him of his family, his parents, siblings and name. At the time he'd only looked at her with a melancholy expression and asked her to hold off on the question for now. Erza was at first worried that he had a real family to go back to. People that missed him and that he would leave her for. A sister, brother or parents that he would eventually seek out and leave Erza behind. Eventually he explained that it wasn't the case. He explained he was an orphan too, but couldn't let her know his last name in case something bad happened. Naruto hated to do it, he knew how sensitive Erza was about family, since her own parents had abandoned her in her village before the slavers captured everyone, but felt it necessary at the time. He'd spent years searching high and low for any news on Sasuke when Kurama had asked him a question so obvious he couldn't believe he missed it. If he was so sure that Sasuke had gone with him and both left the elemental nations, then why was he sure that the root agent that they had fought hadn't come too? Especially since Kurama didn't know how they got to Fiori in the first place, and perhaps the curse seal the root shinobi had used was a trigger that flung them to the Tower of Heaven. So to protect Erza he'd been forced to hide and keep his clan name a secret from her. At least until she was ready and strong enough to defend herself in case anyone found out she knew and was, on paper, related to Naruto Uzumaki. It didn't help that she looked so much like his mother Kushina either. That would only make it worse for her, since she could pass for an Uzumaki well. Before I get into all the details though, what was that last armor you used? It sure packs a punch, let me tell you. Naruto's grin grew even wider. It was no exaggeration. If it hadn't been for his Bijuu cloak, that armor would definitely have hurt him. It was deceptively strong, but obviously drained her far quicker than was good at the moment. She pulled back from the hug she had given him and coughed into her hand, looking away and blushing in embarrassment. It's my newest armor I've had custom made. Well it's kind of embarrassing, but I can't even use it for too long without getting tired. Eyes scrunched and his head tilted to the side in confusion. Naruto waited for her to say more. When it became clear she wouldn't, he instead shrugged it off to talk about some other time. Anyways, you already know my reasons for keeping my clan name secret. Erza nodded. There's no point in babying you any more than Erza-chan. He took a deep breath and let it out. I was born in the village of Konohagakure, no Sato in Hai no Kuni to the Yondaime Hokage, and the Nidaime Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. At a wave of his hand his two clones stepped forward and formed the dog, boar and ram hand seals. A puff of smoke later and it cleared to reveal two very distinct and precious people to Naruto, despite the extremely small amount of time he spent with them. One was a blonde man wearing a haori similar to Naruto's, but with a flame-like motif at the bottom. The other was a beautiful crimson-haired woman, slightly shorter than the man, but with a wide grin and mischievous look. Erza stared wide-eyed at the two people standing on either side of Naruto. He had never shown her a picture of them before, but she easily recognized his mother and father. There had never been a reason to see them before really. Erza was an orphan too, and just assumed he found it painful to talk about his parents just as much as she did. I know it might not mean much, Erza-chan, he continued a little sadly as it was a sensitive subject, but if my parents were here, they'd be just as proud of you as I am. I know that for a fact. They would love you and would be glad that I found a wonderful Amado to look after and keep me in line too. Tears once more built up in her eyes, and Erza quickly blinked to try and clear them away. She hadn't been this emotional in a very long time, but she found that she didn't really care and wasn't as ashamed of crying as she should have been. I know that you'll never get to know them, but I present to you my father Minato Namikaze, the clone of Minato smiled warmly at Erza, and my mother, who I swear you really could be a miniature version of, Kushina Uzumaki. The older scarlet-haired woman waved cheerfully at Erza's shocked expression. Erza looked longingly at the two clones that represented Naruto's parents and threw herself into his arms. She hugged him for dear life and kept mumbling into his chest over and over, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Naruto rubbed small circles into her back until she calmed down. When she pulled away he smiled softly at her and kissed her forehead. "It's not much, Erza-chan, I know that I can't ever replace or be a substitute for your real family," she scowled at remembering her real parents, "but I want you to know that I was very serious when I said I'd be your Nikki from now on. You're my wonderful Amato, my precious, beautiful and strong little sister, and even though I grew up as Naruto Uzumaki, I never once will regret taking up the role of Naruto Scarlet to be closer to you." A choked sob and eyes full of happiness was the only response he got. All he cared for really. Some more heartfelt moments later and after the emotional rollercoaster had ended, Naruto broached the last topic he wanted to talk to Erza about. She watched curiously as he pulled out a containment scroll and unsealed its contents. In his hands he held a long thin box. He handed it over to her and watched as she opened it up, eyes full of curiosity. "What's this, Nai-san? Why did you just give me the hell to a sword?" The excitable blonde's megawatt grin could have lit up the darkest of nights. "Oh but Erza-chan, how you underestimate me so. That isn't just any sword. And yes, I did in fact say sword, not just hilt. Run a little chakra through it. Or magic. Go on." A bit wary of the confirmed sword in her hands, Erza nevertheless did as she was told. When she poured a small amount of chakra into the hilt, she gasped as lightning crackled and a blade made entirely of electricity burst into existence. She'd heard from Naruto about this legendary blade, but she never imagined he would show it to her. "Nai-san. Is this the Raijin no Ken, sword of the Thunder God?" 3. "Yep." He chirped cheerfully, "And it's yours now. Think of it as a congratulations present for passing the exam." "Ah, they grow up so fast." He teased as he wiped a fake tear away from his eye. Not quite over the shock of seeing the legendary blade of the famed Nidaime Hokage in her hands, the young and fearsome mage only nodded numbly in thanks. Naruto had regaled her with stories of the man's prowess in battle, and she was awed at holding a blade wielded and created by such a powerful warrior. Soon awe was replaced with excitement and happiness at having such a powerful weapon. "This will help me out a lot with my new armor too. Since Nai-san said the blade's made from real lightning and barely uses any chakra at all." "Okay Erza-chan, let's wrap things up here, we have to get a move on," Naruto said as he started to tidy up the tent. "What's the rush?" Erza protested. "Aren't the exams over and we can go back anytime to the guild?" Yeah, but if we hurry we can make it back to Harjun town before the last train leaves for Ear," he explained impatiently. Erza frowned. "Why would we go to Ear?" Naruto looked at her in disbelief. "To register you as the newest S-class mage of Fairy Tail, of course." Erza blushed a bit in embarrassment at forgetting that tidbit, and because Ultear-chan said that our meal was interrupted too soon last time she stopped in Magnolia and there needed to be a makeup date for it. Ah, well now his impatience made sense to the ruby-haired teen. "So you can't wait to go see Ultear-san, can you? Is there something I should know about?" she questioned teasingly. Naruto laughed. "No. I just want to get you registered already," and she said she wanted to hang out with us with less people around. That didn't sound like Ultear. While she obviously liked Naruto and was interested in Erza, she never complained about the company they kept whenever she visited the guild. What were her exact words, Nai-san? Naruto tapped a finger on his chin and thought. Well, she did say she liked spending time together, but that next time it might be better if we had more privacy. Since Natsu, Happy and Kana won't be around this time to eat up all our food, I bet I can get her to finally go to that ramen place I found in Ear. Erza's sweat dropped at his continued obliviousness to her intentions. Seriously, was he really that dense? Or did he just purposely ignore her and have selective hearing whenever food came up? I don't think that's quite what she meant, Nai-san. Maybe I shouldn't come with you when you go out to dinner. She tried interrupting. Nonsense, Erza-chan. Naruto waved his hand dismissively, of course that's what she meant. She likes you just as much as me. Any and all protests made to the contrary were promptly ignored. Hours later and after informing Makarov of their intentions, the Scarlet siblings were off to Eira to see Ultear. Magic Council headquarters. Now where could she be hiding at this time? Naruto asked himself as he walked around the council building. Everyone that was around just ignored the blonde as he'd become something of a regular at the headquarters. If he wasn't popping in and out on errands for Makarov or some sort of S-class job, then he was visiting the aide to one of the members of the council, Ultear Milkovich. Naruto had tried looking for Ultear at her usual haunts in the building to find her. She wasn't in the cafeteria, which was good for him as he'd been planning on taking them all out to eat, she wasn't in the archives, and she wasn't in Belno's office. He'd sent off Erza to register her new rank at the request distribution office and update her profile in the guild files the council kept. They promised to meet up in the main doors of the building after they were finished with their things. The creak of a door opening and a familiar voice caught his ear. He twisted his head slightly and looked over his shoulder in the direction of the noise. "Now if you follow me I'll show you where these next files go. It's really just a lot of Ultear," was saying to someone in the room she was walking out of. "Ultear-chan." Naruto waved to catch her attention. Ultear turned to see who could possibly be calling for her while at work. When she caught sight of the blonde locks of hair and familiar set of brown and blue eyes, her expression shifted from annoyed to slightly happy. "Naruto. How good to see you. What are you doing here?" she inquired politely but with an undertone of happiness. "Oh well, I just came by to ask you to dinner with me," and his words trailed off as he caught sight of who Ultear had been talking to. Naruto used his years of hiding behind a mask of cheerfulness to keep the shock, anger and disbelief from showing on his face at the person behind Ultear. He did a good job of keeping his expression neutral, and only a flicker of emotion registered in his eyes before that too was hidden away. Ultear only just caught the glint of recognition from him before she turned to introduce the person behind her to Naruto. "This should be interesting. Naruto, I'd like you to meet the newest intern here at the Council of Magic headquarters. He's quite the up-and-coming mage himself and hopes to one day join the council, but he has to start somewhere, right?" Naruto nodded with only a hint of reluctance. Naruto meets Seagrain. Seagrain Fernandez. Chapter 10. X780 Magic Council Headquarters. Naruto meets Seagrain. Seagrain Fernandez. Anger flared within, but Naruto suppressed all visible signs as he nodded at the blue-haired boy. He had to handle this delicately. He couldn't just attack Jellal or Seagrain, whatever he called himself, in the center of the Magic Council. To him it was obvious that Jellal was using a fake name, but the question was why? What could he hope to achieve by walking around with only his name changed? While the destruction of the Tower of Heaven wasn't as well known as he thought, Naruto still assumed that news of it had gotten out. There had been hundreds of slaves to escape the island after all. It would be difficult, but the young shinobi would now need to use his considerable experience to get some answers. He wasn't trained as an interrogator, leaving that area to Sasuke, but he was sure he could get something out of the blue-haired boy. Naruto would have to tread carefully to make Jellal slip up and reveal why he was walking around like nothing was wrong. The blonde would have to watch his words to get answers without tipping his hand. "Seagrain. I thought your name was Jellal last time we met." Then again, Naruto never was a fan of subtle when the direct approach was easier. Ultear smirked faintly. He sure doesn't beat around the bush. She knew that Naruto would recognize Jellal. The blonde hadn't been the most forthcoming with his past, but Jellal had told her who it was that freed the slaves all those years ago. Jellal viewed the blonde with contempt but at least recognized that he was strong. The tattooed mage didn't complain often, but he cursed Naruto for delaying the construction of the tower by several years. She didn't think they'd meet so soon, but she would try and spin it in her favor anyways. No matter what happened, there had to be a way to gain favor from one or both of them. It would be a balancing act trying to keep her cover intact and hidden from the two, but she could do it. Neither could find out that she was the one controlling Jellal, not the other way around. Naruto especially couldn't find out her role in regards to the blue-haired wizard. If he found out, then all influence on him she'd managed to cultivate and gain over the last few years would be lost. He would not trust her as easily, and all the time and effort she put into using him for her own means would be wasted. It was an unacceptable loss for Ultear. Yet she was confident she could keep her role hidden. She had to. A cold smile graced Seagrain's features. "I'm afraid you are mistaken, Naruto-san. Jellal was my twin brother. Did you know him?" Naruto frowned slightly in confusion. "Twin, huh? Didn't think those were real. Course I've only ever met one pair of twins, so that might be why. Explains a lot though." He wanted to confirm something though, just to make sure. It was a little too convenient for Jellal to have a twin brother that no one knew about, not even Erza. "What do you mean was? Last I saw he was fine. Sure, it was at the Tower of Heaven, but everyone else got out okay." The hook has been set. Naruto thought. No matter his answer, there would have to be some sort of unintentional slip of information. If Seagrain answered that Jellal died, then Naruto would ask how he knew that. No one but Naruto and Kurama could possibly confirm that Jellal had actually died. As far as anyone knew, even those escaped slaves, Naruto had left Jellal alive when they left the tower. No one should know that he'd gone back later on and destroyed the place. However, if Seagrain announced that Jellal was alive, then Naruto would only be further suspicious that Seagrain really was Jellal. He'd need to find out what excuse or story Seagrain would give for Jellal still being alive. "Yes, I spoke to a few of the survivors, but they gave me some bad news." Seagrain smiled thinly. "I looked for him for many years, searched high and low for any information on my brother. I was lucky that I'm his twin so I could ask others if they'd seen him." Ultear listened intently to the confrontation between the two. She was curious to find out what excuse Seagrain would come up with. If he was already being suspected of being alive before he entered the Magic Council, then he needed an ironclad story to back up why he was a different person and not one who was supposedly dead. Sadly, I was told that he died in one of the raids on the R system instigated by the Magic Council years ago. Seagrain lied smoothly, omitting the fact that said raids, while real, had actually occurred years before the Tower of Heaven breakouts. What raids? Naruto asked curiously. The Magic Council heard of a dangerous forbidden magic several years ago. It was named the R system and comprised of 7 towers meant to resurrect the dead. When they heard this, they immediately took action and set out to destroy such forbidden magics. Seagrain explained patiently. Ultear, despite herself, was a little impressed. He hadn't lied about the council going out and destroying the 7 towers of the R system. He'd just neglected to mention that the Tower of Heaven was not one of those 7 towers. Those 7 towers had been destroyed before the current Tower of Heaven had been discovered. The cult responsible for the Tower of Heaven had taken care to keep the last and 8th R system a secret. It was the only tower to survive the destruction instigated by the Magic Council. I'll have to check to see if that's true. Naruto thought to himself. While he knew who really destroyed the Tower of Heaven, he couldn't let them know that. It would also be easy to verify Seagrain's story. The Magic Council would surely keep records of destroying such forbidden and dangerous magic like the R system, so it would be dumb for Seagrain to lie about that. Of course, that meant breaking and entering into secret files of the council. Not that he had any qualms with doing that actually. The black mark on the history of the Magic Council's decisions, those raids. Ultear interjected smoothly. Many lives were lost, most from the ones responsible for building the R system, but the risk was too great to let them remain active. The blonde shinobi looked to his friend as she spoke. The fact that she knew about said raids lent credence to the story. It must have happened after he rescued Erza though, but it was a good thing that the other towers he didn't know of got destroyed too. I'm sorry for bringing that up then, Seagrain. I had no idea that Jellal had died. Naruto wasn't totally convinced yet, but he couldn't press the issue at the moment. Discretion is the better part of valor after all. Seagrain waved away the apology. No need for that, Naruto-san. While it is unfortunate my brother was a victim, there's nothing I can do about that now. I just hope to get into the Magic Council in the future and prevent something like that happening again. A noble goal. Naruto replied distractedly, still trying to think of any way possible to dispel his suspicions. If I may ask though, Naruto-san. At a nod from the blonde, Seagrain continued. Just what kind of history did you have with Jellal that you immediately took notice of me? A slight stiffening of his shoulders was the only indication Naruto was caught off guard. Only the ever-observant Ultear caught it. Seagrain looked faintly curious and expectant of the answer, but held an air of smug satisfaction. Naruto had probed too closely to his origins. It was only fair to put him on the spot. He had to be careful with his words. Naruto hadn't expected for Seagrain to turn the tables on him like this. I met him. He is or was now, I guess, a close friend of my sister Erza. Seagrain's eyes widened in surprise. Erza. She's your sister? His voice was deceptively smooth, shock firmly etched in the timbre. Yet Naruto didn't like the tone. He couldn't quite place it, but it carried undertones of deception. Like it was well practiced, forced and not genuine. Ultear frowned slightly. Despite being ordered by Hades to help Seagrain as much as possible and yet keep her cover intact as a mere lackey to the crazed mage, she refused to do so if he acted stupidly so early in their plans. She knew Seagrain wanted to meet Erza again. Whether it was to try and mock her or try and control her in some way wasn't clear. It seemed that the Shoji Meiho, possession magic, she'd used on him caused a slight obsession with her. She shrugged off any worries about it. If she'd learned anything over the years, it's that Naruto wouldn't allow anything to happen to Erza. He was extremely protective of her. Even so, if Seagrain kept poking the sleeping dragon that was Naruto, years of planning would be ruined, all for the sake of Seagrain's pride. All for trying to mock a single girl. So since she noticed the hint of anger in Naruto's face, she decided to step in. It was clear that Naruto was no less fooled by Seagrain's proclamation than she was. Did you need something from me, Naruto? Or do you make it a habit to walk around and yell my name randomly just for kicks? Ultear asked coyly. Naruto snapped out of the brief one-sided glaring contest he'd gotten into with Seagrain. Huh? Oh yeah. Ultear-chan. Erza made S-class today. You want to go out to dinner with us and celebrate? Ultear would have said yes no matter the reason to go out to dinner with Naruto. The puppy dog eyes he sported and hopeful grin would have made it impossible to say no, even if she had anything planned. Very well. Let me show Seagrain here where to put these files and from there we can go out to dinner. I'll meet you at the front desk, alright? I heard from several people that Erza was a close friend of my brother. Do you think I could talk to her and find out about him sometime? Seagrain inquired before Ultear could lead him away. He was grasping at straws but still insisted on possibly meeting Erza. Tired of playing this game and annoyed that Seagrain wanted to pester Erza, Naruto played the only card left that was both believable and would make Seagrain back off. Oi, that better not be a dumb excuse just to meet my sister. She's not old enough to date yet. Oh. So there is an age for her to date, is there? Ultear asked innocently, knowing how Naruto would react. He of course spluttered indignantly before recomposing himself. Why yes. No. I mean, maybe. You stay away from my little sister, pervert. Naruto pointed at Seagrain angrily. Ultear giggled lightly, the heavy atmosphere from before broken. Naruto truly was talented at diffusing tense situations, even if it was by Ultear's choice this time. It was highly amusing for her to see Naruto act this way. She did wonder where the pervert comment came from though. Seagrain was about the same age as Erza, so that didn't make much sense. Is that a threat, Naruto-san? Seagrain said politely, but with a sharp glint in his eye. Of course not. Naruto responded with fake cheerfulness, I warn off old boys that want to approach my sweet, naive, and easily impressionable Amato. She's much too innocent to hang out with any boys, and if they push too hard the one who pushes back might be me instead. He finished in a light tone, a tight grin on his face. Even though he was passing it off as a joke, the underlying threat was clear. Mess with Erza and you'll have to deal with Naruto. Just because he was playing up the older, protective brother role didn't make the threat any less real. Especially not with the cold, serious look in his eye as he said it. A faint scowl appeared on Seagrain's features at losing an opportunity to needle Erza. I'll keep that in mind then. Naruto only stared at him emotionlessly before he gave a brisk nod. He smiled at Ultear and then turned to leave, waving a hand over his shoulder. Ultear walked away in order to show Seagrain where to go next with the files they had. She was careful not to let her amusement show at watching Naruto threaten a member of the magical government. While it was true that they were both rather low in the pecking order, not many would threaten anyone that worked in any level of the Magic Council. Even so, she felt that Seagrain behaved a little too recklessly in his confrontation with Naruto. It would be wise not to aggravate Naruto again. Jellal. Ultear cautioned, he has quite a reputation as an S-class mage already, and I can assure you, he is just as smart as he is powerful. If you're not careful he could find out about the Tower of Heaven and how it wasn't destroyed by the Magic Council. There's no need to unnecessarily provoke him if antagonizing Erza is your only goal. Seagrain scowled but knew it to be true. Well then, I'm glad you are around to distract him. You did a great job in making sure he didn't look too far into the raids by the council. I admit I was a little too enthusiastic while meeting him, but I'll be more careful around him from now on. Fool. If by a little you mean you nearly had him ready to revisit the tower, then yes, you were only a little enthusiastic. I'll have to talk to Master Hades about my role concerning you, Jellal. I refuse to play the simpering lackey if you constantly put our plans to awaken Zeref in danger. Once clear of their line of sight, Naruto stopped for a moment. A puff of smoke later and a seal-less cage bunchen popped up next to him. You know what to do. Once you get the information, keep an eye on this Seagrain guy, and if anything important happens, dispel immediately. Oh come on boss, you serious? The clone whined. You know how hard it's gonna be to sneak into the council's record office and find the information for the 7 towers. That's if it's not classified too. Which will take even longer to find if it is. A tick mark developed over Naruto's eye. Shut up and do it or I'll just dispel you and make another one. Fine. The clone grumbled as it hopped to the ceiling and took off. Lazy ass slave driver. Now to go try and embarrass Erza-chan. Naruto rubbed his hands together and resisted the urge to cackle. Playing overprotective brother was fun sometimes, but playing the embarrassing older brother was much more hilarious. A full-course dinner later and after they finished Erza's story about her promotion, Ultear was once more re-evaluating the blonde in front of her. They had enjoyed a rather quiet and nice dinner up to that point. Their only topics of conversation so far had been Ultear's job and what each one of them had been up to since last they met. Eventually conversation shifted to the S-class promotional exams. The secrets of Tenrou and what it was like weren't discussed. Ultear didn't press for details as the island was sacred to those of fairy tale. When they got to the fight between Naruto and Erza though, that's when her interest was piqued. The raven-haired beauty knew that neither Erza nor Naruto exaggerated the events on the island. If anything, they downplayed their own strengths. I was right in keeping an eye on you, Naruto. The power you seem to have at your disposal, it's extraordinary. I'll have to think of a way for you to help me further my goal if overpowering you isn't an option. Ultear grinned into her glass as already thoughts of how Naruto could help her flitted through her mind. Well, it seems congratulations are in order, Erza. I'm sure I won't be the only one keeping an eye on you from here on out. Especially since you made S-class a full 2 years younger than your brother. Ultear teased as she looked at Naruto. Erza smiled too and joined in on the fun. On my first try too. I was up against Gildarts. Naruto protested. The girls only looked at him with pitying expressions. He folded his arms over his chest and frowned petulantly. I'm still awesome though. Both Erza and Ultear laughed at his sulking figure. Hey Nai-san, since you dragged me all the way here to brag to Ultear-san about my promotion, can I go pick my dessert out now? Erza said as she gave the both of them a pointed look. By now Erza's fondness of strawberry cake bordered on obsession, only rivaled by Naruto's love of ramen. Ultear knew this and often used it as a method of distraction between the two. Except in this instance she knew that Erza was trying to give them some time alone. When we awaken Zeref and reach the ultimate world of magic, I'll be sure to remember to do something nice for this girl. Ultear decided. She seems to approve of my getting closer to Naruto. Maybe I can work that angle. Fine. Naruto waved her away. Just don't throw a tantrum if they won't let you eat the entire cake. The restaurant they picked to dine at was famous for having their desserts freshly made on the spot with the help of magic. All one had to do was order and customize their dessert at the counter, and it would be made for them while they waited in a few short minutes. Erza stuck her tongue out at him and rushed away. Before she did, she tilted her head at Ultear and then looked at Naruto pointedly. A sly smile appeared on the raven-haired beauty's face and she nodded to show she understood. So tell me Naruto. What was your real reason in coming straight to me about Erza's promotion? Ultear asked curiously as she sipped on her drink. Naruto shrugged. Friends tell other friends good news to celebrate, right? No big secret or reason really. She certainly didn't need to know he liked spending time with her. It would only encourage her flirting. Not that she needed the encouragement. Ultear leaned forward and laid a hand over his arm on the table. I'm glad you consider me a friend, Naruto. Despite how polite and friendly you project yourself to be, we both know that you're a rather private person. Naruto didn't let his surprise show. Essentially she was right. He didn't really consider many people in Earthland his friends. For Ultear to pick up on it though, especially since he was never unfriendly or outright disrespectful to people, it showed how observant she was. We've been friends forever though, Ultear-chan, ever since we first met. Naruto grinned, remembering their first encounter. Even Ultear was amused at the memory by now. Yes, but if you tell me you decided to be friends with me since then I won't believe you. Ultear retorted dryly. Amused laughter filled the air, but Naruto ended it to change the topic of their talk. Ultear-chan, maybe it doesn't mean much to you, but I don't like that Seagrain guy. At the slight arch of her brow Naruto elaborated, I know I don't have much of a reason, but he just doesn't seem trustworthy. Be careful around him, Ultear-chan. I'd hate to be thrown in jail for kicking his ass if he hurt you. A gentle smile to ease his worries crossed Ultear's ruby lips. I appreciate the concern, Naruto. I will be wary of him. Although, Jellal should be the one wary of me if he keeps acting so recklessly all for the sake of a girl. Speaking of which, I noticed you got pretty defensive over his mentioning Erza. If it helps you any, I'll try and keep him from pestering her in the future as well. Naruto beamed and nodded gratefully. Sometimes it paid to have friends in high places. He knew sooner or later Erza would encounter Seagrain when he wasn't around. It'd be good to have Ultear there to keep an eye on her too. In order to lessen the damage between their inevitable meetings, Naruto knew he'd have to tell her of Seagrain soon. So she wasn't caught by surprise. Of course Ultear would do so not because of Erza, but because it would keep Jellal from messing up Master Hades' plans. She only said that to try and ingratiate herself further with the increasingly interesting golden-haired boy. Once Erza had returned and polished off far more cake than Naruto thought healthy, a slight change occurred between Ultear and Naruto. Where before when she flirted or tried to fluster him with small physical contact, he would play it off as her joking around. He'd crack jokes of his own and pretend not to notice her intentions. Now he just let her do it. He didn't shy away from the light amount of affection she showed, but he didn't return it either. To Erza though, this was a huge step. She didn't stare wide-eyed at the change between the two, only for fear of ruining it. She did however flash Ultear an approving grin when Naruto wasn't looking. Once their meal was done and paid for, the trio prepared to say their goodbyes. Do stop by more often, Naruto, Erza, it's nice to see my friends. She emphasized friends to solidify in Naruto's mind that she would look after Erza and to remind him to pop by more often. Erza bowed slightly, our apologies Ultear-san, but Naruto Aniki is really lazy sometimes. It's a chore getting him to do more than train, eat and sleep. I'll try and get him to visit more though. It would also serve the purpose of pushing them together, though she didn't mention that fact. Naruto quietly grumbled at how he had a lot of pushy women in his life, but he too promised to stop by more often. Before he and Erza could walk away though, Ultear stepped forward and kissed him on the cheek. Her lips lingered a second longer than strictly necessary. She stepped back and smiled once she saw the red rise in his cheeks. It was the first time she'd managed to get him so flustered. That's so you don't go back on your word, Naruto. She winked and giggled lightly as he shot her an annoyed glare. Erza grinned at the new ammo to tease Naruto with and started to pull him along. Let's go, Nai-san. I'm tired and just because you're irresponsible doesn't mean I'll let you keep Ultear-san here all night and make her late for work tomorrow. Hey. You're supposed to respect your elders. Don't say things like that about me. Naruto exclaimed indignantly. They exchanged their goodbyes and each walked to their separate destinations. Naruto and Erza to an inn for the night as it was too late to make it back to Magnolia before nightfall. Ultear back to her apartment to sleep after an interesting day. As she walked away from them she worked hard to convince herself that the reason she was feeling so giddy was because her plans were one step closer to fruition. If she could somehow secure some sort of influence over Naruto her dreams would be closer. She desperately tried to convince herself that the butterflies in her stomach weren't anything romantic. That she enjoyed making Naruto blush not because she liked his smile, but because of the power it granted her over him. Yet try as she might the little voice at the back of her head wouldn't stop telling her to quit fooling herself. Oh well, that was a worry for another day. For now, she had other things to do. X781, March. Again. Naruto's stern voice commanded. Aw come on Naruto. Just fight me. That'll make me way stronger than this. Natsu complained. Naruto rolled his eyes and pointed at the lake he assigned Natsu to run laps around. It's either this or I tell Lisana you and Happy skipped out on shopping with her to go fishing. Shooting the blonde a look of betrayal Natsu started running his laps again. He didn't like the boring training Naruto put him through, but at least the blonde did help him get stronger. Everyone else just brushed him off or laughed when he asked them to fight. Only Naruto either took him up on the offer or convinced him to do something else to make him stronger. He always reminded Natsu that he was the one determined to grow strong enough that he'd find Igneal and demand answers for why he left. You still training that boy? Why don't you just make a clone and leave it here while you work on our problem Kurama grumbled having just woken from a nap. Again. Naruto barked as Natsu finished a lap. It's not gonna get done any faster than I'm already working on it Fuzzface. I hit a roadblock and I'm hoping that by the time Erza-chan gets back I'll be over it. Taibi Kushina is helping you on this. Well at least someone competent is. Thank Kami. Oh screw you overgrown plushie. I'm getting plenty done. It's not exactly easy to break a deal with a Shinigami and release you without me dying too. Naruto yelled back without any real anger in his tone. Well maybe you're not as pathetic as I though. Any deal with a Shinigami is something to take seriously and handle carefully. Wake me up when we can start training on my magic again. Naruto didn't bother to reply and just let the giant chakra fox sleep. Of course the stupid furball had to rub it in his face again that he could do magic while Naruto can't. As Natsu staggered over to the tree Naruto was under he collapsed when he reached the shade. That was crazy Naruto. Natsu panted out between breaths. The wicked grin on his face Naruto simply unsealed a bottle of water and handed it over. In hindsight maybe making Natsu sprint laps around the lake with a boulder on his back and a shock seal on his chest wasn't the best idea. It sure was funny though. If he slowed down, Naruto would shock him. Don't complain Natsu. It'll make you faster. Which is exactly what you need with that fighting style of yours. Naruto said as he watched the pink-haired mage gulp down the water. They both sat in silence after Natsu finished his water, enjoying the shade and cool breeze. Not one to sit still for long it was Natsu who broke the quiet. Thanks Naruto. For, you know, helping me train and not making fun of me. He sheepishly confessed. Naruto only smiled and ruffled his hair. Natsu was showing a rare side of him, a grateful and heartfelt side to express his thanks. Not many took Natsu too seriously, especially since he was always so chipper and wild, but Naruto did. The young mage reminded Naruto a lot of himself in his younger days. Not in that he craved attention and did anything possible to get it, but in his determination come hell or high water to achieve his dream. So while others laughed and most didn't even believe in dragons, Naruto took Natsu seriously and helped him where and when he could. Sometimes even giving him money and passing along vague rumors of dragons. It was the least he could do, not laugh at someone else's dreams. Where's Erza? Natsu asked, grateful that Naruto didn't make a big deal of his thanks or tease him like others would. The blonde scratched his chin and thought. She's still on that S-class mission I think. Said something about not babying her anymore so she took it alone. Natsu nodded. Oh alright. Well when are we going home then? Nothing even got destroyed on this job, so how come we haven't left already? Natsu? Yes. Shut up. The pink-haired boy pouted but did listen. It wasn't often he could go on jobs with Naruto, so he didn't want to make him angry and be left behind on the next one. The duo sat in silence for another half hour. All the while Natsu fidgeted and did his best not to annoy Naruto. They weren't in Magnolia so Natsu couldn't just wander off or he'd get lost. Natsu squinted suspiciously at the older blonde. Wait a minute. We're not just waiting on you to buy some pervy books for the master are we? I want to go home Naruto. And I don't want Lisanna and Erza to yell at me again for doing that since they can't yell at you. Naruto snickered as he remembered the last time he sent Natsu to buy a book like that. Makarov had asked him to pick up a package for him in the town his job was at. Since it was an easy job he took Natsu along. Once it was finished he sent Natsu to pick up the book too as he was too lazy to do it himself. Little did he know that Natsu would open the book and when he couldn't understand what was going on, he asked Lisanna and Erza to explain it once back in Magnolia. Naruto barely escaped a beating that day by blaming it entirely on Natsu and Makarov. Natsu wasn't so lucky. There was no scapegoat for him to pass the blame off on. It had been extremely funny seeing Erza drag Natsu off to find someone to give him the talk, one of the finest memories of Naruto's life after he saw him come back from that. We're waiting for someone. It's a member from one of the smaller guilds around. I asked her master to loan me a few books and she's delivering them to me here. They're about magic and not pervy. Naruto explained lazily, no indication of getting up and doing anything more. Natsu frowned at the answer. Well, who is it? And how long do we have to wait? Lazily Naruto tilted his head to the right and nodded in that direction. Here she comes now. I thought you'd like to meet her. She's a Dorgan Suri, dragon slayer, just like you. Eyes wide in astonishment Natsu jumped to his feet and was about to take off to greet a fellow dragon slayer. Maybe she had news about Igneal. Naruto grabbed a hold of his shirt and forced him back down before he could get far. Don't scare her Natsu. His voice while calm was also markedly serious, she's very shy and I want you to be nice to her alright. Natsu looked confused and then a huge smile spread across his features. Don't worry Naruto. She's a dragon slayer just like me. I'll treat her great. Shaking his head since he believed the young mage entirely missed his point, he just waited for the girl to arrive. Wendy Marvell, the dragon slayer who wielded Tenno Metsurik Mom, Sky Dragon Slayer magic. She was young. Maybe 9 years old at most, had blue hair a little past her shoulders with bangs framing her face. Her eyes were a chocolate brown color and she wore a nervous smile. Normally she traveled with a talking cat just like Natsu, but she didn't have her today. Just as well, Naruto didn't really like cats. Memories of his genin days and chasing tore flickering through his head. Once Wendy reached the two members of Fairy Tail she stopped and bowed to greet them. Hello again Naruto-san. I have the books Master Raoul promised you. He did say that you should take care of them as they are old and very fragile. Having already met Natsu, when Naruto met Wendy for the first time he almost couldn't believe it. There was no way a girl who wielded magic as just like Natsu's could be so shy. Not if she'd been raised by a dragon just like Natsu was. Her master told Naruto of how shy, quiet and polite she was, but hoped she could increase her confidence with more interactions outside the guild. So Naruto whenever he had to meet up or get something off Raoul often asked for Wendy to meet him. The books he usually asked for were on runes and other types of Moji Mom, letter magic. Naruto hadn't forgotten his promise to both free Kurama and search for a way back home. Few in jutsu had similar aspects to Moji Mom, so he sometimes read books on them to try and get inspiration on his self-assigned tasks. He'd stumbled across the guild Kate shelter by complete accident when he asked his spy network to look up anyone that had those types of books. The older and rarer the book, the more convinced Naruto got that it would help. Hello Wendy-chan. Naruto reached over to pinch her cheeks lightly, earning himself a cute blush from the young girl. How are you today? Oh and let me introduce my apprentice, Natsu Dragneel. He's a dragon slayer just like you. Hey. I'm not your ow. He was cut off of any protest by a sharp cuff to the back of his head. Grumbling at the abuse Natsu nevertheless shook it off to introduce himself. Hi I'm Natsu and I use no Metsurik Mom, Fire Dragon Slayer magic. Is it true you're a dragon slayer too? Wendy let out a soft eep. And almost retreated within herself. She summoned her courage and introduced herself to someone that was essentially a sibling, judging by the magic they learned. I'm Wendy. Wendy Marvell and I use Tenno Metsurik Mom, Sky Dragon Slayer magic. Nice to meet you Natsu-san. Whatever conversation occurred after that was promptly ignored by the golden-haired teen. Wendy had given him 3 separate books on runic magic, ancient spells, and illusions. Separate they made little to no sense in helping him solve his problem with Kurama. Together though, and reading the specific pages Raoul had marked out, Naruto started to form a basic idea of what to do. One of the chapters explained how with layered enchantments and spells, you could in theory create or switch a person's alignment. Their core beliefs. This was interesting to Naruto as it suspiciously sounded a lot like Shisui Uchiha's Kodamatsukami, distinguished heavenly gods. Which brought up a very intriguing point for Naruto. If it was possible to recreate one technique exclusively of the Manjutsu Sharingan, then perhaps he could recreate another. To be more precise, perhaps he could recreate Kamui, authority of the gods. If he did that then perhaps he could even reproduce the accident that got him to Earthland and go back. Going one step further, if in theory it all worked out, he could quite possibly locate Sasuke finally. From there anything was possible as he might be able to travel freely between Konoha and Fiori whenever he wanted. Of course this was all in theory and he was getting far ahead of himself. He didn't even know if it was possible yet theoretically, let alone in practice. He looked up when he heard a startled yell come from Wendy. It seemed that Natsu, always full of energy, had decided to show off some of his magic to Wendy. Probably to prove that they were both dragon slayers and to befriend her easier. Unfortunately the thick-headed kid had gone overboard with one of the spells he used to blow a tree to smithereens and got injured in the backlash. Wendy was fussing over him and trying to heal him with her magic. "Whoa Wendy, you're awesome," Natsu yelled in jubilation. He got to his feet and patted himself down in awe, injuries already healed by Wendy. "We're definitely friends now Wendy. Come on, I'll show you this cool trick Naruto taught me." Wendy only squeaked in surprise when Natsu grabbed her by the arm and dragged her over to the lake to show her another spell. She didn't protest as Natsu grew increasingly excited and tried to cajole her into showing him some more of her magic. Naruto watched over them and looked on in approval at the effect Natsu was already having on her. She was still enormously shy and quiet but was now able to meet Natsu's eyes when they talked. Baby steps. No one could expect her to change overnight after all. "How come you're so fond of the pink-haired brat?" There weren't many that Kurama noticed Naruto went out of his way to talk to, Natsu was one of them though. Oh, he was never rude or impolite when talking to people, but that didn't mean he liked talking to them either. Often he'd ignore everyone but a very sparse few that interested him. So the strongest of the Bijuu was curious to find out the reasons Natsu caught his container's eye. "Don't you think that there's something familiar about him? Something that reminds you of someone else?" Kurama snorted. "I don't have time to play guessing games. I know you don't mean that he's a bigger idiot than you were at his age, so what are you talking about?" Naruto grinned but kept reading his book and talking to Kurama. Dragon Slayers. A lost magic not seen in eons according to the history books. And yet there are rumors of 3 and maybe more Dragon Slayers popping up recently. All wield a terribly strong power if Natsu's any indication. The story's tall 9-tailed fox was many things, but stupid not one of them. Angry. Yes. Powerful. Without a doubt. But not stupid. You can't compare Dragon Slayers to the Jinchuriki of your world Naruto. Their situations are totally different. That would make my brethren similar to dragons. Naruto shrugged but kept pressing the issue. "We both read the history of this world Kurama. Dragons are supposed to appear only in times of a great change coming to the world. They are the heralds of the storms of change. I'm sure most of it is myth considering dragons were plentiful hundreds of years ago, but didn't the Bijuu have similar myths in the shinobi world? About how they appeared only in places of concentrated malice to wipe out the wicked and keep the balance. So you wish to help this boy on the small chance he'll be needed in the future. Just like the Jinchuriki were needed in our own world." The situation still didn't match up in Kurama's opinion, but he couldn't exactly stop Naruto from doing what he wanted. "Yeah." Natsu successfully completed the spell he wanted to show Wendy and somehow convinced her to give him a high five. He was jumping around in joy and she had a small smile on her face. "Well, that and the kid makes me laugh. It's good to see him interact with others that are just like him. Kami knows I would have loved to meet my fellow Jinchuriki when I was a kid." The light breeze ruffled Naruto's hair and he quietly shut the books before sealing them away. He slowly got to his feet and made clone, but with a few extra hand seals of his modification. Once the smoke cleared, the clone looked to Naruto in confusion. There were small differences between the two. Most noticeable were the whisker marks on the cheeks and slitted eyes. "Are we training now, Brad? I thought you wanted to wait till Chibi Kushina returned before you tried modifying this clone to hold more of my power." Naruto shook his head and pointed at the 2 young mages who were now playing in the water. "Something came up. Watch over them for me. You're plenty powerful as you are, and if you need more power I'll be nearby for a refill." Kurama caught the sharp glint in Naruto's eye and understood the hidden request. "Don't take too long, Brad. I don't like kids." Naruto watched his tenant leave and walk over to the young wizards. The modified cage bunchen, the most recent attempt at releasing Kurama from the seal without killing Naruto. If only to stretch the giant fox's legs for a bit at least. It had taken a little under 2 years of effort to tweak the Haki no Fukin Shiki and allow a sliver of Kurama's power out into a clone and let Kurama act independently. The results were worth it for the moment and appreciated by the fox, even if he would never say it out loud. Naruto walked away and into the woods by the lake until it was no longer in view. He stopped and looked around, deeming the place satisfactory for his needs. Not too much space and not too little. Plenty of distance from here to Natsu and Wendy. "You can come out now. I don't know why you've been spying on us, but if you're after me then come out. I want to know what I did to draw your attention." Naruto heard a twig snap to his left and so was slightly surprised when a person appeared to his right. "Impressive. The rumors of your skill are not exaggerated, Tempest of Fairy Tale. The unnamed person remarked mildly. Naruto looked the person over to see if he could identify him. Nothing came to mind though, as the person's face was hidden behind a white mask with black eye holes and red lines curving upwards above the eyes. He was wearing a dark grey hooded cloak, fastened just below the collar, and that hid most of his body. Only grey trousers and boots were seen under the cloak. My name is Chase of Carbuncle. It's pointless to hide who I am, as I'm sure you were close to figuring out anyways. Naruto's sweat dropped as he had absolutely no idea who the guy was prior to him talking. I was hired to convince the little girl Wendy to join another guild and take any and all belongings she had with her. Defeating the famed Tempest of Fairy Tale is only a bonus. Naruto grinned as he cracked his knuckles. I'm lucky you're too dumb to wait until I left to attack Wendy. You weak mages think that beating me is going to be so easy. You're like the 10th person to think that about me. Chase crouched low as he prepared to attack. For insulting me, I'll make sure to make this defeat extra painful. Air covered his eyes and left them in shadow, a wide and vicious grin on his face only served to make Naruto even more intimidating. Heh, bring it. Chapter 11. Don't blink. Naruto advised. Chase tensed minutely where he stood and idly wondered what he meant by that. Until he made the mistake of blinking and had Naruto disappear right before his very eyes. The blonde's speed was ridiculous as he reappeared instantly directly in front of him, fist already on a path to Chase's face. There was no time to express any sort of surprise as fist impacted with mask. A thunderous blow echoed loudly within the forest. Chase was rocketed away by the force of the punch, lifted off his feet easily. The mask he wore didn't crack, but he wasn't sure if he was thankful for that or angry because it hurt his face nonetheless. A huge crash and only the thickness of a tree 20 meters away prevented Chase from going any further due to the force of the blow. Slowly he got back to his feet and faced Naruto again as the powerful blonde hadn't bothered to follow up on the attack. Why are you after Wendy? Who hired you? White Haori flapping in the wind, eyes burning with intense resolve, posture loose and light but guarded. Even if he was young, this mage certainly had no trouble radiating power and intimidation. Hatch. Chase ignored the question. He quickly pulled out a throwing knife and launched it at Naruto. The flash of sunlight on the metal distracted Naruto's attention for a split second and allowed the mage from Carbuncle to vanish. The ears of dodging kunai allowed Naruto to effortlessly dodge the knife as well. He strained his ears for the faintest whistle of more knives cutting through the air in case Chase tried a sneak attack. Blue and brown eyes swept side to side all around the clearing, watching for the faintest sign of him. Naruto stayed calm despite finding no trace of him and then hearing his disembodied voice speak. Fear the shadows, for within them lurks the unknown. Not even the mighty Tempest can blow away that which he doesn't see and can't understand. Chase taunted, his voice cutting through the air. Naruto snorted. You think this scares me? I've had to face people throwing their voices and hiding from me since I was a child. The first time was when my team had to fight a man known only as the Demon of the Mist. You're nowhere near as good as him, and I'm nowhere near as weak as then. Dark chuckles emanated from all around Naruto. You aren't my objective, Tempest, Wendy is. As soon as I defeat you though, I'll take my time convincing her to come with me. Or are you telling me that you don't know the value of the Sky Sorceress? A rain of knives fell upon the blonde, who quickly jumped backwards and away from the attack. He evaded the knives with ease as he twisted and danced around the falling metal until he ended up with his back to a tree. His instinct screamed for him to dodge and he did. Only narrowly missing being impaled by a sword Chase tried to stab him with as he emerged from the shadow of one of the trees. Blonde eyebrows furrowed together in concentration. This is Cage Mom, shadow magic. I've never been up against it, but if it's anything like the shadow jutsu of the Nara clan, it'll be troublesome getting in close. Heh, troublesome. Jay stepped fully out of the shadows and faced the blonde teen. Warily the two fighters circled each other, looking for the slightest opportunity to attack. Ah, I see you figured out I'm using my shadow form. Naruto blinked in wonder at how this guy just kept telling him things that he hadn't figured out yet. You might have gotten lucky on my first attempt, but will your luck hold out the longer we fight? Laughing lowly, Naruto reacted by leaping backwards and into the shadows of the forest himself. It looked like he had just melted into the shadows, mimicking the actions of Chase. You seem pretty confident in your shadow magic, Chase. Let's see how you deal with someone raised and trained to fight in the shadows as part of his profession. Naruto's baritone echoed all around, letting Chase experience what others often felt. Page Mao, shadow dance. Chase intoned as Naruto made no moves to step back into sight. A bright yellow magic circle shimmered into existence beneath Chase before his shadow multiplied around him. His single shadow split into various copies with him in the center and circled around him. The mage of Carbuncle then melted into the shadows at his feet before each one of them darted into the tree line. He was looking for Naruto and sought him out with his magic. Blonde eyebrows rose in interest at the unique magic displayed before him. The lone shinobi contemplated what to do next as he now had multiple shadows to watch out for and he didn't know if Chase could pop out of any one of them or if they were distractions. Surprise was quickly tempered into wariness as Naruto felt Chase appear behind him and throw him out of the shadow of the tree he was hiding in. The throw had caught him off guard and so he couldn't stop himself from being flung to the ground. Did you really think you could hide from me, Tempest? The shadows are my domain, not yours. Chase taunted in an attempt to anger Naruto. It didn't work. You talk too much. If you're feeling so chatty, why not tell me why you're after Wendy? His white Haori didn't get a smudge of dirt on him as Naruto turned in midair and landed on his feet, ready and expecting an attack from the shadow mage. His patience was rewarded as from the corner of his eye, Naruto saw a shadow rush him from the forest. As the shadow seemed to jump at him, Naruto spun and tried to connect with a spinning back kick. He was caught off guard for the second time in as many minutes as he didn't feel his foot connect with anything solid. It passed through the shadow like it wasn't there, even though he could clearly see its form. The shadow latched onto his leg right as it passed through it and didn't just avoid the hit. Instead, the shadow crawled up and around his body before wrapping around him. Naruto spun around to see if he could dislodge the shadow mage, but found he couldn't even find him. His movements were stopped when several swords and knives erupted outwards from his body. Naruto was frozen in shock as he stared at the metal digging its way out of his skin. Kay smirked as he leapt away from his victim. I expected more from the mighty S-class wizard of fairy tale. Looks like I'll be completing my job a lot sooner than I thought. Naruto's face, locked in pain, twisted into a smirk before with a pop he vanished into a cloud of smoke. Where he stood earlier, only the knives and swords lay on the ground. Kay stared wide-eyed at the spot the blonde had disappeared from. Wow. He couldn't get to finish what he was going to say as his legs were swept out from under him by Naruto. Another Naruto then caught him in mid-air with a kick that launched him vertically, where a third Naruto met him and kicked him even higher. Case's eyes widened in surprise as at the apex of his flight, he met another Naruto who was ready to deliver a devastating axe kick to the masked mage. Uzumaki barrage. Naruto said as he kicked him in the stomach. Case gasped while he felt the air leave his lungs. That kick hurt like hell. Fortunately for him, he had enough presence of mind to use his magic and disappear into the magic circle on the ground where his shadow was, instead of crashing onto the hard unforgiving earth. Tell me who sent you after Wendy. Naruto commanded as Chase stumbled out of another shadow. The cloaked wizard of Carbuncle was clearly hurt as he was holding a hand to his side, where he likely had a few cracked ribs. The man's labored breathing and slumped posture also showed how much damage he took. When no reply came, Naruto feared Chase wouldn't know. If he didn't know why, then it would make it harder to possibly stop future attacks on Wendy from happening. All Naruto needed was a slight hint as to the problems and reasons for trying to get the little girl, anything to help protect her. She was a cute kid and Naruto had a soft spot for children. Have it your way. Naruto said as he held his hand out to his side and concentrated. Within a few seconds, the trademark jutsu that he was known for all over the elemental countries formed in his hand. Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Invoking a wordless and seal-less Shunshin, Naruto appeared directly behind Chase, catching him right as the wizard turned to try and dodge. Behind his mask, Chase's eyes widened as Naruto shoved the spinning ball of chakra into his stomach, the injuries from the physical attack seconds ago, not allowing the mage to avoid this follow-up. The force that the jutsu launched Chase away from Naruto was greater than even the kick and punch he received earlier. As a result, he could do nothing to stop his flight through several branches and ending up plowing a trench in the dirt as he came to a stop. But the pain-grown Chase tried to lift himself off the ground but nearly cried out in pain from that simple action. He started coughing and would have spit out the glob of blood in his mouth if he wasn't wearing a mask. Ah, I see you knew I would use my cage mouse spell Tempest and countered accordingly. But how are you alive after I speared you with all those knives and swords? I know that was you aren't known for illusions, so it had to be your real body. Chase wheezed out painfully between short-labored breaths. Naruto sweat dropped at the guy's continuous and highly inaccurate praising of his skills. Yes, he was strong, but he definitely didn't know half the stuff this Chase guy was saying he did. Brown and blue eyes twinkled in amusement as he tapped his nose. That's a secret. I can't go around telling everyone how I fight, can I? Angry and feeling lightheaded and overwhelmed from the pain, the carbuncle mage simply settled back down on the ground and with a last painful shuddering breath passed out. Before Naruto could move forward to try and capture Chase, a blonde and busty girl dropped down next to the downed mage. It seems like you win this round, Tempest. Unfortunately, we can't stick around for long. We'll have to continue this little spat another time. Next time I'll be your opponent. Naruto scowled but could do nothing as a magic circle surrounded both the mages and made them disappear. It must have been some sort of last resort transportation spell, since he doubted Chase had the magic, nor was he awake to make them leave. Only the girl's last words were left behind, as her cruel and mocking smile was the last thing to vanish. My name is Coordinator of Carbuncle. The next time we meet, I'll show you the true skills of a wizard of Carbuncle. Your sister Erza is far from being the best equipped mage around. Naruto let out a deep breath after making sure they really were gone for good. He straightened from his defensive posture and pinched his nose in irritation. Man, what was up with those weirdos? I didn't even get much out of them besides their target. I'll have to talk to Master Raoul about this and see if he knows anything. Woohoo. Yeah, Naruto, you showed them. See, Wendy, I told you he'd be alright. Natsu's loud cheering snapped Naruto out of his reflections and made him seek the young boy out. 1. Natsu? What are you doing here? Naruto asked incredulously as he looked for the boy. At first he couldn't find the source of all the cheering, but then the air in front of a particularly sturdy bunch of trees seemed to crack and splinter before shattering like glass. The clear and empty spot that was there before the air shattered revealed Natsu, Wendy and Kurama clone standing there. Yo. Kurama waved carelessly from his seat on top of a tree branch. Naruto-san, are you alright? Wendy asked worriedly as she ran to him and checked him over. Naruto indulged the little girl before patting the top of her head, earning himself another small blush. Boy, Wendy-chan sure gets flustered real easily. He then had to bop the top of Natsu's head to stop him from jumping around like an excited monkey. What are you guys doing here? Naruto asked again, he then glared at the snickering whiskered version of himself in the tree, and why the hell did you let them come? I told you to watch over them, not take them on a field trip. Naruto, you're so awesome. How'd you do that spinning ball thingy? Huh. And I bet that was your clone. The rest of Natsu's rant, questions and excitable chatter was promptly ignored as Naruto continued glaring at his tenant. Wendy started to fidget uncomfortably and she tried to stick up for what she assumed was another of Naruto's clones that decided to play a prank on the original again. Naruto had been by often enough to Kate's shelter that Wendy knew it wasn't exactly out of the question for his clones to be acting up again. Don't be angry at your clone, Naruto-san. It was really our fault. Naruto didn't believe her but chose to let her continue. Natsu-san noticed how you left us alone and had a clone watch us, and he said he smelled someone around us earlier. He thought that you were probably off fighting him, and I offered to make sure you were alright and didn't get hurt, so we followed you. Naruto couldn't bring himself to glare or show any sort of anger after seeing how downcast Wendy's expression became. She really was a timid little girl and very fearful of disappointing him. It's alright, Wendy-chan. I should have known Natsu would drag you into trouble. This actually might work out for the best. I did introduce them so Natsu could bring her out of her shell. Still doesn't explain why my clone let you come though. Naruto finished balefully glaring at Kurama. I don't like kids. I already told you that. Kurama shrugged unrepentantly, but when this pink-haired menace he pointed at Natsu threatened to run off and save the day, I had to follow to keep him out of trouble. That blue-haired one did say she would heal you, but I guess she doesn't know you don't need a healer. Your clone is so cool, Naruto. He said he was going to create a barrier or something but with an illusion so we could hide and watch what you did. It was so awesome. Natsu once again jumped up and down in excitement as he recounted what had happened. Naruto looked over at his now part-time tenant to see if he could explain it better. Kurama shrugged, just because you're pitiful at illusions doesn't mean I am too. I roamed the world for centuries before meeting you. I had plenty of time to master some useful talents. That was an illusion weaved together with a barrier to shield from any stray attacks. Whatever, fuzz face. Time to go. Naruto brought his fingers into a ram seal and forcefully dispelled Kurama. Ignoring the threats of the Bijuu in his gut, Naruto turned to the tiny girl in their group. Well, looks like it's time to go now, Wendy-chan. We aren't busy, so how about we escort you back to your guild? You can get to know Natsu better along the way. Alright. Let's go, Wendy. I'll tell you all about the time I almost beat Naruto in a fight, but let him win, of course. You see, it started out. Natsu's voice faded in the distance as he dragged Wendy along and he continued to regale her with stories where he always seemed to come out the hero. So what did the guy want, brat? Those young dragon slayers may not have heard what you said there at the end, but I did. Did you find anything useful out while fighting that I missed? Kurama grumbled after he calmed down and no longer threatened to dismember his jailer. Naruto shook his head. No. He didn't say much about Wendy, and then that other girl showed up before I could capture him. All I can do now is try and dig up information on Carbuncle and those two wizards. I'll also ask Raoul if he might know why Wendy was targeted, but there's not much else I can do. At least you have something to go on. It'd be a lot worse if your attackers weren't as stupid as they are for giving you their names and guild, Kurama pointed out. A smirk found its way onto Naruto's face as he agreed with his tenant. His opponents had been unusually chatty, but he couldn't bring himself to complain. As he walked in the direction of Natsu's distinct yelling, he couldn't help but wonder if there wasn't another reason for the attack. It seemed a bit too straightforward for a kidnapping attempt or theft of Wendy's belongings. Even if he was a relatively new S-rank mage, not many wizards went around attacking a powerful opponent if they weren't forced to, even for the fame. He shrugged those concerns off as mere paranoia as he neared the two children he was watching over. "Boy Natsu, quit messing around and let's head to town. We have to catch the train from Frisia so we can head over and drop Wendy-chan off at Kate's shelter," Naruto called out to the pink-haired dragon slayer. The blonde grabbed the back of Natsu's scarf and began dragging him away in a completely different direction than he was going. Several hours later, an annoyed Natsu looked at his guildmate and friend, eyes trying to convey the problem to the blonde. "Are you sure you know where we're going, Naruto? We're not lost again, are we?" Natsu asked, not for the first time in the last hour, let alone the entire day. "Of course we're not," Naruto snapped irritably. They then passed a cliff that resembled a giant thumb for the fourth time. "Really?" Natsu droned skeptically. Naruto wouldn't admit it, but he wasn't exactly paying attention to where he was going. He kept getting distracted by the most random things and just walked off in that direction. Of course this meant he kept losing track of where they were, but it didn't matter much to him. Irritating Natsu was pretty funny, so he didn't see a reason to worry just yet. "Hey, are you sure we're heading in the right direction, Naruto-san?" Wendy asked nervously as she swore they passed this particular set of gnarled trees and distinct rocks for the sixth time. Naruto ruffled her hair playfully. "Wendy-chan, I'll have you know, I have an excellent sense of direction." Inwardly he added, "I also have a terribly short attention span, but it's all look curiously." "Naruto, the lake we were at was only like a half-hour's walk away from town," Natsu complained. The Haori-clad teen shrugged. "So? We've been walking around for hours," Natsu cried in frustration. He looked around, annoyed at finding that they'd somehow turned around yet again while they were talking. Naruto patted the pink-haired boy's head gently. "Just leave this sort of stuff to the grown-ups, Natsu." He sent a discreet wink to the blue-haired girl walking alongside him in hopes of calming her down. The young healer of the group caught the wink and giggled lightly, correctly assuming that Naruto was now just messing with Natsu. She'd been getting worried that they weren't going to make it back to town, but now she wasn't as nervous as before. Naruto definitely knew where they were and was only messing with Natsu now to annoy him. "Hey Natsu, you're in the forest a lot. What direction does moss grow on trees again?" "South, right?" They weren't really lost. "Ah. Naruto, just let me hold the map. Everyone knows moss grows on the west side because if you flip the M in moss upside down, it's the W in west. You're hopeless. Well, probably not lost." "Hey. That's no way for an apprentice to talk to his master, you brat. Show some respect." "Hopefully. I'll show you respect when you show me the way out. Why are you so ho-pow?" "So, what did you find out?" A feminine figure, clad in an all-white cloak, asked the two mages in front of her, having just returned from the job she hired them for. They decided to meet in a bar, a seedy establishment that had seen far better days. The windows were cracked and caked with dirt, the tables were all full of scratches and wobbled worse than a penguin, and the atmosphere reeked of distrust and anger. Even the lighting was dim and did nothing to lift the mood. In short, it suited their needs perfectly. Anyone that didn't frequent a place like this would be spotted instantly. They had something delicate to discuss and it wouldn't do to have it overheard. All others that might have a chance of overhearing something knew better than to spread it around. There is a certain honor among thieves, and it helped that they all feared the carbuncle mages that were sitting at the table. It was they who chose where to meet, knowing no one would dare eavesdrop or spread information on their meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't find out much Ultear-sama. He didn't use many magic spells, only what I suspect is that clone technique you told us about and a new one in his hand. Coordinator informed their client as Chase was having difficulty breathing still. Ultear, having grown tired of how little information she knew and how easily Naruto finished his jobs, had hired two mages from a rival guild to fight him and get more info on his power. None of the accounts given or submitted on Naruto's jobs gave an accurate assessment of his skills. Some swore he was the second coming of the Dark Wizard Zeref himself, based on how powerful he was. While others merely stated he was just slightly above average strength-wise as he completed his jobs with the utmost efficiency. There really was no accurate way to find out without experiencing or seeing his powers firsthand. Ultear didn't want to seem suspicious about asking Naruto to show how strong he was, so she figured that if he was forced to use them in a fight, then all the better for her. She still needed a way to overpower him or at least control him in the future to further her goals. He didn't use any lightning, water, or wind spells like the rumors say he's mastered. Ultear pressed, leaning forward in her seat to catch every word of their report. Chase gave in to a racking cough that he'd been trying to hold off. "And no, none of that, Ultear-sama. Even the new spell that he hit me with at the end wasn't any of the elemental magics." Ultear frowned and grew annoyed at how little information this had turned out. Well, what was this new spell? Is it a particularly powerful brand of magic? She was surprised Naruto hadn't used even his fire magic, a brand of magic she knew he mastered and had seen him wield personally before. He called it Rasengan. We don't know what type of magic it is though, sorry. All we could deduce is that it's a type of caster magic, perhaps even molding magic. Coordinator reported faithfully. She hated failing a job, but while she'd put up a brave front in front of Tempest, she knew when she was outclassed. A man that had used maybe only 2 spells in his entire fight with Chase and still beaten him severely was extremely strong and not to be taken lightly. Chase wasn't a pushover either. He was exceptional in his mastery of shadow magic. Ultear leaned back into her chair and slipped into thought, pulling her drink closer to her. I see. I suppose there's not much to do now. I can't exactly be upset at this turnout, not if you manage to successfully get away and throw him off the trail of the real reason he was attacked. Yes, telling the carbuncle mages to make a story up about pursuing Wendy was a brilliant idea. Naruto was the type to worry and obsess over the safety of his friends and so wouldn't even question if it was true or not. He was paranoid like that and wouldn't even consider that he was the true target. There are so many rumors about you, Naruto. The first being unconfirmed reports of water, wind, and lightning magic which won you your nickname. Now there's possibly molding magic at work. I know you've mastered fire magic and are skilled in teleportation magic, but I need to know more. Ultear mused silently. She took a sip of her drink to process everything she'd been told so far. How can I get you to help me in my ultimate dream if I don't know more about you? You're so infuriating and so interesting, my dear Tempest. Ultear muttered, too quiet for anyone else to hear. If I may, Ultear-sama. Chase remarked, breaking the silence that had set in. Ultear cocked a brow in silent question, then tilted her head, allowing Chase to ask what he wanted. If you need or would like another attempt to find out Tempest's skills, I'd be more than willing to give it another try. The masked man offered, trying to keep the frustration of his defeat out of his voice. The raven-haired mage wasn't fooled. She was skilled at manipulating people and so understood why he offered to attack Naruto again. Why would I expect different results next time? Naruto Scarlet is an S-ranked mage for a reason, he learns from every experience he has, unless you were holding back on him last time he'll be expecting and devising ways to counter you if you meet again. Coordinator gripped Chase's shoulder tightly lest he say something he'd regret. That may be so, but if you would at least consider Carbuncle again for a future job we would appreciate it. Perhaps all Chase needs is a little variety, something to throw Tempest off his game. I'm sure I can provide that. Ultear smiled wickedly, she hadn't meant to start a rivalry or a grudge between these wizards and Naruto, but she wouldn't turn away the potential it had. Of course. I can't promise anything in the immediate future, but if I need more information on Naruto Scarlet, I'll be sure to think of Carbuncle first to obtain it. Both wizards from Carbuncle nodded in satisfaction. Each one silently swore to pay Naruto back with interest the humiliation they had suffered at his hands. The humiliation of being completely outclassed and not leaving a scratch on him. Magnolia, fairy tale. We're back. Natsu shouted as he kicked the guild's doors in and ran inside. It was a few days after their encounter with those 2 wizards after meeting Wendy. Naruto and Natsu had dropped her off at Kate's shelter, and Naruto had taken the time to ask Raubal about anything that might shed light on why Wendy was targeted. In the meantime, Natsu had bonded some more with a little girl that he considered his sibling disciple. Perhaps it wasn't too obvious, but the seeds of a great friendship had already started to grow. After they left Wendy at her guild with an agreement to have Natsu and her meet up as often as possible, Naruto and Natsu took their time getting back to Magnolia. They didn't have any pressing issues to take care of, so they just enjoyed the time they spent together. The rowdy guild didn't even bat an eye at their entrance. All were used to different members and their eccentricities. Gildarts would just as easily destroy a wall to get in as knock a door down. The rest of the guild were used to violent outbursts and seemed to not only look forward to them, but felt ill at ease if they went any amount of time without some. That was what gave Fairy Tail its charm though. Natsu, over here. Come and tell us how your mission went. Lysana cried out to him. She waved him over to her table where a few of the other young wizards were sitting. Happy was happily eating a fish as he sat in her lap. Kana was eating some food, Levi was reading a book, Gray was playing around with his magic-making miniature sculptures of eyes, and Elfman was talking to his sister Marahin. Natsu bounded over to the group eager to tell them of his job with Naruto. Naruto made to go to the bar but was interrupted on his way there. Naruto, I need to speak to you in my office. Makarov yelled as he stuck his head out his office door before closing it again. Wondering what it could possibly be about, Naruto went straight to the master's office. Upon reaching the 2nd floor and entering, he noticed that he wasn't alone. Sitting in a chair in front of the master's desk was a cloaked figure. He wore a dark blue bandana with a silver forehead protector and a green mask that covered the lower half of his face, much like Kakashi. His arms and legs were mostly wrapped in bandages, and his only weapons were several staves by his side that could be hooked onto that dark green strap going across his chest. Naruto eyed the unknown person warily before he too made to take the other seat in front of the desk. Before he sat down he offered the person a hand to shake. "Hello, I was taught that it's rude to ask a name without introducing yourself first, so my name is Naruto Scarlet. Nice to meet you." Though he couldn't see it, the stranger's eyes widened in slight surprise at meeting the famed Tempest of Fairy Tail so soon. He cautiously accepted the blonde's hand and shook it. "My name is Mystigan. Nice to meet you too." The blonde nodded and turned back to the master. "So what's up, master?" He held up a hand before Makarov could respond. "Before you ask, no, I couldn't get you that book you wanted. I'm pretty sure Natsu would have tattled on me to Erza-chan and I didn't want to risk a beating again." Makarov's face flushed in embarrassment as Mystigan looked on between the two in amusement. "We can talk about that later, Naruto. Mystigan has just decided to join Fairy Tail and he is from another country too." Mystigan stiffened slightly for fear of Makarov, revealing he was from Idola's already, "So since he's new around here, I was hoping you could show him around." "Another country you say? Yeah, that's fine, master. Is there anything else you wanted?" Naruto asked, scratching at an itch on his cheek. It sounded like an innocent enough request from Makarov, but he doubted he was called up to the office for something so simple. Makarov folded his arms in front of him and his face lost all traces of amusement. "Yes. I got your message about those wizards who attacked you. Can you tell me exactly what happened? I need to know more information." Mystigan waited patiently for the two to talk and listened attentively. He had joined Fairy Tail and embraced their philosophy. The guild was family, which was why he liked it and decided to join, so any harm to the family had to be avoided and watched out for. While he would still try and remain as private as possible, it wouldn't do to allow danger to his comrades to go unchecked. "So Natsu, how was your job with Naruto?" Lysandra asked as she finished wiping the mess Happy made with his fish. "It was awesome." Natsu started to wave his hands around enthusiastically. "Naruto had to fight this guy that disappeared almost as good as he does and he won. Naruto had told him to keep Wendy's involvement quiet on their way back to Magnolia. Natsu had heard Che say something about Wendy, but luckily Wendy either hadn't caught it or hadn't been paying attention, so didn't know about it. So to help keep the limelight off her until at least they knew why she was being targeted, Naruto made sure Natsu knew to keep her name quiet around the guild. The less people that knew about Wendy, the fewer questions were asked, the better overall for her safety. He also took the time to tease Natsu about how jealous Lysandra would be at having a girl to compete with for Natsu's heart. The pink-haired teen's face sported a blush that far outstripped his hair color. "But then we got lost for hours, Lysandra. Naruto's terrible with directions. Next time I'll take the lead, I'm way better at finding my way than he is. He is so much more trouble than me." Natsu wailed miserably. He glossed over the job details in favor of highlighting what to him was the most important part of his time with Naruto, the fight with Chase. "Yeah, right. You get into lots of trouble on your own, Naruto being with you probably kept you out of trouble even though you're so annoying. I pity the guy." Gray muttered. Natsu instantly shot to his feet and butted heads with the ice mage. "What was that, droopy eyes? You got a hearing problem do you now, you birthday candle?" Gray growled back. "Tough talk for a walking ice pack." Natsu shoved Gray's head away. "Flamer. Glorified ice cube. Wet charcoal. Fruit of the gloom." Anna, sick of their childish taunts, said the only thing that would make them shut up. "Oh hey Erza. When did you get back?" Instantly both boys paled and looked around wildly for the armored girl. Murahin of course also looked around for her self-proclaimed rival. "Oh? So that walking tin can is back. Where is she? We need to settle who's stronger once and for all." Of course Kana had forgotten that Murahin was around and would pick up the slack that Natsu and Gray left off. "Hey, what's all the fuss about? Natsu probably did something dumb again didn't he?" Naruto announced his return by popping over to the table where all the younger mages were sitting. He'd foregone his usual Haori and only wore his vest, but with a short-sleeved black shirt. He still had dark pants on with the ends wrapped up, but they were of a light material. Some days were hot in Magnolia, and so he dressed for comfort as much as possible. The blonde cut off Natsu's indignant protests with a wave of his hand before ushering Mystigan forward. The masked man grimaced slightly at possibly meeting and spending more time with the others, but reluctantly obeyed. If worse came to worse, he'd just actively avoid his guildmates in the future instead of ignoring them like planned. "Okay Natsu, I have a job for you," the young dragon slayer straightened visibly. "I'm heading off for a while to help our newest member Mystigan get settled in Magnolia. Erza should be coming back soon, so if you see her tell her I'm away but will be back in a few days, alright?" Everyone around them waved and said a polite hello to the masked wizard. Hey, I'm not just a message boy Naruto. If you want me to do that then fight me. I won't do things like this for free you know. Natsu exclaimed smashing his fists together and lighting them on fire. They were instantly put out as Murahin smashed his head into the ground. Grr. Shut up already Natsu. If Naruto wants you to deliver a message then just do it already and quit being so annoying. Naruto withheld a snicker at the sight of the excitable teen once again getting beat up by a girl. Usually it was Erza, but Murahin was pretty constant too. Now Natsu. Good little minions don't complain when given orders. They just nod along and say yes master. Minion. Natsu groaned from his place on the floor. I'm not a minion. What happened to being apprentice? The blonde was halfway to the door when he heard Natsu's question. Cheerfully he patted Mystigan's back as he called over his shoulder, it's your own fault Natsu. I found a new apprentice. Mystigan subtly took a step away from Naruto, you refused the honor of being introduced as my apprentice, student and subordinate to everyone we met. So now you're stuck with minion. See ya. Once they were clear of the guild Mystigan turned to Naruto to ask about their destination. I was under the impression that this would only take the rest of the day at most Naruto. Master Makarov didn't say you had to show me around for a few days and go on my first job with me too. Naruto was rifling through his vest pockets looking for a specific scroll. Yeah I know. I have some personal errands to run though, so I might as well get them out of the way now. He looked up to see the masked wizard staring at him curiously. I have to give you the addresses for all the offices about your paperwork and stuff, but after that we'll split ways. Don't worry, I can tell you like your privacy so I'll head off on my own afterwards. Mystigan seemed content with that plan and followed the blonde silently. He didn't see the satisfied smile Naruto wore as he finally found the scroll he was looking for. A scroll that contained a certain shinobi armor set that he'd never shown Erza, only told her about. A scroll that contained a very different mask than the owl one he usually wore if it was needed. The very same mask he'd only put on a handful of times since he destroyed the Tower of Heaven. A mask that no living soul in Fiori should have ever seen him wear. It had taken a while, but Naruto had eventually found the location of the old 7 towers of the R system in the Magic Council's lockdown archives. He'd already checked through 3 of them to verify what Seagrain had said, and now he finally had the chance to look into a 4th. Grimwar Heart airship, several days later. Someone has taken to snooping around lately. Well we can't have that. A deep gravelly voice spoke out from his position seated at the table in Grimwar Heart's airship. Blue Note Stinger was a man that not many would know, but all would fear if in his presence long enough. He was a tall muscular middle-aged man with long dark hair tied in a clothed ponytail, reaching down below his waist. His looks while not immediately aggressive were very intimidating, his large mildly hooked nose and bags under his eyes only lent to that appearance. He was one of those people that you automatically didn't want to mess with, knowing that while looks were often deceiving, picking a fight with this man would end badly. As the deputy commander of Grimwar Heart, a prominent dark guild, his power was not to be underestimated. Hades, the guild master looked up from the surveillance lacrima they were both watching, having been activated once the proximity wards were tripped. Grimwar Heart had a set interest in various secrets and locations that the Magic Council believed hidden, so they set up alarms in case anyone decided to check them out. It was a good decision on their part as in the past few months 3 locations that their long-term plans were linked with were tripped and by the same person. It seemed that someone was very interested in the R system that the council had taken great pains to destroy. Whether it was for good or not remained to be seen. Yes, invite him back for a talk. I want to know what his reasons are for looking up such dangerous magics after all. Perhaps he can be persuaded to join us. One doesn't go looking for information on the R system on a whim after all. Hades remarked blandly, giving the all clear for Blue Note to investigate. The man with the ponytail got up with an excited grin on his face. Perhaps this one can finally answer the question that no one else but you has so far master. Maybe I'll find out if he can fly. Hades grunted in acknowledgement as his powerful second-in-command left the shadowed room they were sitting in. He made sure to give one last order before Blue Note was out of earshot, take one of the 7 with you. Ultear isn't around, she's doing something on her own right now, but the others could benefit from some battle experience. Blue Note faltered before heading in a different direction. He had just a person in mind to take with him to meet this mysterious person. He only hoped that it wouldn't be a waste of his time to go down personally and deal with whoever was snooping around. Well, Bear Mask Wizard. Let's see what you can do. If I remember right, you're the same person that took down Brain in the Tower of Heaven a few years ago. Let's hope you're as strong as Brain says. I'd hate to have to crush you before Master Hades gets a chance to talk to you. With that thought running through his head, Blue Note arrived at the door of one of the 7 kin of Purgatory. When the door opened he grinned as the person he hoped to bring along was awake. We have someone snooping around where they shouldn't. You're coming with me to ask this person some questions. A nod was all that Blue Note got in response, and they both made their way to the teleporter on the ship. It would be much faster to use that than to walk to their destination. Naruto was running through yet another deserted and damaged hallway in the search for any clues to what this tower once held. He wasn't one to take the words of the Magic Council at face value. Just because they said this was an R system didn't mean it was. He wanted to make sure they destroyed all of them, and if they hadn't he would be more than happy to finish the job for them. Still nothing, huh, Brad? Unlike at that island, there are a lot of buildings in this place. Maybe one of them has answers, Kurama offered as he watched his tenant run around the condemned work site. Yeah, you're right. I'll check. All his internal dialogue was cut off as he jumped back to avoid an incoming attack right as he was exiting the building. He leapt further away as it caused a big explosion when it hit the ground he was at seconds earlier. Crouched low, he waited for his attackers to reveal themselves. That last attack had caused a fairly large explosion and caused a lot of dust to kick out, but seemed to serve as a warning or to get his attention as it wasn't moving very fast. He looked around and tried to assess his surroundings, taking everything in that might possibly hinder or help him if a battle were to break out. His eyes looked over the landscape, the terrain, the space he had to maneuver. It wasn't until he caught sight of the place the attack landed that his eyes widened. Is that, Kurama wondered in confusion and slight anger as he watched everything Naruto could see through his eyes. Black fire was burning the entrance to the building he was just in. Naruto's fervent and slightly hopeful whisper completed what Kurama could not. Amaterasu. What if Naruto is Erza's older brother in Fairy Tail? The end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.